As monsters flooded the world, despair washed over humanity. People fought to their last breath, defending the place they called home. And among those brave souls was our main character, Casilian Levandian. He battled the encroaching darkness with unrelenting fury. For years, he threw himself into endless combat, his single sword carving a mountain of corpses, his heart knowing no fear. Then came the day he faced his half-brother, Aaron. That stubborn bastard just wouldn't go down. The battle was savage and brutal, but in the end, Casilian cut him down. He truly put that piece of trash in his place. But after the bloody victory, Casilian finally collapsed, his own life slipping away. Fate, however, had other plans. His soul drifted through the endless void. There, he met a human boy from a planet called Earth. His name was Dojin, and for reasons unknown, he too was on the verge of death. Before his end, the boy had a simple request for Casilian, but the weary warrior refused instantly, not even bothering to hear what the kid wanted. After all, he just wanted the peace of death. He'd lost his country to monsters, lost everyone he cared about, and died like a dog on the battlefield. Meanwhile, the boy Dojin didn't want to live either. All he wished for was his family's safety. It seemed Casilian was finally willing to listen. The boy's eyes lit up like a kid in a candy store. Mustering all his courage, he spoke his wish, for his family to live in peace. And just like that, Casilian accepted, taking on the burden of protecting the boy's family. He then awoke on Earth, inside the body of the teenager, Dojin. Now, with a new mission, he tried to enter the Namsan Gate, a C-rank dungeon where only registered heroes were allowed. An automated scanner blared, demanding he scan his hero ID card. Of course, he didn't have one, so he simply smashed his way through the heavily guarded building and straight into the gate. Security alarms immediately screamed through the facility, warning of an intruder. Once inside, he began to wander, looking for some monsters to vent his frustration on. That's when he ran into an official hero party, a fully licensed team cleared for this dungeon. Assuming he was just some lost civilian, they offered to lead him out, especially since they were about to retreat anyway. But Dojin's silence and strange aura made even these seasoned heroes feel that something was off. His clothes were way too casual, nothing like a hero's gear. Even by relaxed standards, his outfit was ridiculously simple. And what was with the backpack? From the looks of it, he had to be a useless porter abandoned by his party, but they couldn't be sure. Dojin finally broke the silence, admitting their suspicions had a point, but making it clear he came here alone. Hearing that, one of the heroes sighed, realizing what this was all about. He'd seen it countless times before, kids getting hyped up by flashy hero clips, thinking it was all a game, recklessly jumping into a gate without going through the proper channels, without getting certified as an official hero through training and tests. A C-rank gate is no training ground for rookies. If you want to start a career, you find an F-rank gate, unless you've got a death wish. After listening to the unsolicited advice, Dojin coldly replied that he didn't need to hear any of it. The hero party was stunned by the kids' icy attitude when they were just trying to help, but their leader spoke up, telling his team to calm down. If the kid didn't want help, they should just leave him to his own devices. The captain was sure he'd learn his lesson soon enough about ignoring the advice of his superiors. They just hoped he'd realize how brutal these gates really are. It was nothing like the TV shows that portrayed heroes like some kind of saviors. Soon enough, Dojin came face to face with a massive orc. It glared at him, ready to devour him in a single bite. The monster charged forward, swinging its weapon, but it completely missed. The blow only smashed into the ground. Dojin had moved so fast the orc didn't even register what happened. Then, he clenched his fist and unleashed a terrifying punch, blowing the orc's face clean off. It was like a scene of pure carnage from One Punch Man. With the monster down, he stood over it and muttered, "So, it really is no different here." First, he grabbed the sword the beast was holding. Then he used it to carve deep into the monster's body, pulling out a shimmering mana stone. It was just a low-grade stone, so worthless that Dojin would have never glanced at it in his past life. But right now, he was flat broke, so he'd take what he could get. Suddenly, a new pack of monsters swarmed the area, enraged at seeing their comrade's head blown off. Dojin spun around and hurled the mana stone with terrifying speed. It shot through the air and exploded the head of one of the monsters. The remaining two charged forward, as if begging to be killed. And if they wanted to die, Dojin was happy to oblige. He began to tear through everything around him. Elsewhere, the hero team was still making their way through the monster-infested zone. They couldn't get the strange encounter with the young man out of their heads. The orange-haired woman worried for Dojin, fearing he was already dead, but their captain reassured her that was unlikely. If he was just an unregistered kid who broke in, agents from the control center would find him soon. The agents on duty are all B rank or higher, while this gate is only C rank. So unless the kid stupidly charged at a horde of monsters, there was no way he could die in here. The bald guy agreed. He figured the arrogant brat was probably shaking in a corner waiting for a rescue right now. But the reality was the complete opposite. Our main character was the one making the monsters tremble in fear, taking them down with a single blow. He was so fast they couldn't even touch him, let alone hit him with their massive swords. Dojin appeared behind one of the brutes and delivered a kick so powerful it crushed its skull. With the monsters all dead, he picked up a sword from a corpse and began harvesting the mana stones for himself. A moment later, his bag was full, and he was ready to leave. Still, he was a little disappointed with the day's hunt. Nothing but low-grade, heavy stones that weren't worth much. Just then, an agent finally spotted him and called for backup. Before Dojin could turn, men in black suits blocked his path, their eyes filled with suspicion. They identified themselves as being from the Gate Control Center and demanded to see his hero registration. If he didn't have one, he'd have to come with them. Dojin didn't answer, his hesitation clear in his eyes. But his refusal to explain himself only made the tension thicker. His reaction put the lead agent on high alert. His voice grew cold and firm, stressing that Dojin needed to cooperate. The only response he got was a look of pure annoyance from Dojin. It was as if this whole charade was just ruining his day. Annoyed, but with no energy left to argue, Dojin simply turned his back on them. Words were clearly useless here. The men in suits began threatening to use handcuffs, warning they would use force if necessary. One hot-headed agent lost his patience and lunged forward, grabbing Dojin by the wrist. He yelled that if Dojin refused to cooperate, any injuries would be his own fault. Resolving this with words was the best option. But it seemed Dojin's patience had finally run out. He instantly gripped the agent's wrist and warned him with a chilling voice, "Don't get in my way." The threat was so cold it sent a shiver of dread down the agent's spine. The other two agents immediately drew their weapons, magic-enhanced batons. These were rank 4 magic items, powerful enough to subdue an orc, but to Dojin, they were nothing more than toys. He twisted the agent's wrist, making the man cry out in pain. Dojin delivered a cold ultimatum. Get lost now, if you want to keep what little dignity you have left. However, the agents were bound by their duty and forced to attack. They swung their magic batons with all their might, but not a single blow could land. Dojin answered with a single, crushing strike. A brutal strike slammed into one agent's back, sending him crumpling to the floor. Dojin then spun, driving his fist into another's gut. His cold gaze locked onto the man in glasses. The last one standing knew he was next, his body tensing for the inevitable blow. Suddenly, Dojin's form blurred and faded from sight, completely vanishing into thin air. The agent in glasses was terrified. A man had just dissolved into nothing right before his eyes. An unexpected punch then buried itself deep in his stomach, making him stagger back in agony. It was clear Dojin was getting tired of being chased by these government cronies. He seriously considered just registering as a hero. The last agent quickly tried to calm him down, promising no one would bother him as long as he stayed out of trouble. Hearing that, Dojin asked him about something called a rift. The question made the agent freeze, unsure how to respond. To put it simply, this world had portals that connected to other dimensions, all of them teeming with bizarre monsters. These portals appeared randomly all over the globe. The mana stones harvested from monster corpses became a priceless energy source. Because of this, the government controlled all known portals, called gates, and only registered heroes were allowed inside. Any portal that was uncontrolled or couldn't be sealed off was known as a rift. Back with Dojin, he was annoyed that these suits were constantly tailing him. Every time he stepped through a gate, they'd accuse him of illegal entry. The agent explained that whenever an unregistered hero enters a gate, the central system sounds an alarm, and the nearest agents are dispatched immediately. When he realized Dojin was planning to enter a rift, the agent warned him that unlike gates, rifts were a whole different game. Trespassing in a rift was met with severe punishment. There would be no warnings and no mercy. But Dojin couldn't care less about his words. He grabbed the pathetic agent's face and tossed him aside like a sack of garbage. Now, all the agent could do was regret not calling headquarters sooner. This situation was far beyond his control. Before leaving, Dojin glanced at the pathetic man on the ground, thinking he truly was just a weak, pitiful creature. The man's arm looked broken, but he still managed to scream out threats, vowing to catch Dojin and throw him in prison. The scene then shifts to the Sona and Digital Complex in the Guro district. This massive building, now known as the Hero Complex, was the central hub for all transactions involving mana stones and items from the gates. Right now, the place was busier than ever. Dojin made his way to a shop that specialized in buying and selling mana stones. As he walked in, he was greeted by a sleazy young man. The guy was glued to his phone, his mind seemingly rotted by an endless stream of mindless videos. When Dojin said he wanted to sell some mana stones, the sly shopkeeper immediately started boasting, claiming his store offered the best prices in the country. Without a word, Dojin dumped his entire haul of low-grade mana stones, still stained with monster blood, onto the counter. Seeing the blood-soaked stones, the shopkeeper's face twisted in disgust. as if he'd just been stabbed in the back. Still, he didn't complain and proceeded with the transaction, even offering Dojin a coffee while he waited. A short while later, Dojin was casually sipping his coffee, while the owner painstakingly wiped every drop of blood off the mana stones. After cleaning them up, he calculated the total. There were 12 low-grade stones, 16 mid-grade stones, and a few other high and low-grade ones. After a 40% commission, Dojin would get about 5.5 million, but he was not happy about that 40% cut. It felt like a total ripoff. He did the hunting, the killing, and the collecting all by himself. So why on earth did this guy think he deserved almost half the money? The shopkeeper arrogantly bragged that he was being generous, since other shops took 45% or more. He sneered that if Dojin didn't like it, he could take his stones and leave, because no one would offer a better price. Of course, Dojin wasn't naive enough to fall for that. He started gathering his mana stones, getting ready to walk out. Seeing his dirty trick fail, the shopkeeper frantically grabbed Dojin's arm to stop him from leaving. He loudly demanded money for the appraisal service, and for the coffee too. The appraisal fee was 30,000 gold, plus another 10,000 for the coffee. Not to mention the expensive towel he used was now ruined by blood. In total, Dojin apparently owed him about 350,000 gold. Dojin flat out rejected these ridiculous demands, ignoring the man's tantrum. Finally, the shopkeeper resorted to threats, mentioning the C-rank bodyguards he hired for protection. Right on cue, 3 huge men stepped out from the back, glaring at Dojin with eyes as cold as daggers. The shopkeeper refused to back down, trying to act tough as he met Dojin's gaze with a fierce look of his own. But just moments later, the scene cut to the shopkeeper's face, now pale, trembling, and drenched in sweat. The guy who thought he was the main character just got a brutal reality check. Dojin had taken out all 3 bodyguards like swatting flies, without even breaking a sweat. It was pretty obvious who the real main character was here. Dojin walked back to the counter and calmly pushed the price down to a 1% commission. Before the shopkeeper could even process it, the deal was sealed at 1%, no questions asked. Because when Dojin looks someone dead in the eye, no one dares to argue. With the deal done, Dojin casually left the shop with a thick stack of cash, the result of his own blood, sweat, and tears. When he got home, both his grandmother and his little sister were stunned by the amount of money he brought back. His grandmother was so suspicious she even wondered if it was fake. Dojin quickly made up a story about a friend paying back a loan, a friend whose business was now booming. His grandmother was skeptical, unable to recall him having any rich friends. So, he added another layer to the lie, claiming it was a friend from his childhood. In the end, his grandmother didn't press him any further, at least not with the big questions. Meanwhile, Dojin's sister was beaming with pride and joy that her brother was making their family well off. Dojin patted her head, promising that from now on, they would live comfortably. She jumped for joy, her eyes shining as brightly as stars. Watching his sister's happiness, Dojin realized he was slowly fulfilling a promise. It was the last wish of this body's original owner, right before he passed away. All he wanted was for his grandmother and his little sister, Yunyoung, to live safely and happily. The original owner vanished right after, before Dojin could even say a word, and when he woke up, he had become the new Dojin. Now, his only goal was to ensure this small family lived in safety and prosperity. To do that, he had to buy the safest house in all of Korea, which currently cost a staggering 110 billion. For Dojin, making money wasn't the problem, as long as he could reclaim all of his original power. This world had many similarities to his old, destroyed world, except the gates, monsters, and threats here were laughably weak in comparison. For someone who once held the title of Sword God, this world was nothing more than a playground. After all, he had only been using a tenth of his true strength so far. Suddenly, a knock echoed from the door. Someone was asking for Dojin. He stood up and decided to open it. When the door opened, 2 menacing thugs were standing there waiting. Dojin knew instantly they were loan sharks, here to collect the 48 million won debt that the original Dojin had taken on before he died. Initially, he had only borrowed 5 million won for his grandmother's hospital bills, but now they were demanding a ridiculous 48 million. With insane, compounding interest, it was a classic gangster shakedown. They had heard Dojin was making a fortune hunting in gates recently, and they came to get their final, massive payout. Everything might have been written down in the loan contract, but the scumbags were met with a fist slamming square into the bigger guy's face. The punch was so powerful it sent him flying backward, tumbling across the ground. The other thug stood frozen in place, his mouth hanging open and his eyes wide with disbelief. Dojin turned to him with a gaze so sharp it could pierce a soul. He reminded the thug that he'd already paid back over 9 million, principal and interest included. If they did the math correctly, they were the ones who actually owed him a refund. Then came another punch, this one making the second thug cry like a baby. Dojin stood tall, his voice low and threatening. "Go tell your boss. I, that I'm coming to see him myself. The scene changes to a shopping mall, bustling with the noise of the crowd, and in the middle of it all was the adorable image of little Yoon. She was smiling brightly in a stuffed animal shop, her eyes sparkling with joy. Dojin had taken his sister shopping today, letting her pick out anything she wanted. We have to remember, this guy wasn't always such a warm person. It was the memories of the real Dojin, the one who passed away, that reawakened the long-dormant emotions in his heart. Now, every time he saw Yoon being cared for and smiling, a strange warmth filled his chest. Even though she was only his half-sister, he wanted to love her with all his heart, to make up for everything she lacked with the best things in life. In the end, Yoon chose a small, adorable, stuffed rabbit. The girl was so humble, worried that anything expensive would be a burden on her brother. But Dojin wasn't having any of that. He immediately picked out a stuffed animal several times her size as a gift. This was her day, and she deserved to enjoy it completely, without a second thought about money. Afterwards, the two sat down for a nice meal, chatting happily. But as they were eating, a strange voice called out Dojin's name. It was a middle-aged woman flanked by a few bodyguards. She had the look of a fake aristocrat, a bit pudgy, with a condescending tone that dripped from every word as she immediately attacked Dojin for the way he was dressed. Then, she shifted her target to Uni, who was sitting right next to him, and let fly a vicious taunt. "Don't tell me you're just like your mother, popping out a kid without a husband?" Those words were like gasoline on a fire. Dojin's fists clenched, fury blazing in his eyes. Meanwhile, Uni had no idea who this woman was or why she was saying such hateful things. The woman stepped closer and asked the little girl directly, "What's your name?" "My name is Lee Uni, ma'am," the girl replied politely. Hearing the name, the woman finally remembered this was Dojin's sister, but that didn't stop her from sneering at the girl's simple clothes, calling them sloppy. Not only that, she then hurled insults at their deceased mother. At this point, Dojin wanted nothing more than to lunge forward and teach her a lesson, but he forced himself to stay calm, refusing to be provoked. The woman herself was surprised Dojin didn't explode, which he definitely would have in the past. But then, she decided to push it even further, turning to a child to ask, "Do you know what the word slut means?" That was the last straw. Dojin shot up from his seat, his glare sharp and his voice as cold as ice. "You are one ugly woman. You look like you belong to the orc tribe." The woman froze, her eyes wide and her mouth hanging open, utterly speechless. To understand why Dojin put up with this woman for so long, we have to go back in time. Dojin was born an illegitimate child, living his early life in poverty. His mother passed away when he was only 7, and he was sent to live with his biological father. His father then remarried, and that's when everything got worse. When his stepmother gave birth to her own son, Dojin was treated like he didn't even exist. Eventually, he was kicked out of the house entirely. He had to go live with his grandmother and his half-sister Uni. Every time he remembers, Dojin can't help but feel sorry for the old him. "You tried so hard to live a good life, always smiling through the pain, but things are different now." He was going to change everything. That woman was his stepmother's daughter from a previous marriage, his stepsister. That's the only reason he had tolerated her until now. But that was over. He was done being pushed around. She was ugly on the inside, ugly on the outside, and just plain stupid. He continued to crush her spirit with a barrage of harsh words, like dropping bombs on her deep-seated insecurities. He said it to her face. "The only reason you call others ugly is because you're drowning in your own inferiority complex and jealousy. You're nothing but a gold digger, obsessed with other people's lives." That was the truth the world deserved to know. As he kept shredding her self-esteem with his razor-sharp words, the entire mall turned to watch them, as if they were the main event on stage. The orc woman started to lose it, her rage boiling over, all composure gone. But just then, Dojin's stepmother appeared. The moment she saw her mother, the orc girl immediately ran over, whining like a spoiled brat. She complained that this kid had just publicly humiliated her, but her mother only gave her a cold, disappointed stare. She silenced her daughter with a single glance. No joke, Dojin's stepmother was not someone to be taken lightly. At first, everyone thought the orc was the stepmother, but no. The glamorous woman turned to Dojin, put on a fake, gentle smile, and invited him to come back home for a visit. But Dojin wasn't falling for it. He knew the true face behind that mask. This was the woman who had made his life a living hell for 12 years. She kept bringing up memories Dojin wanted to bury forever. The past rushed back, and Dojin's demeanor turned dead serious, as if his PTSD had just been triggered. With a tone colder than your mom's scolding, he looked the woman dead in the eye and uttered a single, brutal word: disappear. Being told that by someone so much younger was a direct slap to her face. She turned, trying to salvage the last shred of her dignity as she walked away. The truth is, she never expected him to fight back so fiercely. In the past, he would just bow his head and take it, even when she slapped him for no reason. Her insolent daughter and the bodyguards trailed behind her. Those bodyguards were about as useful as scarecrows during that whole scene. Now, let's get back to our main character. It was clear those two had ruined his rare moment of peace, so Dojin decided it was time to leave. The way he reacted to his stepfamily was intentional. He wanted to make one thing crystal clear. The weak, silent Dojin of the past was dead, and that trash family of his had better realize it soon. The scene shifts to a Mercedes speeding down the road. Inside are the two garbage women. The daughter is furiously blaming her mother for leaving without making Dojin pay. She keeps cursing Dojin out, bitter about being humiliated in public. But her mother couldn't care less about her daughter's whining. She turned to her manager and demanded to know why Dojin was still alive. The bald guy was clueless. According to the last report, he was supposed to be dead. The woman roared like a madwoman. How could that be possible? They had made sure the job was handled cleanly. The manager could only bow his head. He promised to check again and ensure the job was finished this time. Meanwhile, her daughter had no idea what was going on. Hearing talk of murder, she started to panic. Finally, her mother turned to her and asked a surprising question. "Do you have feelings for that punk?" The question made her blush, and she stammered, unsure how to answer. In reality, she was just worried that if Dojin really died, her grandfather or father would find out and all hell would break loose. But her mother didn't want to hear excuses. She grabbed her daughter's jaw, squeezing hard as if to choke off any protest. She snarled that her daughter was forbidden from getting involved in her business. That woman had decided Dojin had to die, no second chances. Especially not after he dared to stand up and humiliate her in front of so many people. Getting rid of him was the best revenge she could imagine. A decade ago, the world plunged into chaos when the rifts appeared. They were bizarre dimensions that spawned terrifying monsters. They poured through portals, slaughtering people without mercy. Cities were destroyed, engulfed in flames. But in the encroaching darkness, a light also emerged. Powerful warriors, heroes, rose to fight back. They were the first to discover the mana stones left behind by the monsters' corpses. Back in the present, Dojin is on the move. His mind is on those mana stones, which completely changed how the world uses energy. Because of their value, nations now fight over the rift gates to harvest their resources. The entire global industry now depends on the rifts and the heroes. Becoming a hero is the only path to a stable, ridiculously high income. Dojin arrives at his destination, the headquarters of Yong HCS Capital. The name sounds complicated, but the reason he's here will soon be obvious. He steps into the building, and at first glance, the guys inside look like nothing more than cheap thugs, trying to intimidate people with their tough guy act. But Dojin remains perfectly calm, unfazed by the tense atmosphere. The boss puts out his cigarette, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he points at Dojin and talks about his incredible nerve. Not only did he beat his men to a pulp, but he had the gall to walk right up to their front door. It proved Dojin truly didn't give a damn about anyone. Dojin calmly replies that the one who's really at a loss here is him, a declaration that almost makes the boss choke on his smoke. He narrowed his eyes and growled, "The hell did you just say?" Dojin adjusted his glasses and answered slowly, his voice deep and cold as steel. "I'm here to collect compensation. Because for a long time, the clowns from your organization have caused me countless losses, mental, physical, and financial." At that moment, the boss finally realized something important, an undeniable change. The boy from before was no longer a gentle, weak pushover. The person standing before him now was the one who had crushed his men like trash. All signs pointed to one theory. Dojin must have gone through a unique awakening inside that hellgate. Even knowing this, the boss pretended to be unimpressed, mocking Dojin's newfound confidence. He sneered that this very arrogance would be his downfall, that he was delusional about his own strength. To back up his point, he waved his hand, and several beefy goons stepped forward to surround Dojin. Their muscles bulged and their eyes were fierce, but to a sword god who had walked through hell, they were nothing more than insects. The boss just kept spouting his garbage theory, saying even awakened beings were nothing more than trash on the battlefield. The hilarious part? He thought Dojin was just some D-rank hero his organization could crush any time. Meanwhile, Dojin just sat there coolly, legs crossed on the sofa, completely unfazed by the 5 thugs staring him down. He gave a cold command. "Sit down." The words made the boss freeze, unable to believe what he just heard. Dojin's expression remained like ice as he said, "I'm not finished talking yet." One impatient goon, blood boiling, stepped up to challenge Dojin. A smirk played on Dojin's lips as he slowly took off his glasses, confusing the guy even more. Then, he unleashed a devastating attack. The Mike Tyson Ballistic Universal Mega Punch 9 to 1000. The thug went flying backward like he'd been hit by a truck, and the rest were frozen in shock. But the nightmare was just getting started. Dojin took down another one with a single spinning kick. While schooling these idiots, he casually brought up the shady deals the boss was hiding behind his loan shark company. Dojin drove his fist into an orange-haired goon while exposing their scheme of forging identity papers. After the punch, he turned to the boss and stated his purpose. I need a legitimate hero identity to register and earn money. The last guy tried a sneak attack, but Dojin dodged it and returned the favor 3 times over. And just like that, the whole crew was knocked out by Dojin's special lullaby, which has a 100% success rate. After cleaning up, Dojin got serious again. I need a perfect identity. No flaws in the record that could cause trouble later. The boss was still in shock. In just a few seconds, the tables had completely turned. Dojin reminded him, "You have exactly 1 day." A couple of the henchmen smartly stayed out of it. Honestly, props to them. In most stories, they'd rush in thinking they could beat a god as level 1 newbies. The boss started trembling, his eyes filled with utter confusion. Just what level was this guy? Based on what he'd seen, he guessed at least a B rank. He was so lost in his chaotic thoughts that Dojin had to snap him out of it and tell him to get moving. The boss could only nod frantically. Dojin walked over and placed a hand on his shoulder. The touch was light, but his eyes were filled with killing intent. He wanted to know if Hong Hai-do, his own stepmother, had ordered the hit on him. This was actually revealed earlier in a conversation she had with her daughter and assistant. The boss, flustered, stammered, and couldn't answer, until Dojin's grip tightened, making him groan in pain. The rest of the thugs could only watch, their faces pale. Seriously, these guys need a new barber. Finally, the boss broke, confessing the wicked woman's entire plan. She wanted to bleed Dojin dry financially, push him into debt and despair, forcing him to take his own life just to escape. A cruel plan that no one, not even a hated stepson, should ever endure. Hearing this, Dojin gave one final squeeze before letting go. Seeing the man crying and begging, he just quietly asked, "Is that also why you locked me inside the gate?" The boss quickly denied it, playing the innocent victim, claiming he had nothing to do with it. He even argued that if Dojin died in the gate, he wouldn't get a single cent. This explanation made Dojin pause and think. He muttered the name Kang Chon-yu, the person who led him into that gate. Dojin demanded all information on that man, with a deadline of tomorrow. He then left, as politely as he entered, but the room was completely different. No arrogance, no defiance. Only fear remained. After that talk, Dojin was lost in thought again. Deep down, through all the layers of pain, his only desire was to protect his precious little sister and grandmother. It just goes to show how long he had lived in a state of powerlessness and despair. But now, the sword god was ready to fix this entire rotten system. The next day, Dojin was officially registered as a hero and, unsurprisingly, received a B rank. Not like those other stories where they start at F rank for extra drama. He swiped his card at the checkpoint. The system confirmed his identity, proving the card was totally legit. However, the machine warned him that the upcoming mission's danger level exceeded his current rank, which just annoyed him. Maybe he should have forced that guy to give him a higher rank to avoid these petty hassles. Even as the system repeatedly warned him not to enter a gate above his level, Dojin couldn't care less. He walked right in, ignoring all of it. A quick rundown on the Dark Shadow Island gate. It's technically a B-rank gate, but that doesn't mean a B-rank hunter can survive it. Usually, it's recommended that heroes be 1 rank higher than the gate to ensure their safety. On top of that, the gate's scale was rated D, meaning it was widespread and extremely difficult to solo. The good news was its tunnel-like structure, which made solo hunting a little less stressful. Still, because of the gate's scale, the official advice was to have an A-rank hero handle this mission. But the words danger and risk simply don't exist in Dojin's dictionary. To him, the worst-case scenario was just fighting a horde of monsters crammed into a narrow tunnel with no room to maneuver. Dojin cracked a smile as he faced his first enemy, a giant serpent surrounded by a chaotic purple aura. For most heroes, this sight would be terrifying, but for Dojin, it was a lucky sign. He prepped his gloves, ready to throw down. Oh, and this serpent wasn't alone. It brought a bunch of friends, and their tongues were giving off major alien movie vibes. They charged in, attacking with everything they had, but it was completely useless. Dojin was a true killing machine, collecting magic stones as if the monsters had never even existed. Assassin dark snakes are a species of monster famous for their potent, paralyzing venom. Just a tiny touch is enough to take down almost anyone. Aware of this, Dojin went all out, launching himself forward like a bullet and unleashing a full-power strike. In a flash, he slashed through the monster's body, sending blood flying until it was sliced in two. As the monster died, Dojin glanced at his gear. The gloves he bought for 300,000 won were doing their job, keeping the poison out. A worthy investment. Back to the hunt, Dojin turned his gaze to 4 other disgusting snakes and started blowing their heads off. With terrifying speed, he pierced straight through their skulls, blood splattering everywhere as they were sent to the afterlife. Dojin stood there, digging through the monster flesh for magic stones, but was disappointed to find none. This wasn't too surprising, since according to the old world's rules, monsters like these only had a 3% drop rate for magic stones. That meant he'd have to kill hundreds just to get a decent haul. Pushing forward, Dojin discovered a special creature. Let's call him Mr. Skull Mist. Anyone would think this was the final boss, but Dojin had other ideas. He asked the giant snake if it was the boss, as if it would politely answer like an old friend. Regardless, Dojin saw this as a good sign, since now he wouldn't have to worry about getting lost. He spun around and immediately charged in, hoping to end the fight quickly and go home. But to his surprise, even with a powerful punch, the attack did no damage. It just left something that looked like a tattoo on its head. While suspended in midair and unable to dodge, the monster whipped its tail, sending Dojin flying into a cliff wall. After that brutal impact, Dojin began to understand the boss's true power. This time, the monster bared its venomous fangs, hissing like your hungry girlfriend. It lunged to bite, but luckily, Dojin dodged just in time. Using the momentum, he sprang up for a counterattack. A powerful punch landed on the monster's body, creating more cracks on its tough shell. From this second attack, Dojin learned something important. This boss's hide was way tougher than the dark snakes from before. It was a much bigger challenge. The shell was so dense he couldn't break through it with a single blow. The tables had turned, forcing him to rethink his strategy. In his original state, the sword god would have crushed this beast in an instant. But then, something caught his eye, the sword of a warrior who had died fighting this very boss. Now you'll understand why he's called the sword god, not the fist god. Even though the sword was worn down from battle, Dojin picked it up. He believed a sword is only as strong as the one who wields it. With that conviction, he and the sword advanced towards the giant snake. The creature coiled, then launched another attack at blinding speed. Dojin responded by rocketing into the air to meet it head-on. Floating midair, he struck an impossibly cool pose, arrogantly declaring the monster should feel honored. Honored to be slain by him at full power, with a single sword. Even if that sword looked like a piece of junk, this guy was completely nuts. With just a few slashes, he unleashed a blinding flurry of strikes. The serpent's body was shredded to ribbons, leaving nothing but mangled flesh. The so-called serious battle ended hilariously as the snake dropped dead, and Dojin's blade disintegrated into dust. Luckily, he finished the monster off while it was still desperately clinging to life. With the boss defeated, Dojin had a brilliant idea, something most main characters rarely think of. He ripped out one of the serpent's fangs, believing that with the right forging, it would make an excellent material for a new sword. He considered it his prize for the journey, then promptly exited the gate. He stepped outside. To a sky filled with stars? He didn't realize he'd been inside for so long. But after that experience, he was more determined than ever to regain his peak strength. Secretly glad his old comrades couldn't see him in this weakened state. It was just too humiliating. After his hunt, Dojin headed to an appraisal shop to sell the mana stones he'd collected. Just ahead of him, another hero was trading in a huge pile of mana stones, but the greedy employee treated him like dirt, immediately declaring the commission fee would be 40%. Even the naive hero could tell something was seriously wrong. He confronted the employee, stating he was just an ordinary person. The employee recited the same old script he'd used on Dojin, explaining that 40% was the lowest rate around, while the gate center took 50% before taxes. According to him, this was a fantastic deal, since heroes could still make a killing. In the end, the other hero got his money and didn't complain further, just asking with concern about the employee's bruised-up face. Hilariously, the guy was still running the same scam, despite his battered appearance. He put on a real show, claiming some psycho had wiped out his security guards and left him looking like this. The hero listened thoughtfully, concluding it was the employee's fault for hiring low-rank guards. In this world, rank wasn't everything. Actual skill was what truly mattered. Ranks were just an artificial system, updated periodically to maintain order. He pointed out the difference between desk jockeys and real heroes who risk their lives on the battlefield. Even though the hero was making a serious point, the employee just wanted him to shut up and get out as fast as possible. Finally, the hero left, but not without offering to help if needed. Just then, Dojin walked in, brushing past him without a second glance. His ice-cold gaze froze the very air. The employee recognized Dojin and panicked, pointing and screaming that Times was the psycho who caused all the chaos. "He's the one who did this to me." Turning back, the other hero looked impressed, sizing up Dojin's lean and powerful frame. But the fact that Dojin trashed this place made him suspicious, wondering if he was abusing his power to bully civilians. Even though he only knew one side of the story, it made this character feel more realistic and interesting. The employee watched with glee, knowing this guy was a veteran hero, active for 7 years with a ton of connections. If Dojin tried anything, he could use those connections to make his life a living hell. But Dojin couldn't care less, turning and coldly telling the vet to get lost. This just provoked the other hero. As if proving he really was a complete jerk, Dojin casually asked if he was planning to get revenge. Hearing that, the hero got pissed, but his experience told him fighting another hero was incredibly stupid. It almost always ended in death, with a fatality rate even higher than fighting monsters. Remembering that, he cooled down, turned, and left, leaving the employee completely speechless. Dojin turned to the appraiser, smirking as he asked if there was a problem. Before the man could speak, Dojin tossed a bag onto the counter. It was filled with shimmering, high-grade mana stones that made him gasp. From the employee's perspective, he wondered, who times this guy? He calculated the value of the stones, which came out to a shocking 150 million. A huge number, but for Dojin, it was chump change for a day's hunt. When he asked for the cash, the employee reminded him about the commission fee. Dojin's glare turned colder, but then he remembered their deal was only a 1% cut. Dojin relaxed, telling him to hurry up and pay the rest. Inside the sleazy appraiser's mind, a storm of pure fury was brewing. He desperately wanted to punch Dojin for his unbelievable arrogance, but it all just played out in his imagination. In reality, he could do nothing but grit his teeth and take it. As an excuse, he claimed such a large sum needed approval from his superior. Not wasting another second, Dojin slammed his hand on the desk, his voice a low growl. Then call your superior right now. I want that approval immediately. Trembling under the pressure, the employee quickly grabbed the phone, whispering to his boss on the internal line, trying to smooth things over. But before he could get anywhere, Dojin snatched the phone and yelled into it, I don't have all day. Pay up. Now, the boss on the other end clearly didn't want any trouble. He reluctantly agreed, but demanded the phone be returned to his employee. Dojin flashed a sly grin, pretending to be obedient. He went to hand the phone back, but instead hurled it against the wall, shattering it to pieces. Maybe it was an accident, or maybe it was completely intentional. The employee stared at the broken phone, trembling uncontrollably. Dojin didn't even flinch, just gave a cold command. Now, get the money. Everything's settled. And just like that, stacks of cash were bundled up, ready for the massive transaction. In the end, the employee was left a broken man, completely exhausted, both physically and mentally. You might feel sorry for him, but remember, this guy was a professional scammer, skimming more than half the earnings from heroes who risked their lives, a true piece of trash. 10 minutes later, his boss showed up, furious that he couldn't get through. The moment the employee saw his boss, he threw in the towel. He was quitting, effective immediately. The boss looked around and spotted the shattered phone stuck to the wall. Just one look told him everything he needed to know. Pulling out his own phone, he quickly dialed a familiar name, Hion Juon. Get over here. We have an out-of-control hero to deal with. Hion Juon appeared, a stunning young woman with vibrant pink-purple hair that shimmered like a sunset. The crowd went wild, recognizing her instantly. Hion Juon was a celebrity, a star admired by thousands, and the outfit she wore was on another level. She strode into the shop with an air of pure confidence, every step demanding attention. With her presence alone, Hion Juon silenced the entire room. She smiled and greeted the receptionist with surprising politeness. Hello, I came at my uncle's request. The reason everyone was buzzing was because she was one of the nation's 4 most powerful S-rank heroes. Rumor had it she was the owner's niece, and to everyone's surprise, Hion Juon confirmed it herself. Yes, my uncle called me. I heard there was a hero getting a little rowdy. Her curiosity piqued. The stylish hero sat down, ready to hear the whole story. The scene then cuts to our main character, his chiseled physique looking like it was carved from stone. Dojin was meditating under the midday sun, sweat dripping from his muscular frame. Even after a full day of hunting, his earnings were pathetic. He was starting to worry about his future. Right now, his biggest goal was to reach a level where he could solo S-rank gates. That meant recovering his original power completely. You hear that? It was time for some hardcore training. But Dojin's greatest challenge in this world was the incredibly low density of mana. At his current absorption rate, it would take at least 3 years to get close to his old power. And that's if everything went perfectly. Another path was to invest in stronger gear. But unfortunately, even the worst items cost hundreds of millions, a total waste of money. Suddenly, a cold chill shot down his spine. He sensed something incredibly dangerous approaching. His eyes shot towards Uni. Dojin's expression hardened as he moved like lightning, scooping the little girl into his arms. Everyone, get inside now, he roared. Once inside, he slammed the door shut. His grandmother rushed over in a panic, asking what was wrong. The ground began to shake violently, as if the entire house was about to collapse. His grandmother trembled. Gods, is it an earthquake? Uni screamed in terror, clinging to his arm. But Dojin knew. This wasn't just an earthquake. It was a brutal, piercing energy tearing through reality itself. A spatial rift a gate had just ripped open above their house. Without a second thought, he growled, "Stay inside. Don't come out." Then, moving at blinding speed, Dojin shot directly toward the gate. The last thing he heard was his grandmother and Uni screaming his name in desperation. The scene shifts to the Hero Association headquarters. Warning sirens blared as a gate suddenly materialized over the city. This was the first gate to open after 63 days of peace. The White Lion squad was closest. The manager barked orders to contact them immediately and mobilize any nearby heroes for emergency response. But when the exact coordinates came in, his face went pale. Dear God. The gate had opened directly over a civilian residence. This was a worst-case scenario, even for seasoned veterans. If a civilian enters a gate, death is almost certain. Worse, the gate would instantly seal itself, locking everyone else out. And if that person died inside, 10 days later, a monster outbreak would erupt from that spot. It would be an unstoppable tide of destruction, plunging the entire district into chaos and threatening the safety of Seoul itself. The manager demanded to know who went inside. They quickly confirmed it was CO Dojin, the resident of the house. According to his grandmother, he entered the gate for one reason: to protect his family. This meant he wasn't a registered hero. The situation just got infinitely more complicated. A regular person had virtually no chance of ever coming back. A wave of despair and helplessness washed over the entire staff. Meanwhile, in another scene, his stepmother, Hong Hui-duin, was exploding with rage over news of his awakening. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her assistant reported that while Dojin wasn't officially registered, it was confirmed he had a genuine awakening during the gate incident. This infuriated her. Kang Cheon-yu was supposed to get rid of Dojin, not accidentally trigger his powers and make him stronger. In a blind rage, she slammed her fist on the desk. Why can't those idiots do one simple thing? They got paid for a failed mission. She then snarled at Manager Lee before firing off a threatening text to Kang Cheon-yu. If he didn't kill Dojin himself, he'd have to pay back 10 times what he was given. But then, her assistant delivered even more shocking news. A gate had opened right above Dojin's house, and he'd already gone inside. This meant he was almost certainly going to die. A wicked smile spread across Hong Hui-duin's face. She was delighted by the thought of Dojin perishing inside the gate. For the first time, a strange calm washed over her. She told her assistant to keep an eye on things until they knew more. Back with Dojin, he had just stepped into the dimension inside the gate. He was in a forest. But shockingly, it was the Elpis forest, recreated perfectly from his memories, down to the last detail. Even the dense, magical energy felt hauntingly familiar. Walking down a familiar path, Dojin couldn't help but smile. There it was, the magnificent world tree. It was the source of all pure magic, a divine and sacred structure of immense beauty, the very pillar that balanced the entire world. The collapse of his old world began the moment this tree was burned to ashes, twisting the flow of magic forever. But here, in this pocket dimension, the tree stood untouched by time. He didn't know why, but he knew one thing for sure. This was his chance to reclaim the power he had lost. Meditating beneath its branches, Dojin felt the incredible magical flow. Power began to return to him, piece by piece, like a cool spring washing through his veins. For 3 straight days he sat there, forgetting hunger, thirst, and all worldly needs. 10 full days passed as he focused only on his breathing, becoming one with nature. But on the 10th night, trouble arrived, shattering the tranquility. Strange, grotesque creatures called the Bina appeared. Their goal was to burn the world tree, just like in his past. But this time, Dojin was here. The monstrous horde charged forward in a frenzy. Dojin silently wished he had his water element sword. It would have made this much easier. The flaming beasts roared as they closed in. But now, Dojin's power was fully restored. With pure magic surging through him, he didn't need a weapon. He had become the weapon. His hands, now conduits of absolute power, were ready to unleash that pure magical energy. He took down one of the beasts with a single blow. A second monster froze, stunned by the overwhelming power it had just witnessed. The attack was called mana release. It wasn't telekinesis, but a destructive burst of raw energy. It had been ages since he could use this technique. For so long, his mana reserves had been critically low. But the Bina horde wasn't done yet. They retaliated, firing concentrated energy beams from their mouths. Pulsating lasers of raw power shot straight for him. Yet Dojin remained perfectly calm, his expression as still as a tranquil lake. The immense aura of magic surrounding him was more than enough to deflect the attacks. He advanced on the monsters, step by step. His very soul seemed to burn with power. He whispered to himself that he had finally succeeded in protecting the world tree. Now, he could finally relax and enjoy the fruits of his long training. The grotesque monsters tried to fire off another blast, but Dojin was faster, grabbing 2 of them in a flash. With absolute strength, he clamped their jaws shut, trapping the energy inside. Unable to escape, the power detonated internally. In a flash, their heads exploded, leaving behind smoldering, headless corpses. The massive corpses withered away as if consumed by a sacred flame. On the scorched ground, 2 rare mana stones rolled free, but these were only 2 of the many beasts he had to slay. A thrilling smile spread across Dojin's face. His heart pounded as he felt a new power, the eternal flame. With a grin of pure satisfaction, he danced through the sea of blood, tearing through the horde and collecting a mountain of mana stones. The one-sided massacre continued until every last monster was annihilated. Dojin had truly hit the jackpot this time. Beyond the mountain of mana stones, he found something else. A small, shimmering gold object, like a coin or a seed. It was a special item, the eternal flame. As he picked it up, a warm energy radiated through his palm. With this item, he could reclaim a piece of his lost power. He crushed the coin, and a mystical flame erupted, engulfing his entire body. He toyed with the eternal flame as if it were a mere plaything. Normally, the smartest move would be to keep absorbing mana from the world tree, but his body had hit its physical limit, so plan B was to devour the flame itself. The moment he absorbed it, his body underwent a total transformation. His mana morphed into pure fire essence, a raging inferno surging through every single cell. The sheer fire energy radiating from him was so intense, the ground beneath him began to crack from the heat. In his past life, he never saw the need to absorb this. He hadn't even bothered with the eternal flame. But now, absorbing the flame was absolutely necessary to reach the highest level of power. Fully absorbing a single flame like this would take at least 10 minutes. Luckily, he'd collected quite a few, so his goal was to absorb them all. Meanwhile, the gate's appearance had become a media circus. Hordes of reporters and journalists now swarmed Dojin's house. As Hero Association agents secured the perimeter, Sion Yu was furious. Nobody had dared to enter a gate without authorization. You know, if you look closely, Xian Yu kinda looks like someone from Solo Leveling, doesn't he? Haha, but with much neater hair. We also meet Kim Hyonu, another major character with blue hair. He seemed to understand why Dojin would risk it all to save his sister. Xian Yu, however, wasn't buying it. He just saw a greedy fool who recklessly jumped into a gate, completely blind to the consequences. According to Xian Yu, if Dojin died a normal death, it'd be fine. But if he dies inside that rift, the entire area will become ground zero for a monster outbreak. And that would be a true catastrophe. Hion Yu asked Juma, the association's head, for guidance. The answer? Stick to the damn protocol. Hion Yu was still suspicious about the sudden surge of rifts popping up everywhere. America, China, Switzerland, Turkey, the United Kingdom. Juma was struggling to manage the sheer number of portals appearing across the globe. But some countries got the situation under control with ease, making Korea's predicament feel even more pathetic. The public was furious. How could the entire nation face disaster because of one single person? Sion Yu was so pissed he wanted to beat Dojin to a pulp, praying the rift would just swallow the kid whole. It had been 28 days since the giant purple gate appeared. 28 days Dojin had been inside, forcing the association to classify this threat as a level 1 emergency. To protect his privacy, Dojin's real identity remained a secret. For now, he was only known to the public as Commoner S. While the world remained clueless, a certain loan shark kingpin quickly connected the dots and figured it all out. His trusted assistant confirmed the reports, clarifying Dojin's involvement in the mess. Kim Ionu, the right-hand man of Chairman Hwang Jang-shop, was curious. He wanted to know Dojin's odds of survival. Could he possibly come back in one piece? The assistant claimed a normal person had less than a 1% chance of making it out alive. But calling Dojin normal made Hwang Jang-shop burst out laughing. This so-called normal person was the one who hospitalized his goons for weeks. From the world's perspective, they had dangerously underestimated what a mere civilian who dared to enter a rift was capable of. Now, Hwang Jang-shop was curious about the survival rate of an awakened individual in the same situation. His assistant said the key factor was the hero's true level. Without that data, it was impossible to make an accurate guess. Even within their organization, SOB, they admitted that combat ability and survival skills were two different beasts. And inside a rift, things get a hell of a lot more complicated. But one thing was certain, the scumbag Hwang Jang-shop hadn't changed a bit. He wanted to protect Dojin's family, but not for any noble reason. That piece of trash planned to sell their organs if Dojin didn't come back. And even if Dojin did survive, he would just dump all the debt right back on him. The man was the very definition of a blood-sucking leech. The scene then shifts to a majestic shot of the World Tree. Here, Dojin was in the middle of an insane training montage. His body was now overflowing with fire mana. He had no idea how much time had passed, but he just kept training, absorbing hundreds of firestones. With this colossal amount of fire mana, Dojin could now freely wield and control the flames as he wished. As a natural side effect, his fire resistance had skyrocketed. Comparing his current self to the past, Dojin knew he'd taken a huge leap forward with his fire affinity and was finally mastering it. He embraced the world tree, overcome with emotion, because it always showed up to help him when he needed it most. In the past and even now, Dojin was deeply grateful for everything the tree had done. As for the collected monastones, he skillfully wove some vines into a small pouch to carry them. After carefully storing the stones away, Dojin understood that he might never see the world tree again. But deep down, he still hoped their paths would cross once more someday. If the tree was ever in danger, he would protect it with his life. That night, Dojin finally stepped out of the rift, completely unharmed. Luckily for him, he didn't sense anyone's presence nearby. Most people had probably written him off as dead, just waiting for the monster wave to erupt at any moment. However, he detected a powerful presence close by. Without hesitation, Dojin shot off to find the source. Seconds later, he came face to face with two agents. One looked extremely annoyed, while the other was the calm and collected Hion Yu and Seon Yu. One look at their uniforms told Dojin they were from the association. That meant getting caught would be a massive headache. To handle the situation, Dojin summoned a fireball and launched it into the sky with a powerful arching throw. The attack soared over a building, exploding with a massive bang that shook the entire district. Hearing the crash, both Hion Yu and Seon Yu were immediately on high alert. Realizing it was a fire, they quickly raced towards the flames. Arriving at the scene, they found a crowd of people standing frozen in fear. Seon Yu panicked, shouting, "What the hell is going on here?" Meanwhile, Dojin was silently impressed with the accuracy of his fire skill, thinking it would be a huge advantage later on. He thought of his old friend, Suk. He wondered if the mage would be impressed by his current level. After all, Suk was once called the strongest fire mage on the continent, and the two of them had shared a deep bond. Suddenly, Hion Yu's sharp senses warned him that something strange was happening to the rift. The rift seemed to be transforming right before their eyes, then it completely dissolved into mist. Both agents immediately rushed to the scene to investigate, but when they got there, they couldn't believe it. The link between the rift and their world was completely gone. Meanwhile, Dojin quietly slipped away to his next destination without any trouble. The next morning, news spread like wildfire about the rift that had lingered for a month in the Mapo district. According to the official announcement, the rift vanished 29 days after Dojin walked into it. This proved the Hero Association's fears of a monster wave were completely wrong. For now, they had no clues about the rift's sudden disappearance and were conducting an investigation. They were also struggling to figure out the cause of a fire that broke out in a junkyard around the same time. This led many to believe that Dojin was dead, and this was all just the aftermath of his reckless actions. No one knew he was hiding in the crowd, silently observing the conflicting opinions from the public. Some people pitied the boy who had lost his life. But for Dojin, the rift's disappearance was a painful loss, because now he could no longer interact with the world tree. Even if he couldn't protect the world tree anymore, there was still one thing in this life he had to protect. Which brings us back to the HCS headquarters. The idiots were throwing a party, celebrating Dojin's supposed death. They were confident they could now easily get rid of his grandmother and little sister, Uni. After all, Huang Jiang's shop had a reputation for exploiting people to death. One scumbag even suggested letting Uni get a little older before using her for his filthy business. As they were talking trash without a care in the world, a familiar voice cut through the noise, demanding to see their boss. The scene freezes there, then cuts to Huang Jiang's shop humming a tune as he walks. He was completely satisfied, thinking Dojin was finally out of the picture for good. His assistant reviewed the day's schedule. Most of the day was free, with only a lunch meeting with another CEO. Hearing this, Huang Jiang's shop was thrilled. He could party all night at a club managed by Madame Kang. Just his kind of meaningless fun. But everything changed the moment he walked into the building and up the stairs. Before him was a scene of utter carnage. His men were thrown about like broken toys, with blood splattered everywhere. The one responsible for this massacre was none other than the man he thought was dead. Dojin grabbed Huang Jiang's shop, slammed him to the ground, and ordered the filth to crawl back to him. He coldly commanded him to crawl like a dog, an order that left the company head trembling, his breath caught in his throat. Dojin strode forward like a true conqueror, sitting down in the chair that once belonged to Huang Jiang's shop, taking complete control of the situation. He repeated his command to the stunned Huang Jiang's shop, who couldn't process the humiliation. With no way out, he began to crawl like an animal. Dojin then gave a ruthless order. "Bark! You're nothing but a beast." The command was so clear and cold it made Huang Jiang's shop whimper in shame. It took him a few seconds before he finally let out a bark, but Dojin wasn't satisfied. He made him bark again and again for everyone to hear. He was forced to bark repeatedly, surrounded by the disgusted and scornful eyes of others. The man who once sat at the top was now dragged down, lower than human, exactly how he used to treat everyone else. Dojin coldly pointed out that bastards like Huang Shop only pretend to be loyal and will betray you the second they get a chance. Saying his name, Dojin declared that in his lifetime, he had met countless pathetic cowards just like him. In desperation, Huang Shop kneeled and begged for his life, promising to be as loyal as a dog if he was spared. But Dojin was sick and tired of cheap apologies. He shot back with a devastating slap that sent Trangseop stumbling, coughing up blood on the spot. His assistant could only watch, too terrified to intervene. When his name was called, Dojin declared him the new company leader, warning him to stay away from scum like Trangseop or face betrayal. Then, he coldly gave the order to kill Trangseop and handle the cleanup. The man panicked, refusing and begging for forgiveness. He explained that Trangseop had powerful connections and that Dojin's takeover would cause chaos. On Trangseop's behalf, he pleaded for his life one last time. Dojin had no time for words. He suggested they stuff the body in a barrel and dump it in the ocean, just like they always do. It was obvious his men wouldn't obey, so Dojin threatened to toss them all into a monster gate as feed. Hearing that, Trangseop completely shattered, begging through tears and promising to serve Dojin forever. Dojin paused for a second. While killing Trangseop would end all his problems, he realized he'd changed this time around. He had to admit he'd gotten softer compared to the ruthless monster he used to be. So this time, he chose mercy, offering his hand for one last chance. Trangseop grabbed it, swearing unconditional loyalty. But something felt off. His hand suddenly sizzled as if it were being burned by fire. Dojin may have been softer, but his cruelty remained. Staring him dead in the eyes, Dojin reminded him this was his absolute final chance. Then, without hesitation, Dojin cleanly ripped Trangseop's arm right off his body. The arm was so scorched it was nothing but a mangled, charred wreck of flesh. As the meeting concluded, he coldly turned his back and left, ignoring the chairman's agonizing screams. Even so, Dojin left behind a final warning. If anyone ever dared to touch his family again, he would personally drag every last one of them to hell. From now on, their job was to protect his family for life. That was the real punishment for traitors. Officially, the name Sin was just a small footnote in history, gone with the fisher. But in reality, he was casually sitting in a nearby McDonald's, grabbing a bite to eat. The government, the Hero Association, and the media had already forgotten him. They assumed any normal civilian who entered that fissure was dead. Even if he walked out and said he was alive, it's doubtful anyone would believe him. Besides, revealing himself after soloing a fissure would only bring a world of unwanted and exhausting trouble. Trangseop was now like a loyal dog, already helping him find a more suitable house. Thanks to that, Dojin could just chill and enjoy the peace, finally getting to treat his little sister to some good fast food. He told Uni they were moving to a better neighborhood, and she was absolutely overjoyed. Now, Uni could go to kindergarten like all the other kids and get ready for elementary school next year. However, as soon as the topic of school came up, her mood suddenly darkened. Dojin immediately felt uneasy. He could kill monsters without blinking, but comforting a child was a whole different kind of battle. He softened his voice as Uni shyly confessed that the other kids made fun of her for being an orphan. Hearing her heartbreaking story, even a battle-forged warrior like Dojin felt a sharp pain in his chest. If his sister didn't want to deal with those little brats, that was fine. They would all pay for it eventually. When she found out she didn't have to go to kindergarten to be bullied anymore, Uni Yan jumped for joy. Dojin had already planned to enroll his sister in a prestigious private school where no one would ever dare look down on her. That night, Dojin discovered that Kim Eon-gu had secretly moved his grandmother and Uni into a cheap motel while he was stuck inside the fissure. The guy in glasses nearly broke his back apologizing, explaining the motel was owned by the company and was perfectly safe. But Dojin didn't have the energy to argue with these useless henchmen. Instead, he quietly entered the room and was finally reunited with his beloved grandmother. Uni launched herself at him like an adorable little koala bear. His grandmother trembled as she held his hand, tears streaming down her face, thanking God he was still alive. At first, the stone-cold warrior just stood there in silence, but as he felt the warmth of his family, he smiled and soaked it all in. Uni loved McDonald's, so the three of them went there often. Today, she was curious about her brother's job as a hero. When asked if she liked that he was a hero, she innocently said no. Even though being a hero was cool and powerful, they were always in danger, fighting terrifying monsters, and sometimes even losing their lives. To her, the most important thing was that her brother stayed with her and their grandma for a long, long time. For someone like Dojin, who was used to endless slaughter, having someone worry about his safety was a brand new experience. In his harsh former world, he was the last man standing, fighting unimaginable creatures and losing everything. But now, in this new world with a second chance, the most precious thing he could ever have was right beside him. Emotions he thought were buried forever were slowly coming back. Maybe in this world, he could actually live a happy and peaceful life, filled with joy and family. While Dojin was dreaming of the future, the Korean Hero Association was in complete chaos. Na Hwang, the founder of the Korean Hero Association and director of the World Hero Federation, was freaking out over the recent fissure incident. More accurately, he was freaking out over its non-existence. They sent their best people to investigate but found no new leads. Being completely in the dark was driving him crazy, because no one could guarantee a fissure that simply disappeared wouldn't just pop up again somewhere else. His assistant agreed, saying that if it were a monster wave, at least they wouldn't be dealing with a total unknown like this. The director immediately cut him off to keep from getting angrier. But despite his worries, he was glad no one got hurt. Na Hwang was one of the 100 strongest and most respected heroes in the world. The media said that if he ran for president, he'd win in a record-breaking landslide. Luckily, he couldn't care less about political power or money. The only thing he cared about was the safety of the people. He was a true man of justice. Even if it took more time, he ordered a full investigation of the fissure area. Luckily, the residents around the area agreed to sell their homes to the association, so there were no obstacles. As compensation, the association paid a price well above the market rate to make up for the trouble. According to a reliable source, multiple fissures had appeared in other countries at the same time. Clearly, something extremely unusual was happening. The United States and China had already entered a fissure control phase. But among the major powers, the United Kingdom was in the deepest trouble. While their experienced heroes were sent to handle fissures elsewhere, the UK team was basically a pile of garbage. After a month of trying to clear the fissure in Britain, the campaign ended in a humiliating failure, and the UK fissure break officially began. And yet, the city's residents just went about their daily lives, seemingly oblivious to the nightmare that was approaching. In the middle of the bustling crowd, Dojin walked like a normal person, blending in without anyone noticing. Today, he was heading to his favorite store in the Hero Complex. When Dojin pushed the door open, the clerk at the counter automatically started to scan a product and greet him, but the words caught in his throat when he saw his face. Every hair on his body stood on end in fear of the black-haired young man. Luckily, the manager was also there today, so he wouldn't have to face this merciless customer alone. The manager quickly folded the newspaper he was reading and looked directly at Dojin. His voice was calm, but you could hear the annoyance. This was the same kid who had forced his employee to buy a bunch of low-grade magic crystals for an outrageous price. Dojin lazily took off his backpack and threw the bag on the floor. It was good the manager was here today. This deal for the crystals would go much faster. The manager quietly thought, more trash crystals? He wasn't interested in that kind of petty business. However, Dojin doesn't like being rejected when all he wants is a fair exchange. For the manager or any sane business person, a 1% fee was absolutely not worth accepting. It was better for this kid to just get lost. But Dojin warned that refusing to deal with him would be a mistake the manager would regret. Still, the manager waved Dojin away without even glancing at the bag. This was the final warning before things got out of control. In response, Dojin casually kicked the backpack forward, sending everything inside spilling across the tiled floor. As veteran crystal dealers, both the clerk and the manager immediately recognized the unique features of those crystals. It turned out that shabby bag was full of hero crystals, a legendary treasure that money can't buy. Dojin may not be an expert, but he knew exactly what this stuff was worth. This was the highest grade product imaginable. Hero crystals were once used by a notorious Mexican drug lord named El Ka in a new generation of narcotics. But one night, a lab accident changed his life, and the world's perception of these stones. Thanks to the crystals, El Ka awakened as a true hero. From that day on, these stones became priceless treasures for awakening abilities and amplifying mana. Such a rare power source could only be classified as an absolutely premium product. In a devastating power move, Dojin ordered them to pack the goods back up and turned to leave. The manager's scornful attitude vanished instantly. He became a groveling servant, personally escorting Dojin to the VIP section and offering him a drink. As the staff carefully cleaned each crystal, Dojin savored the reversal. One moment he was being kicked out, the next he was sipping soda. His first demand, full price, with only a 0.5% fee. When the manager hesitated, Dojin threatened to kill the deal. He'd accepted a 1% fee before, but this time, he was annoyed, so the price was lower. The manager bowed as low as he could, offering the most sincere apology of his life. But Dojin was tired of empty apologies. They could either accept his terms, or he would walk. It was that simple. At the counter, the cashier silently cursed Dojin, calling him an arrogant, classless jerk. Seeing his act wasn't working, the manager launched into a long, serious presentation on the crystal market and pricing factors. Dojin didn't even bother listening. He finished his drink and stood up, sending the manager into a panic. Feeling the deal of a lifetime slipping away, he offered a 9% fee, then 8, then 7, 6, and 5%. At that rate, the shop wouldn't make a single dime in profit. Just as despair set in, Dojin suddenly locked in the fee at 1%, as a nod to their previous deals. The manager wanted to scream and curse this blatant blackmailer, but he couldn't lose the product. Dojin's next words nearly made the man faint with joy. Besides today's haul, Dojin had about 7 more bags of hero crystals stashed safely at home. The contract was brought out instantly, and both sides signed without hesitation. After a few minutes, a massive $67 billion, roughly $48 million, flowed into Dojin's bank account. At this rate of earning, the 110 billion won house he had his eye on was well within reach. Still, collecting hero crystals through normal gates took way too much time. If he could find a way to move freely inside dimensional rifts, he could hunt for treasure like a madman. Just then, as he stared at his phone, an emergency alert was sent to all citizens. The government announced a monster wave outbreak in the southern region of the United Kingdom, banning all travel to the area. Reading about the serious real-world crisis, Dojin instantly lost the mood to toy with the store manager. In his past life, he would have jumped in to seal the rift himself, no matter which country managed it, but he wasn't that person anymore. He now had more important things to protect. Tonight, Dojin was treating his family to a feast. The main course was premium red earth pork, making little Uni drool as she watched the marbled pork and beef sizzle on the grill. High-end cuts of meat and countless side dishes were continuously brought to the table. Worried about the insane prices, his grandmother quietly asked if this was really okay. After all, $250,000 for 100 grams of meat was a staggering amount. Dojin immediately waved away her concerns. After his massive crystal harvest, they could eat as much as they wanted without making a dent in his massive account balance. The first piece of meat melted on Uni's tongue, the rich, buttery flavor of the luxury beef enchanting her. She kept placing more and more on the grill, while her grandmother watched with a mix of joy and worry. My goodness! A platter of fresh ribs, chuck flap, short ribs, and even grilled pork belly was on its way. It was all so overwhelming. This was just pure insanity. How could 3 people, really more like 2.5, possibly eat all this food? But Grandma had underestimated the appetite of a main character. To ease her worries, little Uni sweetly encouraged her to try a piece of the expensive meat. Unable to refuse her granddaughter's cute request, Grandma gave in. With just one bite, all her worries melted away. The family then enjoyed a lavish dinner, their table filled with laughter and overwhelming happiness. But unknown to them, a captivating woman had just entered the restaurant, turning every head in the room the moment she appeared. The other customers nearly broke their necks staring as she walked past. The woman went straight to Dojin's table, called him by name, and said she just wanted to talk for a moment. But before she could state her reason, Dojin cut her off coldly. He was clearly annoyed at having his family meal interrupted and told her to come back when they were finished. The S-Rank Hunter Hion Juon took out her business card, hoping her name would change his attitude. Against all expectations, Dojin just went back to grilling and eating as if she didn't exist. Hion Juon had no choice but to swallow her pride and wait patiently in the restaurant's lobby. For a star like her to be sitting in a normal waiting area, she drew every single gaze. Men and women alike couldn't stop sneaking glances. Not only was she ranked 4th among the nation's S-rank heroes, but she was also considered one of the 10 most beautiful female heroes in the world. Everyone wondered who on earth could make Hion Juon wait like this. Ignoring the whispers, Hion Juon thought back on their brief encounter. From what she knew, Dojin had only entered his first gate 2 months ago. After surviving, he was suspected of being an awakened. Though he was presumed dead in the Magic Rift incident, here he was, calmly eating dinner with his family, alive and well. Beyond all the inconsistencies surrounding him, just one sharp glare from Dojin was enough to put an S-rank hunter like her on high alert. How could a newly awakened reach S-rank in less than 2 months? Even that oil tycoon CM, who poured money into mana like water, took 5 months to reach the top. Hion Juon deduced that Dojin must possess a special, unannounced ability. Finally, once Dojin, his grandmother, and Uni were full and relaxed, they stood up to leave. Near the exit, Hion Juon quickly approached the mysterious young man, but before she could speak, another group swaggered into the restaurant, their arrogant presence dominating the room. Dojin's eyes turned to ice when he saw the man who had just walked in. The slick-looking bastard never expected to see Dojin alive after that fatal trip into the gate. The man cursed under his breath. He found Dojin's cockroach-like resilience amusing. Hion Juon immediately recognized the troublemaker. In a single glance, the restaurant's atmosphere became incredibly tense, suffocated by a heavy silence and wary eyes from every direction. Dojin ignored the man's cheap provocations and coldly called him over. Cheon Yu was stunned to see an S-rank hero talking so familiarly with a piece of trash. Dojin gently asked Hion Juon to look after his family for a moment. Just for a second, she only needed to wave down a taxi so they could get home safely. It would be much easier to collect an old debt from this stray dog if his family wasn't around. Luckily, Hion Juon was a sharp young woman who understood the situation. She did as Dojin asked, reassuring the old woman and the little girl that everything would be fine as she waved them goodbye. Though their eyes were filled with worry, Dojin could only stand there and awkwardly watch the taxi disappear down the street. The second the car was gone, the resounding crack of a slap echoed through the entire restaurant. With his family safely away, Dojin finally dropped his calm facade and gave the bastard a slap he'd never forget. His movement was so fast that Cheon-yu didn't even see it coming. He only felt the searing pain on his cheek from the sudden blow. Humiliated by the attack, Cheon-yu gritted his teeth in fury and charged forward to retaliate. A terrified waiter tried to intervene, afraid that a fight between two awakened would bring the whole restaurant down, but his reasonable plea was met with a violent shove. Thankfully, the waitress wasn't seriously hurt, just dazed from the powerful shove. Dojin remained cool as ice, ordering all customers and staff to leave for their own safety. Cheon-yu, the hot-headed brute, was too brain-dead to even come up with a decent insult. And for that, he was punished with another fist to the face. This time, he was wide open, with no way to avoid it. All he felt was the ice-cold impact of knuckles against his skull. This was Cheon-yu, the same bastard who'd trapped the original Dojin in a gate and left him to slowly die. Even if he didn't deal the final blow, Dojin's hatred for this scumbag burned like a star. Today, he came for answers, but the goblin-faced lackey just sneered, spilling the beans about Dojin's wicked stepmother orchestrating everything. Realizing this idiot was an open book, Dojin pulled out his phone, opened the camera app, and hit record without hesitation. All he needed was a clear recording of a confession to make his future a whole lot smoother. But once again, Cheon-yu was offended by Dojin's blatant audacity. He gritted his teeth, pouring power into his clenched fist, and spat a curse about Dojin's mother. He lunged forward with pure, unadulterated rage, determined to finish the job and kill Dojin right here. But sadly for him, those crude attacks were useless against Dojin's masterful technique. He deflected the punch with an effortless motion, as if it had hit an invisible shield, sending Cheon-yu's fist recoiling mercilessly. Cheon-yu had never faced anything like this. He'd always just crushed everything with brute force. But this opponent was completely beyond what his tiny brain could even begin to process. He was suddenly thrown backward, his entire body stumbling as if caught in a vortex. Dojin watched his every move like a predator toying with its weak prey. The sound of fists cracking against a skull echoed ominously through the restaurant. Meanwhile, the terrified waitress tried to call the police, but before she could press the button, a small, gentle hand plucked the phone from her grasp. With a brilliant smile, Hion Juon assured her that she would handle everything, and that there was no need for police intervention. The server let out a sigh of relief, seeing a pleasant face in the middle of all the chaos. Slaps, scratches, and a relentless storm of blows rained down on Cheon-yu, giving him no chance to catch his breath. The truth is, that bastard was a B-rank hero, and at his level, it was rare for anyone to make him look this pathetic. Watching the beatdown, Dojin had to be at least an A-rank, but the fight was still just too one-sided. Before the situation escalated, John gently called out to Dojin, telling him to stop for a moment. She worried that if the beating continued, Cheon-yu might actually die. Obeying her, Dojin let the lackey's limp body fall to the floor and calmly wiped his hands. Seeing the deep-seated hatred between them, John asked Dojin what he knew about Cheon-yu. Although he didn't have the full story yet, Dojin knew enough to get revenge on this piece of trash. John warned him that Cheon-yu was connected to Kang Peel, an S-rank hero, but Dojin already knew the truth and saw no problem with it. John had never met anyone so reckless and utterly insane. This guy didn't seem to care about the consequences of angering a top ranker. Hion Juon explained that Kang Pil was fiercely protective of his good-for-nothing cousin. The trouble at the restaurant would definitely reach that monster's ears, and blood would be spilled. Dojin just laughed at John's concern, because he was the last person on Earth who would be afraid of some S-rank heroes. What annoyed him more was that John now knew too much about his life. The garbage had been taken care of. Now, Dojin's resentment shifted to the nosy S-ranker. Face to face, the feral young man glared at the unafraid girl. Hion Juon wasn't the type to be easily intimidated. She wouldn't back down from a simple, threatening look. Changing the subject, Hion Juon apologized for her sudden arrival and gently explained her reason for visiting. Her uncle had sent her to talk. After learning about the bag of magic crystals Dojin sold, John expressed her desire to buy the entire remaining stock. She was willing to pay any price to have them. Dojin warned that his merchandise wasn't cheap, as he had plenty of other priceless treasures stored away. But John just smiled, claiming the wealth of a veteran S-rank hero was beyond a normal person's imagination. Dojin didn't object to the sale, but before the transaction, he had one small condition. For someone like John, it would surely be nothing. At the same time, elsewhere in the city, The sound of shattering, expensive liquor bottles echoed throughout her room. Dojin's wicked stepmother was going crazy over the shocking news that her stepson, who she thought was dead, was alive and well like a cockroach. Her subordinate had sworn the kid died in the rift. Yet now, rumors of his survival were spreading everywhere. It was no wonder her bald assistant was sweating, since the Hero Association had also confirmed Dojin's death. But the stepmother didn't want excuses. She wanted action. To make matters worse, a report that Dojin had just beaten Cheon Yu arrived. At this rate, Dojin definitely knew who was behind the assassination attempt. Hearing about the potential fallout, the stepmother's face went pale, not from fear of Dojin, but from the sheer inconvenience of it all. If her father or husband discovered her shady deals, everything could be covered up. But if it leaked to the press, the corporation's stock price would plummet. She ordered them to get control of the media immediately. If this got out, Toop and W Group would cut their contracts and advertising, and most importantly, they had to bribe the police. On that front, her team had already deployed a comprehensive response. Seeing her lackeys still had some ability, she felt a bit less worried. But the bald director Lee whispered a warning that even with a clever cover-up, this wasn't a fundamental solution. He proposed a plan to end the headache by exploiting the connection with Cheon Yu's relative. That relative was Kang In-pyo, so infamous that even the stepmother knew of him. Cheon Yu was considered trash in the hero world, but everyone knew he was close to his powerful cousin. In reality, Cheon Yu was just a pawn doing In-pyo's dirty work. Both of them were unhinged. If Cheon Yu got arrested or exposed by the media, the S-ranker In-pyo's reputation would be dragged through the mud. In-pyo was already making moves to handle the crisis. The stepmother decided she had to meet with In-pyo as soon as possible. On top of that stray dog Jang Cheol from HCS Capital had openly sided with the opposition. He was protecting Dojin's family, so she wanted a prosecutor on the line immediately. Traitors must pay the ultimate price. The next morning, a group of heroes entered one of the 37 rift zones in South Korea. Only 5 had been turned into safe gates. The rest were exploited according to the association's schedule. Today, John led the group into the rift with her S-Rank ID. She had almost unrestricted access to any gate. Among the heroes decked out in flashy gear, one young man stood out in a simple hoodie. John had chosen Dojin as a temporary member for this trip. Being able to party with an S-ranker was a rare opportunity that had the whole group excited. John claimed she just wanted to get some exercise, but in reality, she had arranged this so Dojin could legally enter a restricted rift zone. Dojin had agreed to sell his remaining magic crystals to John at market price, as long as she allowed him into a high-level rift to make some money. The rifts were full of treasures, but to step into such a dangerous place just for profit without any fear, it was insane to John. All she needed were the crystals. After a few minutes in a dark tunnel, the group emerged into a forest glowing with brilliant light. Unable to contain her curiosity, Inju relentlessly asked John about the identity of the guy with them. John vaguely replied that he was an acquaintance, but no one believed her. Inju guessed he was John's boyfriend. Tired of being questioned, she revealed part of the truth. The young man was here because she owed him a favor, and it's not every day an S-ranker is indebted to someone. While the group was busy chatting, no one noticed the ominous sign in the sky. A huge, dark shadow blotted out the sun, making everyone look up. A creature in the shape of a monstrous bird was circling, about to attack. It was the Ark Guild. John's group reacted instantly, drawing their weapons and getting into a battle stance. Their first encounter was with a legendary griffin-type monster. With her veteran raiding experience, John took command, barking out concise orders. "Dojin, you're on defense. Seo-ho, aim for its legs first," she yelled. But before she could continue her assignments, a figure blurred past like a lightning bolt, leaving everyone behind. With a decisive leap, that person closed the distance with the flying monster. Dojin had completely ignored the group's plan, deciding to face the monster bird head-on, all by himself. The entire Ark Guild and the other heroes were stunned, their jaws hanging open at the sight. They had never seen anyone act so recklessly and boldly. Gathering power in his fist, Dojin prepared to unleash his opening attack with his full strength. Meanwhile, Guildmaster Inju could only sigh bitterly at their bad luck. To encounter such a troublesome enemy right after entering the gate, while everyone was still scrambling to organize their formation, Dojin casually threw his backpack to the ground. As Hion Juon was giving orders, he shot forward like a bullet, launching into the air like a tornado. A single jump was all it took to nullify the Griffin's aerial advantage. Dojin seemed to own the battlefield, energy blazing around him like an inferno. The monstrous bird wasn't fast enough to react, let alone defend itself. It took the full force of his punch, right in the beak. The monster slammed onto the ground, while Dojin hovered silently among the clouds. A truly poetic, upside-down masterpiece. He landed softly in front of the group, without a single drop of sweat on his brow. While the Goksul gasped its last breaths, the imprint of a fist was seared onto its cheek, undeniable proof of his power. The ARC members were stunned. Even the S-Ranker, Juon, was completely speechless. Then, they witnessed his true ruthlessness. Dojin wasn't done. He raised his foot and stomped down hard on the monster's head, again and again, until there was nothing left but a mushy pile of gore. Some thought it was overkill, but a Goksul requires that kind of insane force to kill. The sound of cracking bones and splattering blood sent a chill down the entire team's spine. Inju desperately wanted to know who Dojin was, but even Juon couldn't give her a straight answer. All she knew was that calling him strong was a massive understatement. Very few heroes in the world could pull off what he just did. Killing a Goksul with a single punch wasn't something you see every day. Inju tried to downplay his achievement by bringing up her own sister, an exceptional hero. Still, Juon couldn't shake off her shock. Standing before her was a true hidden master. She watched the entire display without daring to blink, memorizing Dojin's terrifying power and decisive nature. A wave of curiosity washed over her. She turned to Inju and announced a sudden change of plans. For now, I'm heading deeper into the center with Dojin. The rest of you, stay here on the outskirts. Juon approached Dojin, who was already carving up the Goksul's corpse for materials. Before she could even speak, he beat her to it. I don't share loot with people who didn't contribute. Luckily, Juon wasn't interested in a few measly crystals. She wanted to propose they go deeper into the gate, to a place worthy of his skill. With a smirk, Dojin nodded, a look of excitement flashing across his face. Juon, knowing the way, took the lead, with Dojin following close behind. Without warning, she shot forward, moving so fast the air cracked like a sonic boom. Dojin watched her figure vanish over the horizon, then put on his backpack and prepared to give chase. Juon maintained her blistering pace effortlessly, constantly glancing back to see if Dojin was keeping up. Seeing no sign of him, she figured she'd overdone it with the initial burst and decided to slow down. But in that exact moment, Dojin suddenly appeared right beside her, asking casually, "Can we go any faster?" The question shattered Juon's focus, and she nearly tripped over her own feet in shock. This was a first for her. No one had ever matched her speed in a race before. She was one of the top 2 fastest people in the country, but it looked like the rankings needed an update. A few seconds later, Dojin stopped in his tracks, teasing that she was slower than he expected. Even though Juon had gone all out to show off her speed, she was left panting for breath. Dojin, however, was already looking toward the horizon, where a majestic sight was unfolding. Before them stood a massive mountain range that touched the clouds. When Juon asked what was hiding inside the mountains, Dojin's expression turned serious. He said it was the lair of the boss monster, a beast named Casilian. He described Casilian as a colossal creature, over 20 meters tall, an ancient dragon-dinosaur hybrid. Juon couldn't even imagine fighting. To deal with a Casilian, you typically need a team of at least 3 combat-specialized S-rank heroes just to have a chance at survival. But Dojin knew that Casilian could drop a legendary-grade monostone, a treasure ranked just below the highest tier in the magic system. For a reward like that, he wasn't about to let it slip away. Juon argued against his reckless plan, but Dojin was blunt. "With or without you, I'm fighting that dragon." Juon watched in silence as he shot off at an incredible speed, heading straight for the mountain to conquer the beast. Even knowing it was complete madness, she felt she had no choice but to follow him into the chaos. Something dangerous and dark was waiting for them both in the boss monster's den. Dojin's insane confidence, daring to face a monster that could challenge 3 S-rank heroes, was a huge shock to Juon. But what shocked her even more was arriving to find the Kokachis already lying dead at her feet. The fight had ended before she even knew what was happening. Dojin casually pulled his knife from the monster's corpse, leaving Juon absolutely speechless. Her dumbfounded expression said it all. This wasn't some pushover monster. She brought up the famous hero, Park Hee-jeon, who built his reputation hunting beasts, just like the Kokachis. Even as an S-rank, the first time Park Hee-jeon faced a Kokachis, he brought 30 A-rank heroes for support. But despite his caution, all the A-rankers were slaughtered, and only a half-dead Park Hee-jeon managed to survive. He later returned for revenge, leading another S-rank hero and 100 A-rankers, practically a mini-army. The battle was a bloody massacre. They focused on destroying the Kokachis' wings to stop it from flying, then overwhelmed it with a relentless barrage of attacks. The scene brought to mind a famous debate: 100 men versus a single gorilla. If you were a betting man, you'd put your money on the humans. And you'd be right. The Kokachis was finally defeated, but only a handful of heroes survived. The rest were brutally torn apart. The losses were so devastating that Park Hee-jeon's guild, the Sweet Life, still hadn't recovered 3 years later. And yet, this ordinary-looking guy, Dojin, had taken down a Kokachis so easily, it left Juon completely bewildered. Despite him teasing that she wouldn't get a single stone for fighting the air, Juon was still stunned by the absurdity of the man before her. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she never would have believed this insane outcome. The terrifying Kokachis was wiped out by a single blow from Dojin. He successfully collected a beautiful mana stone from the dragon's body. After admiring the mana stone for a moment, Dojin said he didn't need a guide anymore. He could handle things from here. He refused to take the dragon's claws or fangs, showing no interest, and then flatly turned his back on John's offer, leaving her completely stunned. She was so shocked, it felt like she was rooted to the spot for life. Dojin, on the other hand, was focused solely on collecting mana stones. He was even generous enough to let John keep all the remaining items as her fee. John glanced at the dragon's corpse and decided she didn't need anything from it. As evening fell, the rest of the team couldn't believe their eyes. They stood frozen as they watched Dojin gather 3 full bags of magic stones. It was an unbelievable sight, something not even A-rank heroes would dare to dream of. It would take their guild at least 20 hours to harvest all those materials. With quality this high, even 3 days might not be enough. They all wondered just who Dojin really was. Everyone looked to John, the one who brought him here, but she was just as clueless as they were. Even the A-rank guildmaster couldn't figure out how Dojin defeated the Kokachis without any special gear. This one feat alone was enough to place Dojin at the very top of the Korean hero rankings, with no one to challenge him. He was born different. One A-rank hero even thought he might be the strongest in the world at his current level. She was totally blown away. Dojin looked exhausted as he returned with several bags slung over his shoulder. In a single day of monster hunting, he'd collected all of this. The group felt like nobody would ever believe them if they told this story. Dojin's superhuman strength was the very definition of absurd. They were ordered to keep their mouths shut about what happened today, and they had no choice but to agree. John walked over to Dojin and started chatting with him about all sorts of things. From a distance, they looked like a couple flirting. At least, that's what the team tried to convince themselves of the start of a new ship. They figured only Dojin was on John's level, considering their monstrous strength. But the A-rank guildmaster quickly realized they weren't the perfect couple she imagined. On the contrary, their expressions looked like they were in the middle of a heated argument. She couldn't believe someone would dare to argue so loudly with John, a person everyone feared. The most shocking part was when Dojin handed her a bag, turned his back, and walked away without another word. The action left the guildmaster speechless. As for the bags Dojin collected, John confirmed his fears. If the world knew he took down a Kokachis, he'd become an overnight sensation. That was the last thing he wanted, so he pushed the responsibility onto John. Hearing his decision, both of them were left completely silent, unable to speak. But ironically, the rule that the truth always comes out was about to prove itself. Even though John kept quiet, she was becoming more and more curious about this strange guy. The girl was crushing hard. The scene changes to another location, where we learn more about a famous S-ranker. That S-ranker's name is Park Hee-geon. He was pummeling a punching bag like a wild animal. His assistant stood nearby, stunned by the intensity of his training. It was clear Park Hee-geon was bottling up some serious, untamed rage. He was the guild master of the Sweet Life Guild. His assistant gently advised him to conserve his energy, saying patience would get him far in these tough times. Park Hee-geon agreed, believing that anyone who underestimated him would taste defeat soon enough. One day, everyone would look up to him as the strongest guild master. The assistant mentioned his string of victories, the thing that set him apart. She declared that his name would go down in history as the hero who defeated the Kokachis with the smallest team. The irony was, that title was about to be smashed to pieces. Unless Stephen Hawking himself rose from the grave to work a miracle. The guildmaster gloated, showing off his achievements. But in reality, the guild had suffered massive losses for 3 years. It was nothing like it used to be. What made Hion smirk was knowing he was now the only one strong enough to defeat Kokachis, a fact even his one-eyed subordinate had to acknowledge. As they discussed high-level heroes, the scene shifts to Kang Yun-ko's office. He was reading a report on Dojin's chaotic night with Cheon-yu and how he utterly annihilated his own cousin. Even though Cheon-yu planned to trap Dojin in a dimensional gate forever, a critical hit triggered his awakening. The mastermind behind the assassination attempt was director Hong Hee-jin, one of the wealthiest people in Korea. In Yeon-pyo's eyes, it was bizarre for her to target Dojin, until he discovered Dojin was her illegitimate son. Despite being welcomed into the family at age 7, the moment her real son was born, he was kicked to the curb. Yeon-pyo laughed, realizing even the super rich get thrown out like trash. As for the assassination fee, they were paid 3 billion for the job, a pathetic sum in Yeon-pyo's view. But far worse was Cheon-yu's condition after clashing with Dojin. He was on the brink of death, covered in burns, riddled with injuries, blinded, and crippled for life. It hammered home Dojin's sheer brutality, a fact even Yeon-pyo had to admit. Still, Yeon-pyo said with a wicked grin that if it were him, he would have chopped off Cheon-yu's arms and legs and smashed his skull on day 1. Everyone thought he was the saner cousin, but now it was obvious he was even more insane. When the battle's location was mentioned, they noted John was present and somehow extracted Dojin. Yan Pio was suddenly intrigued and demanded more information. He still couldn't figure out what made Dojin so special. Unfortunately, not even his closest aide knew the details of the secret meeting between the two. The case file had been sealed long ago. Yan Pio grabbed his subordinate's wrist and roared, "Investigate the relationship between them at any cost." He suspected a secret deal was in place. The assistant crumbled under the explosive pressure. He scrambled away to investigate, not daring to delay. Yan Pio descended into a frenzy, smashing objects as his rage boiled over. Yet, in his fury, he was clear-headed enough to know Hong Hee-jin's people would eventually seek him out to finish the job Chon Yu failed. Thinking about it, Yan Pio felt relieved to be the replacement. Hong Hee-jin was absurdly rich, with wealth comparable to Andrew Tate, so taking her money would be easy for a greedy man like him. Now, we cut back to Dojin, who just returned from the chaotic raid. After today's experience, he felt lucky he chose a simple rift instead of a major gate meant for pro hunters. But nothing was simple. He might have to maintain a long-term relationship with John to stay off the radar. He recalled their conversation. She said bluntly that many would question the identity of Kokash's killer. If his identity leaked, the fallout would be severe. John's plan was to hold on to the spoils of war. If Dojin ever wanted fame, she would gladly reveal the truth. In response, he tossed her the bag of loot, telling her to keep all the valuables. This meant he had to find another way into rifts without depending on John, to avoid causing her trouble. Regardless, tonight he would sleep well in the luxurious house specially arranged by Trang's shop. But as he reached the door, he froze when he saw a row of strange shoes lined up on the stoop. The presence of so many pairs meant he had uninvited guests. He stepped inside to find a group of men in sharp suits standing rigidly in the living room, talking with his family like it was a formal meeting, not a sudden break-in. The man in charge looked like a dark version of Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen, his eyes as sharp as a hawk stalking its prey. Union ran out, hugging her brother with relief. Dojin was still completely baffled about what was happening. The man introduced himself in a clear voice. "I am Prosecutor Park Cheon-young." He quickly pointed out the connection between Dojin and Trang's shop. Due to this close relationship, Dojin was under emergency arrest, accused of participating in a loan shark operation run by the corrupt CEO of HCS Capital. Brilliant sunlight streamed through the prosecutor's office windows, filling the room with light, but the atmosphere inside felt heavy and oppressive. Dojin was cuffed tightly to a chair, his sharp eyes darting around, scanning every corner of the room. He was trying to remain calm and find a way out of this tight spot. Prosecutor Park Cheon-young walked in, holding a phone, his voice dripping with reverence. Yes, Director Lee, please don't worry. Huang Jiangsu and Seo In are both very well behaved." He confidently pushed the door open and strode in. "Thank you for your concern about my daughter studying abroad. Please send my deepest regards to Director Hong Hee-jin." In front of a surveillance monitor, Cheon-young watched the image of Dojin in chains, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "The reason I became a prosecutor," he laughed loudly, his voice echoing, "is to wipe scum like you off the face of the earth." A moment later, Cheon-young entered the interrogation room, slamming a stack of papers onto the table. The sound cracked through the room like a declaration of war. His face was filled with contempt. He pointed directly at Dojin and questioned him. "What have you even accomplished in your entire life? With just these charges, you're looking at a 15-year prison sentence." He held up a piece of paper, his voice victorious. "We already have proof of your criminal activity, all thanks to Huang Jiangsu's testimony." Dojin's expression darkened, but he remained silent, his eyes cold as ice. Seeing this, Cheon-young lost his patience and screamed, "Look at this bastard! You think I'm framing you?" Suddenly, Dojin spoke, his voice low but sharp as a knife. "The person behind this is Hong Hee-jin, right?" The question made Cheon-young freeze, his face flushing red with fury. He slammed the table and roared, "Who is Hong Hee-jin? What the hell are you talking about?" Meanwhile, Dojin frowned, thinking to himself that Huang Jiangsu's faction must have been completely crushed. Dojin chose to stay silent to avoid escalating the situation, but the tension was becoming unbearable. Cheon-young tapped his foot, trying to stay calm, but his voice was full of menace. "Kid, do you think a prosecutor of the Republic of Korea is some kind of joke? Your life is over, you fool." Suddenly, Dojin looked up, his gaze as cold and sharp as a piercing blade. Cheon-young instinctively shuddered, sweat pouring from him like a river. He jumped to his feet, stammering incoherently, and cursed through gritted teeth, "This son of a bitch." As Cheon-young raised his hand to strike, an agent burst through the door and shouted, "Prosecutor Park, could you step outside for a moment?" Uni-yon's screams echoed from the hallway. "Is the machine broken?" Cheon-young glared at a report, and the person opposite him replied softly, "No, sir." I checked it thoroughly. There's nothing wrong with the machine. The prosecutor scowled. Then why does the awakening scanner say he's a civilian? Does that make any sense? That guy is an S-Jin. The agent looked at Cheon-Yong helplessly. I don't know either. Maybe the information about his awakening is wrong. Cheon-Yong muttered thoughtfully. But this data is from the T group. It can't be mistaken. And he even knew Hong Hee-jin's name. Who the hell is this guy? In the interrogation room, Dojin sighed, a fire of rage igniting in his eyes. Now I understand why they call Korean prosecutors hunting dogs, he mumbled, his voice thick with bitterness. Maybe I should just destroy everything. As he was lost in thought, the door burst open. John walked in, looking a little confused. What are you doing here? Seeing her, Dojin relaxed and leaned back in his chair. I don't even know what I'm doing here myself. John frowned, her voice serious. I know you're upset, but if you use your power, the consequences will be terrible. Dojin smirked and shot back. Are you planning to help me? John crossed her arms and looked him straight in the eye. Not exactly help, but when I see an innocent person being framed, I have to correct the mistake. Hearing that, Dojin let out a laugh, a flicker of warmth in his eyes. John continued, the Fake Awakening Association will investigate. They're already monitoring the awakening licenses and the new rift in Mason. Dojin didn't care and changed the subject. What about my family? John waved her hand in annoyance. Do you think I'm your assistant? Why should I worry about your family? But when Dojin's gaze turned ice cold, she became flustered and looked away. Before leaving, she softened her tone. They're safe, don't worry. Dojin sighed in relief. Thanks. I won't forget this debt. John blushed and glanced at him. Anyway, just be patient. I'll handle this as soon as possible. She didn't choose to directly prove Dojin's innocence. Instead, she exposed Cheon-Yong's bribery and illegal demands, causing him to be dismissed from his position. After a fair investigation, Dojin was confirmed to be innocent. Although he couldn't escape punishment for possessing a fake awakening license, thanks to John's protection, he only received a suspended sentence. In the car carrying the two of them, a news report came on. Currently in the United Kingdom, a previously unknown type of monster is attacking civilians. The monster is a mantis-like creature, 1.5 meters tall, with 4 eyes and incredible jumping ability. Dojin spoke with a cold calm. It's a Masion. John was stunned. Huh? How do you know that? Only the association is supposed to know that name. Seeing his nonchalant expression, she grew even more suspicious. Masions can be killed with an extract from red fire ants, Dojin explained, his voice perfectly calm. It's harmless to humans, but for a Mazin, it's a potent paralyzing toxin. John was silent, his brow furrowed. Dojin, who in the world are you? He didn't answer, just stared straight ahead. Suddenly, the car screeched to a halt. Seeing his silence, John exploded. Are you even listening to me? After a long moment, Dojin's lips moved, his eyes flashing with a sharp, threatening glint. What if I killed you right now? The main character's stepmother sat in a private room, her face tight, trying to suppress the rage that was about to boil over. In front of her, a bald-headed goon stood silently before finally speaking up. This is the situation. She sat stiffly in her chair, her expression still radiating pure fury. Hun Juon? Why does it have to be Hun Juon? She spat out every word. The bald man replied, his voice laced with confusion. We're still not sure. She had no idea what their relationship with Jane was, or how they even knew each other. Hearing that, her eyes blazed as she screamed with pent-up anger. That damn brat! What the hell is going on? She slammed her hand on the table and shot to her feet, roaring with fury. What do you mean Dojin isn't a hero? You clearly told me that kid had awakened. The bald man began to sweat, stammering. About that. It's true that he looked like he'd awakened. It's possible he has some kind of ability that can trick the hero detectors, but that's all just speculation. Hearing this, she screamed in frustration. Get in touch with Kang Yeo. 20 billion? No, I'll pay 30 billion. She gave the order decisively, telling him to start immediately. Cut to Kang Yeo, who was milking the situation for all it was worth. I'm not doing it for just 30 billion. Tell her to double the price. The man in the suit beside him was stunned. Double? Isn't that pushing it? Kang Yeo just smirked. You don't get it. To her, I'm the only option. He continued, his voice dripping with confidence. And when this is all over, 60 billion will be nothing to her. Besides, now Hun Juon is involved. If I have to face an S rank, that's my minimum price. The subordinate beside him muttered, Hun Juon is definitely a dangerous opponent. At that exact moment, a horrifying crash echoed through the room. Bam! Kang Yeo shot to his feet, clicking his tongue in contempt. You think all S ranks are the same? Just give me 20 minutes, and I'll take care of Hun Juon easily. The subordinate's face went pale as he quickly bowed. Yes, of course, sir. Kang Yeo's lips curled into a smug grin. Has the association responded yet? The subordinate nodded. Yes. They said they can't increase the payment because of the current conditions in the United Kingdom. The association has publicly announced they're being very selective with the heroes they dispatch. He paced around, muttering, "Damn it, I can't even use the excuse that the pay is too low to go. Those bastards at the association are the real gangsters. When do we leave?" His subordinate answered immediately. "The flight is in 3 days. They've scheduled a joint transfer with the Japanese heroes." Kang Yeo raised an eyebrow and nodded. "Oh, Japan? That's fine. I was planning to see Takashi anyway." He stared out of the high-rise window, his eyes burning with ambition. Mazin, a new monster with no known weaknesses. If I can find its weak point, my own value will skyrocket. Haha. Scene changed to the skies above Cambridge, United Kingdom, where lightning tore the air apart, purple bolts screaming furiously across a blackened sky. In the heart of the city, a grotesque, colossal creature appeared, its long legs like iron pillars. Panicked crowds fled in every direction, forming a dark wave of humanity on the cobblestone streets. The creature stood towering in the square, its body immense, its eyes glowing a brilliant yellow, and its skin covered in black, steel-like scales. A team of heroes was already there, forming a line before the monster. The leader, holding a massive sword, yelled. The warriors behind him gripped their weapons, their entire bodies trembling from the invisible pressure coming off the creature. In a flash of lightning, all you could hear was ragged breathing. Can we even survive this? Just then, the giant creature let out a blood-curdling shriek as its massive arms swung down like a whip from a death god. Crash! The ground shattered, sending the frontline heroes flying from the shockwave as the other warriors tried to counterattack. A female mage created a purple barrier, magical light enveloping her. After the combined assault, the monster collapsed without its head, lifeless. But it wasn't over yet. In front of them stood a whole army of identical monsters with the same vicious, yellow eyes. The horrifying scene spread across Cambridge, sending a shiver down everyone's spine. Buildings were engulfed in flames, the red fire reflecting against the dark sky. The United Kingdom's heroes gave their all to stop the monsters from advancing south. But with no specific intel on the enemy, there was no strategy. There was only spreading panic and helplessness as the final line of defense in Cambridge collapsed. Flames consumed every street, and black smoke rose high, blotting out the sky. The monsters, with their steel-armored bodies, marched south without any resistance. They were less than 60 kilometers from the capital, London. Their bodies were like war statues, a cold light glinting off their gray metal hides. Suddenly, rows of the monsters collapsed, lying scattered on the ground, stunning the heroes. From the sky, the sound of helicopter blades echoed. A team of heroes watched from the open chopper door, their faces tense. One of them yelled down, "Oh my God, it's real!" Among the astonished group was a girl with sharp, cold eyes. It was Hion Juon. The person next to her spoke up. Hion Juon was right. The red ant essence actually works. The Maizen's eye can't withstand it for long. A member of the team thought to himself, "She's incredible, just unbelievable. How could she possibly know that?" But Hion Juon said nothing, because Dojin was the one who had told her everything. She paid no attention to the surprised looks. She turned back, her voice firm. "All right, it's time to end this." 2 team members responded, their eyes filled with excitement, without a single moment of hesitation. The whole team leaped from the helicopter bay, diving like arrows slicing through the wind. Hion Juon led the charge, pulling a silver dagger, its cold light flashing on the blade. Scene changed to the international airport in London. The plane had just landed. Outside the terminal, a swarm of reporters was waiting, cameras rolling. The sound of whispers and hurried footsteps echoed through the arrivals hall. "Whoa, that's a lot of reporters, but I guess that makes sense. It's Hion Juon after all," one of the group whispered. The black-haired man added, "She was the standout star of the UK operation. She found the Mazin's weakness and became a true hero." Someone else chimed in excitedly, "I heard the British royal family is even planning to give Hion Juon a knighthood." Just then, someone shouted, "There she is!" Every camera whipped around. Hion Juon pulled her suitcase toward the exit. The camera flashes exploded like a storm. The reporters swarmed her, shouting, "Miss Hion Juon, please look this way." "How did you discover the Mazin's weakness?" Hion Juon was silent, her cold gaze sweeping over the chaotic crowd. Behind her, Kang Yeo appeared, a smug smile on his face. A reporter called out, "Kang Yeo, could you share a few words? We heard you caught the most Mazin on this mission." The team of 200, including the heroine Hion Juon, has returned home. The efforts of the Korean heroes have saved the UK from disaster. The key to hunting the Mazin was to spray red ant essence into the air, a strategy first proposed by Hion Juon. On a screen, the interview was being broadcast. Below, the main character witnessed everything. His cold, angry eyes were locked on the screen as he gritted his teeth, his mind roaring one name, Kang Yeo. In a quiet cafe, soft yellow light shone down on the wooden tables. Dojin sat with Hun Juon. She placed a few luxurious gift bags on the table, her voice soft. A gift. Dojin looked up, his brow furrowed in surprise. A gift for what? Hun Juon smiled, pointing to each bag. This one is for Yunyang and your grandmother, and this one is for you. Wait until you get home to open it. You don't have to do it here. Dojin's eyes swept over the neatly folded outfit in the bag. High-quality fabric, meticulous stitching. He mumbled. This stuff looks expensive, Hun Juon replied, her voice calm. This is just a small thank you for your help. Because of you, I became a real hero. Compared to what I received, this gift is nothing. I could buy you a car if you want. Dojin was nonchalant. If I need one, I'll tell you. In the end, I was able to help out after all. Hun Juon narrowed her eyes, her voice slow. Even if I asked you how you knew the Mazin's weakness, you wouldn't answer, would you? Dojin's cold gaze didn't waver. What reason would I have to answer you? Hun Juon stared at him, feeling confused but not pushing any further. She sighed. So, what's your plan from now on? She thought to herself. It's not like I expected an answer like, for world peace from a guy like him. But if he targets Hong Hiu or Kang Yo, it'll cause absolute chaos. I have to stop him before it's too late. Dojin tilted his head, his gaze deep in thought. First things first, I need to buy a house. The man froze. You mean your current place is a rental? The scene shifts to a lavish mansion, where the powerful party by the pool with wine and women. Purple lights flicker to the beat of thumping music. Kang Wai soaked it all in, two girls in his arms, thinking to himself, Hun Juon, she's so different now. She knew Mazen's weakness, and she's hiding how she found it. She's definitely hiding something. He recalled being on the plane, asking Hun Juon to forget about Mazen. What's the deal with you and Dojin? Hun Juon was ice cold. What are you talking about? He raised an eyebrow. You blew up an entire prosecution just to save him. Am I wrong? You were there when he took that thing down. Hun Juon adjusted her hair, her eyes indifferent. Kang Cheol started it. You remember the failed assassination inside the gate, don't you? Even that day, he was the one who picked the fight. Kang Wai smirked mockingly. Ha ha, that guy was a total moron, doing stupid things for pocket change. It's no surprise he died. But still, he was my cousin. You get it? In short, I have a reason for revenge. Hun Juon remained silent, her sharp eyes showing no emotion, as she replied coolly, do whatever you want. This has nothing to do with me. Kang Wai frowned, a little surprised by her cold detachment. Weren't they supposed to be close? Or was I wrong? Hun Juon leaned her head back, closing her eyes as she spoke softly. In any case, my intervention won't be necessary. Those words echoed in Kang Yi's mind. He repeated them with a sly, knowing smirk. My intervention won't be necessary? Yeah, that's exactly what she said, he thought. That bastard Seojin is definitely hiding something. The scene shifts to Urberry, England, a land just devastated by a monster wave. The British Hero Association is scrambling to collect magic stones before the second wave hits. They deployed a huge number of heroes into the rift. A gatekeeper sighed in disappointment. Such a waste. If we had the red ant extract, even D-rankers like us could have taken down Mazen. The other guard nodded. Yeah, if we'd stopped the wave sooner, we could have mined a whole mountain of magic stones. Once a rift has a monster wave, it can't be turned into a gate anymore. I heard the second wave will have a different monster, not Mazen. The other replied, That's right. Just thinking about it gives me chills. No one knows what will crawl out this time. A few nations have been wiped off the map because of things like this. Suddenly, one of the guards looked up, frowning. I feel like someone's coming out of the rift, the raid team from earlier. It's only been 5 hours. The other guard waved him off. Come on, just focus on your watch. Civilians will definitely rush here once news of the magic stones gets out. Just then, the rift began to glow with a blinding light. Red cracks shot out like lightning. The guards panicked, their faces pale. From the depths of the glowing red rift, a massive shadow emerged. Its body was built like a tank, skin gleaming like black steel. Its eyes glowed from within a purple haze of energy, each heavy step shaking the very ground. What is that thing? That's no hero! One guard screamed, his blonde hair trembling. Look at its clothes and those scars. Contact headquarters, now! But before he could grab his device, a blue light flashed. A metallic black hand shot forward. Before he could react, the guard was lifted by an invisible force. What the hell? He drew his weapon to attack, screaming, Damn it! But he was immediately slammed into the ground. The attacker walked forward coldly, glowing blue rings of mana radiating from its body. It whispered, its voice dry and full of contempt, too weak. It clenched its fist, and the light flared once more. The two gatekeepers were crushed like ants, blood spraying everywhere as their screams echoed across the wasteland. It raised a hand, and as purple-black energy shot out, a device displayed the number 19.26%. It muttered, 15 years have passed in this world, and I haven't even recovered 20% of my power. Did I really create a spatial rift just to fail? No. First, I need to increase the mana concentration. As it stepped over the guards' bodies, one survivor whispered, Who are you? With a slight wave of its arm, the soldier exploded into a bloody pulp. It spoke coldly. First, I must wipe out all these insect-like weaklings. The scene changes to Paju, South Korea. In a lush green field under a clear sky, Sojin walks slowly, a large bag slung over his shoulder. Suddenly, a glint of alertness flashed in his eyes. He stopped, looking up, sensing a growing tremor from beneath the ground. Massive worms erupted from the earth in unison, tearing up the grass and kicking up huge pillars of dust. Sojin stood perfectly still, without a trace of fear. He tilted his head, sensing their movements. 26 of them within a 100-meter radius. Let's see how many survive this. Fire erupted from the palm of his hand. With a faint smile, he threw a fireball at the ground. The earth cracked and burned, rocks rising from the scorched soil, ready for the fury he was about to unleash. The flames detonated in a massive, earth-shattering explosion. The monsters, which had appeared less than 3 seconds ago, were instantly obliterated. Sojin stood there, watching the gruesome scene, his expression unchanged, as if this was just another day for him. The corner of his mouth curved into a faint, detached smile. The scene cuts to a high-rise building in a modern city. In a quiet office, an elderly man sips his coffee, his voice calm. That's right. What kind of person is he? The man who answered, wearing glasses, had a serious expression. He's very hard to read, but he confirmed with his own mouth that he is a hero. That man was Min Hongdi, the vice president of the Korean Hero Association. The older man raised an eyebrow. Didn't you say the power measuring devices couldn't even get a reading on him? Min Hongdi nodded slightly, helpless. We still have no explanation for that. Chairman Baek Sung-chun slammed his hand on the table, furious. That insolent brat. When the association asks a question, you answer. But he slowly lowered his hand, his voice softening. Is there anything else? Min Hongdi flipped through a file and shook his head slightly. Not much. But it all began with a vicious plot orchestrated by the hero Kang Cheol himself. After Sojin's counterattack and the fact he cleared the new rift in Mao all by himself, even with some questionable actions, one thing is clear. His power is absolutely overwhelming. Nothing can compare. Baek Sung-chun crossed his arms deep in thought. A wild horse, difficult to tame, but a powerful warhorse nonetheless. He requested an official hero license, and also asked to skip the procedures since he has a sponsor. The chairman asked, who's his sponsor? Min Hongdi replied with a grave tone, an S-Rank hero, Hion Juon. The room fell silent. The two men stared at each other, stunned. The scene cuts back to Sojin's battle. A smirk played on his lips as he held a brand new S-Rank card. The 8th person in South Korean history to achieve S-Rank. Thanks to this, Sojin could now freely hunt monsters in rift zones. All around him, the corpses of giant worms lay scattered. In another meeting room, laughter erupted. Ha ha. The moment he got his card, he ran straight to Paju. He's truly one of a kind. Min Hongdi nodded. Very proactive. It's rare to see someone like him. Baek Sung-chun was stunned. No way. Into a rank 2 rift alone? No guild, no teammates. Is he insane? The room went quiet. A sharp, calculating light gleamed in the chairman's eyes. Baek Sung-chun gasped, then shouted, if that Sojin kid makes it back alive, we announce it far and wide, that he's South Korea's 8th S-Rank hero. Min Hongdi objected. He probably doesn't want the attention. We should ask him first. Baek Sung-chun snapped. This is so frustrating. A new S-Rank hero appearing in these unstable times. Isn't that the perfect way to reassure the public? Am I right, Chairman? The chairman nodded. I understand both sides. I will go and meet him myself. The scene cuts to the battlefield in a dense forest near the rift. Sojin delivers a devastating kick to a giant monster, his eyes sharp with excitement. His hands ignited, and he spun, unleashing a massive firestorm that incinerated every monster around him. He landed lightly, as monster corpses rained down behind him. Standing on the pile of bodies, Sojin surveyed the results of his battle, breathing lightly. Mana consumption was higher than I expected. I need to get some new weapons. The scene shifts to the hero complex in Paju, South Korea, at an ordinary-looking blacksmith shop. Inside, a muscular smith is glued to his phone. The bell on the door jingles. Sojin walked in. The owner didn't even bother with a greeting, speaking with pure arrogance. Tell me the name of the person who made the reservation. Sojin slammed a heavy cloth bag on the counter, his voice cold. I want you to craft a weapon from these. The blacksmith glanced at the bag and snorted. If you don't have a reservation, get out. Sojin's voice turned sharp. You're the one who answered the phone, aren't you? Model. The guy scoffed. We're busy. Go try somewhere else. Without another word, Sojin snatched him by the collar, lifting him off the ground. His voice was ice. Are you the owner? The punk panicked. I'm the owner's son. Sojin's grip tightened. I came here because I heard this place had a reputation. Staring into those cold eyes, the son gave up and went inside. Dad, we have a customer. A rugged old blacksmith emerged. He was Choi Choan, a legend who forged weapons for heroes. He looked Sejin over and asked bluntly, "Who sent you here?" "Su Dojin," Sejin answered. The moment they heard that name, both father and son went pale. The entire shop felt heavy. Sejin opened his bag, pulling out a reddish-brown piece of material and setting it on the table. The instant the old blacksmith saw it, a chill ran down his spine. The two of them leaned in, picking it up to inspect it, their voices stuttering. This is... The son saw his father's pale face and wondered, "Dad, what is that?" The father's voice trembled as he replied, "This is the fang of a black venom drake. It's been a long time since I've seen one of these." Sejin stated his request. "Forge a longsword. Make it as long as you can." The old man was bewildered. "Long? You don't understand. With a non-metal material like this, making it too long will just make it weak. I'll make 2 standard-sized blades instead." Sejin's brow furrowed. "Are you admitting you're not skilled enough? Then forge the 2 blades together, because I need a longsword, and if you can increase its magic absorption, even better." At Sejin's arrogance, the son yelled, "Who do you think you are, making demands like that? My father specializes in weapons that have a minimum mana absorption of level 3. Sejin silently picked up a pre-forged sword. After a quick glance, he judged it. "This thing's at least level 5, right?" Then, with a mere fraction of his power, the entire room lit up. The sword shattered like tofu in an instant. The son was stunned, while the father looked on, heartbroken. Sejin dropped the broken hilt, his voice like frost. "If this piece of trash is the kind of work you do, you should just retire." An unnerving silence fell over the room. The father and son were too terrified to even breathe. The scene shifts to a lush green forest where a giant monster awakens. It snarled, baring its fangs as its massive, blood-red eye snapped open. The terrifying one-eyed beast let out a monstrous roar. Sejin appeared, walking casually. He muttered to himself, as noisy as ever. With a flick of his wrist, flames erupted as he dodged a stomp from the beast. Before the monster knew what was happening, Sejin blurred forward with wind-tearing speed, sinking his blade deep into its shoulder. It roared in agony, grabbing a nearby tree through the pain, veins bulging all over its body. But the tree couldn't even touch Sejin. Instead, he sliced it clean in 2 with a single, decisive swing. With eyes as cold as ice, Sejin charged. The monster, once so aggressive, now trembled in absolute terror. In a flash, Sejin was behind it, engulfing its massive body in magical flames. The beast began to regenerate with green energy, wounded flesh knitting itself back together, but Sejin gave it no time to recover, placing a light touch on its back. Boom! The monster's entire body erupted in black flames. It shrieked, collapsed, and its head rolled clean off. Sejin stood there without a single scratch, having taken down a giant beast in the blink of an eye. He mumbled, "Maintaining a mana sword for that long really isn't easy." A red flame still smoldered on his hand, but his shoulders slumped from exhaustion. Sejin bent down, took a cup from his backpack, and opened the lid, filling it with blood from the monster's corpse. He said hoarsely, "To think I had to chase a cyclops all day just for this." The scene changes to a quiet evening in front of the forge. Sejin handed the cup to the blacksmith's son. The boy took it, examined it, and frowned. "What is this?" Sejin answered coolly. "Tell your father this will make it easier to fuse the 2 fangs." Then he turned to leave. The young smith called out, "Hey, at least say something before you go." He scratched his head, muttering, "What's with this guy? What a weirdo." But his voice was lost to the wind and the bright city lights as Sejin's steady footsteps faded into the distance. He mused to himself. The basic materials were ready. But to boost the mana absorption to a whole new level, there was only one way. Unfortunately, the place to get that item wasn't on this earth anymore. The scene cuts to an outdoor resort. A swimming pool shimmered under the lights. A phone vibrated, the name Sejin lighting up the screen. A beautiful woman lounging by the pool picked it up, a mix of curiosity and amusement on her face. "Hello?" Whatever was said on the other end, it left her completely stunned. "Huh? What did you say?" At a noisy swimming pool, laughter filled the air. In the lounge area, sunlight stretched across the grass. Juon, wrapped in a blue and white checkered towel, was relaxing on a sun lounger next to Dong Ingu. They chatted peacefully, a sense of calm joy filling the air. Juon spoke up. "So, the association decided to send heroes to Brazil?" Dong Ingu replied without hesitation. "Yep. It seems the Brazilian government and the association are at their wits' end. They're starting to lock down the entire rift zone. The monsters in Brazil are aggressive, sure, but they only drop a few mediocre magic stones. The association is paying well, though, so our whole guild decided to go." Dong Ingu added, "If you're coming, bring that guy along, too." Lately, all the heroes have been gossiping about the 5 members of the S-Class group of 8. He's one of them, isn't he? Duan froze. I'm not so sure. Dong Ingu chuckled. Don't play dumb with me. I heard you and that guy are pretty close. Duan got flustered. What are you talking about? Dong Ingu laughed. So cute. The light laughter made the atmosphere feel lively for a moment. Dong Ingu added, I even saw you two hunting a Mazion all by yourselves. Duan mumbled, It wasn't a big deal. Fine, I'll go. Dong Ingu laughed brightly, her voice cheerful. Yes, thank you. Just when the mood seemed light, an uncertain voice cut in, but I'm not sure if he'll agree to come with us. The scene shifts to the old blacksmith, Choi Choan, staring at the item before him, muttering in disbelief. How? How did you know that a non-metallic material could be melted down and fused so precisely? A look of pure confidence was written all over Seijin's face. It was as if these secret techniques were knowledge he'd carried over from a past life. His gaze was heavy, contemplating a technology beyond human understanding. Old man Choi Choan asked, And how did you know Cyclops' blood could be used like this? Seijin replied, For now, just focus on making the longest version possible, as requested. 180 centimeters should be doable, right? He described it, Make it a two-handed style, but adjust the grip so I can swing it with one hand. A weight of around 5 kilograms should be perfect. Choan raised an eyebrow, a mix of surprise and fascination in his eyes. He mumbled, What's with the sudden polite talk? I thought he was just some punk, but it turns out he knows basic manners. If it wasn't for that, could this weapon really be the most precious one? The old man added, 5 kilograms is very heavy to swing one-handed, especially over and over again. Seijin gave a calm smile, his voice reassuring. Just make it for me. How long will it take? The blacksmith replied, It'll take at least a month. The mana absorption rate could reach level 7. Seijin thought to himself, Level 7? His eyes were sharp as blades, his heart heavy. He wondered if even that level could withstand his true power. The light glinted in his cold eyes, as if he were weighing a critical choice. Finally, he tilted his head slightly and whispered with certainty, Just as I thought. I'm still going to need that. As he left, his voice was low. For now, just make the mold. We can handle the mana absorption process after I bring back the other materials. Choi Chon watched him go, thinking in astonishment, Don't tell me, he's actually going to find that material? A few days later, a cityscape unfolds, a river winding through modern skyscrapers. A black Rolls-Royce pulls up in front of a luxury building. Seijin stood there, radiating confidence. In a gentle voice, he said, Thank you. I'll take good care of it. Duan, in her uniform, raised an eyebrow, a mix of curiosity and embarrassment in her eyes. It's nothing. But do you really see me as that small? And you told me to go buy a car that costs 1 billion won? Seijin let out a faint smile and replied without thinking, It's just the right size. Duan looked down, her cheeks blushing as she asked, So while you were admiring your new car, what happened with the Hero Association? Seijin explained, They said they were going to release my personal information. I told them there would be a price to pay if they did. Duan was surprised. A price? But Chairman Nate Wang is someone who cares about the greater good. Seijin was firm. So it seems, the negotiations failed. Duan pressed on. Can't you just try to get along with them a little? I'd be grateful if you'd also consider my position as the one who sponsored your identity. Seijin. The car door clicked shut. Seijin was already in the driver's seat, leaving Duan standing there, frozen, as silence fell between them. John spoke up first. The association's probably got its hands full, sending people to that rift in Brazil. Just wait for the dust to settle, then you can hit up the chairman again. Hearing the familiar name, Sojin cut in. Brazil? John confirmed. Yeah, Brazil, she continued. They're saying they're going to completely seal off a section of the rift there. Their eyes met. A soft, almost romantic spark between them. Seojin asked, You're going too? Her heart skipped a beat at the sudden question. Flustered, she finally admitted, I am. Seojin stared right at her, his gaze unwavering. What are you talking about? We're going together. The sudden offer left her stunned, heart pounding, cheeks burning red. At that exact moment, Hong Hai-du was practically convulsing, her eyes blazing with pure rage. Chairman Na-Tae Wang, a man with a terrifying presence, sat across from her. His hands were clasped, his eyes gleaming in the shadows. Hong Hai-du screamed, What the hell do you mean? How much more could you possibly want? This isn't the time to sweat the small stuff, Director Hong. Na-Tae Wang growled, his expression unnervingly calm. She shot to her feet, seething. You've already taken 30 billion, and you have the nerve to demand more. So when are you going to get the job done? I should have just hired someone else, she added. With enough money, there are plenty of killers out there who don't ask questions. People like that are a dime a dozen. Na-Tae Wang just scoffed. But would anyone else really take on this kind of job? He leaned back, his expression dripping with mockery. Looks like your intel network is pretty pathetic, huh? Here, let me give you a little freebie. Seojin. That kid's an S-rank, the 8th S-rank hero in South Korea. The air went still, as if the whole world now revolved around that single name. Her eyes widened as she shrieked. That brute is an S-rank? Are you messing with me? He shot back mockingly. Hey, don't believe me if you want, but that's intel I paid good money for. If you don't want to listen, fine. Just wait for Sojin to kill you, and then you can have your regrets. Watching him turn to leave, Hong Hai-do panicked. Wait, hold on. Is Sojin really an S-rank? The tension was suffocating. She was spiraling. If he's an S-rank, I can't deal with him myself. I'll give you more money. Whatever it takes, just handle it. A calculated smile spread across Nate Wang's face. Money is important, of course, but it would be even better if we became close business partners. Every word was loaded, promising more than just a simple transaction. This was the start of a dark alliance. She added desperately, do whatever it takes. Just make sure you kill him. Her plea was cut short by the sharp ring of a phone. Nate Wang glanced at his phone. Well, it looks like fate is on your side, Director Hong. Confused, she asked, what's that supposed to mean? He held up the phone. A golden opportunity to kill Sojin is about to present itself. Against a vast blue sky dotted with fluffy clouds, an airplane soared. 2 documents flashed on screen. One was a True Hero memo, subtitled, Hero's Identity Revealed. Next to it, 2 mysterious silhouettes, one purple, one black, stood against a stark white background. Inside the plane, a man sits in a sharp black suit. The online comments were already blowing up. Kang Seong-ho is going to Brazil too? He's gonna solo the P-listers and hit #1 among the reawakened. That dude can smell money from a mile away. Damn, is Brazil paying that much? Park Hae-joon is totally just going for the cash, right? Since his usual route is totally blocked, he's probably broke. Yoon is going too. Guess if you become a national hero, you can afford to mess around. Gotta strike while the iron's hot. Yoon is so freaking hot. Even Kang Yubin is going? Brazil must be dropping some serious cash. I heard if you score a Mana Stone on this mission, it's tax-free. You get to keep the whole thing. Just 1 mid-grade Mana Stone and you'd be set for life. As for Sojin, the comments were different. Who's that guy? Is he a rookie? Guess we have to wait for the Brazil mission to see him debut. Deharo Gazer commented, he's just a kid. They probably sent him for experience, but his actual skills are trash. So Kang Chang Speedy chimed in, even if he's an S-rank, that's probably his limit. The plane glided through the clear sky, a peaceful moment before the storm. Eyes watched the plane, filled with worry. The sun hadn't set, but destiny was already in flight. A vast blue sky stretched over the city of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Skyscrapers pierced the morning light. This was the headquarters of the Brazilian Hero Association. 2 men in sharp suits were deep in conversation. One reported in a low voice, the Korean hero team just landed. The bearded man's eyes widened in surprise and satisfaction. Oh, that's excellent news. They were the first to respond to our request. He continued. Some of the heroes didn't even stop at their hotels. They went straight into action. That's the kind of efficiency you expect from them. However, I'm worried the Korean heroes will discover that. For a split second, deep anxiety flashed in his eyes. The bearded man clasped his hands, his gaze drifting to the ceiling. No secret stays hidden forever. Just keep a lid on it, at least until this operation is over. After a brief silence, the other man nodded. Understood. He let out a heavy sigh, his eyes filled with a hidden burden. An image flashed of a body lying motionless on the ground. The massive man was now just a cold corpse, his face a mask of his final struggle. This was Maurice, Brazil's national-level hero. He'd been defeated, killed by an unknown entity. It wasn't a monster. The black box footage clearly showed the silhouette of a person, standing in the middle of a swirling vortex of purple energy, its eyes glowing with a cold light. Its sharp features seemed almost inhuman. So what the hell really happened in the Santa Teresa Rift? A person, not a monster, had just killed one of their strongest heroes, and this was only the beginning of a terrible secret. Inside a huge auditorium, heroes listened to a briefing. The beauty sat quietly in a corner, staring intently at her phone. She texted Sojin, "Where are you? The briefing's already started." Her phone buzzed with a reply. "I diverted to a destination a little further out." She frowned, typing back, suspicious. "Further? Where are you talking about?" The reply came back, cold and simple. Santa Teresa. Her eyes shot open in disbelief. Santa Teresa? You went to the most dangerous rift all by yourself? On stage, the presenter continued, completely unaware. After a 2-day acclimation period, all heroes will be dispatched to their designated rifts. At the entrance of the luxurious Bonheur Hotel, a yellow taxi pulled up. The woman, suitcase in hand, started to get in, but froze when she saw a familiar face. He blocked the car door. "Where do you think you're going?" The mission hasn't officially started yet, she replied without a hint of hesitation, her voice firm. There's somewhere I need to be. He frowned, confused. And where is that exactly? Her eyes flashed with resolve. Santa Teresa. The taxi sped off, leaving him standing there, deep in thought. Santa Teresa. Isn't that the one place the Brazilian Association warned us to stay away from? Near the Santa Teresa Rift, in a bleak, gray forest, faint light filtered down onto the barren ground. The heroes moved in formation, with Dojin, in a white shirt, leading the way. The woman finally spoke up. All right, we're here. The least you could do is tell me why you rushed over like this. Dojin replied coolly. I was waiting for you. Aren't you the one who's late? She frowned. I wouldn't have been late if you'd told me where you were going. Dojin sighed. Okay, fine. Let's just drop it. She continued. Just tell me what you're really after. Without breaking his stride, Dojin gave a one-word answer. Blue Croco. She stared ahead, her voice turning icy. Blue Croco? That's it? He continued. Do I need another reason? After a tense silence, she changed tactics, looking up to ask, Dojin, do you realize I'm 3 years older than you? He didn't even look back. So? She was taken aback and snapped, It's not so. You're supposed to respect your elders. I'm still speaking to you formally, aren't I? Dojin said casually. You can drop the formalities with me, you know. Or do you want to make things awkward? Fine, I'll be extra polite. She grimaced. No, that's not what I meant. A thought flashed through her mind. I can't believe he's talking to Yunju like that. The dark-haired man voices his concern. Are we seriously just diving headfirst into a fissure like this? The brown-haired one reassures him. Don't worry, we've got the hero Juon with us. What's there to be afraid of? The dark-haired man frowns. I know she's strong, but isn't that guy leading the charge a rookie? The long-haired man smirks knowingly. A rookie, you say? He lets out a soft chuckle, resting his weapon on his shoulder with a confident gaze. Not all rookies are created equal. If it's Dojin, he's probably a legendary class rookie. The other two ask in disbelief. Is he really that powerful? While the others were still gossiping. Dojin and the beautiful hero up front were in the middle of their usual bickering. Neither of them looked ready to back down, but their eyes held no real hostility. It was like they had their own special kind of chemistry. The beauty turns to Dojin, her gaze a mix of suspicion and concern. Dojin, don't tell me you came here planning to just wipe out this entire fissure. He glances at her calmly. I'm here for materials. Why would I destroy it for no reason? He adds emphatically. You have to make the most out of every resource. She furrows her brow, repeating the word in her head. Materials? Before they can finish, a piercing screech echoes through the air. The ground trembles as a creature with massive claws plummets from the sky like a thunderbolt. The shield-bearer meets the surprise attack with all his strength. The impact roars, kicking up a cloud of dust as the long-haired man shouts, Snap out of it! Get information! Now! He tightens his grip on his weapon, his sharp eyes scanning the battlefield. But when he gets a clear look at the monster, he growls, Damn it! It's even more terrifying than in the pictures. The two heroes in the back are frozen with fear. The brown-haired one swallows hard, his voice trembling. Wait, isn't this way too dangerous? The other one just stands there, eyes wide, paralyzed by the enemy's threatening aura. A low voice cuts through the panic. Move. Dojin steps forward, striding past them decisively, sword in hand. A memory flashes through his mind. Old Man Chuan had given him the sword, warning him, It's not easy to take a blue Croco's heart with your bare hands. I'll lend you my prized sword. Use it to get your materials. Now, back on the battlefield, Dojin lowers his stance. He grips the hilt tightly and unleashes a single powerful swing. The slash tears through the air with terrifying force, crashing into the ground and carving a swirling trench in the earth. A blinding flash from the blade shoots towards the target, the opening move from the so-called legendary rookie. In an instant, the monster's body, now covered in sword marks, collapses. It's dead before it even hits the ground. The long-haired man's jaw drops, just as I expected. The two heroes behind him turn pale, their eyes bulging. What the hell was that? He's unbelievably strong, they mutter in unison, their voices lost in shock. Before them, on the blood-soaked ground beside the monster's corpse, Dojin stands tall. His sword is still dripping with blood. Later that night, the group sits around a campfire, exhausted but still alert. A voice pipes up, full of awe. Did you see that? Dojin took down that blue monster in a single hit. Another person chimes in. I can't even count how many monsters he's soloed. It's insane. The long-haired man whispers, This is a secret, but he took down the sea beast the same way. The dark-haired man's eyes go wide in disbelief. He caught that monster bird too? He's definitely no ordinary hero. Juon walks over to Dojin. Are you done with the blue monster's heart? Dojin just points to a box. See for yourself. Seeing them, she wonders to herself, what is he planning to use those hearts for? Then, her curiosity piqued. She asks, Hey, What kind of meat are you grilling? It doesn't look like beef. Dojin replies matter-of-factly, it's blue croco meat. It's edible. Want some? She flinches, her face paling as her eyes widen in shock. Shouldn't we have packed enough food? Why on earth would we eat this? Hearing that, Dojin just keeps eating nonchalantly. More for me then. Juon stares in disbelief, but then she picks up her chopsticks to try a piece. Seeing this, Dong Ingu shouts, "Hey Juon, are you seriously going to eat that thing?" Juon stares at the piece of meat fresh off the fire. He said it's edible. She pops it in her mouth and starts chewing. It seems so good that she thinks to herself, this is actually pretty good. Dong Ingu watches her, then turns to Dojin. Dojin, man, what's your secret? How did you manage to charm Juon? She's super innocent. She's never even had a boyfriend. She's not the type to just give her heart away to some guy. Are you two secretly dating? Is that how you got her to eat monster meat? A thoughtful expression crosses Dojin's face as he murmurs, "Dating?" A memory surfaces. Back in his mid-20s, there was the young lady of the Levandian family, and Lady Mayo of the Count G family. And finally, my last hope in a ruined world, Veronica. Dong Ingu snaps Dojin out of his daze, shouting, "Hey, are you even listening to me?" Dojin replies confidently, "Honey doesn't seek out the bees." Dong Ingu is stunned, then cries out in horror, "Oh my god, that is the cringiest thing I have ever heard in my entire life." The scene shifts to another location, Sao Paulo. Kang Yo holds a glass of wine as his secretary speaks from behind him. "That's the full report. I just don't understand it. The official operation hasn't even been dispatched, yet they've brazenly entered the fissure already." Kang Yo adds, "What's more, Dojin, Juon, and even Jujang Inju's Bidan Hyangu Guild are with him. Are there any profitable monsters near Santarem?" The secretary replies, "Not according to our intel, sir. We inquired with the Brazilian branch, and their response was that the area is extremely dangerous. Everything involving that bastard Dojin is completely unpredictable." Just then, a call comes in on his phone. Kang Yo answers the phone. "Ah, Director Hong, what can I do for you?" The person on the other end replies, "Is that Dojin guy still alive? When are you going to do your job?" Kang Yo frowns. Why the impatience? Did something happen? The voice on the phone grows irritated. "My father must have seen the news about Dojin being S-Rank. He told me to bring him home." "Oh, so the chairman of T Corporation is involved now. Is that why you're so worried?" The man on the other end snaps. "This isn't the time for jokes. What's your plan?" He smiles with chilling confidence. "Dojin will never return from Brazil." Hearing this, the man on the phone sounds pleased. "Now that's an answer I like." Kang Yo adds, "If you understand, then hang up Director Hong." He then turns back to his secretary. "Contact the Takashi Group. Now that I've found a decent partner, I have to make sure they aren't disappointed. Tell him that Dojin walked right into a secluded area on his own, making the job much easier." The scene cuts back to the jungle, where the team is on the move. Dojin leads the way, with a slightly worried Juon beside him. "Are you really going into the forest? They say there are dangerous monsters in there." Dojin turns his head and asks, "What kind of monsters?" Juon breaks into a cold sweat. "The lynx." Dojin repeats, "The lynx, huh? So that thing is here too?" Juon asks curiously. "You know about the lynx?" He answers decisively, "Of course I do." Juon watches him go, a worried look on her face, muttering, "I knew it." Juon holds out a small object to him. "I'm not going to stop you, but wear this." Dojin is surprised. "Huh? What is it?" Juon is holding a small device that looks like an earbud. She looks at him seriously. "They're earplugs. If you get mesmerized by the lynx's cry, your mind will be paralyzed. You said you knew." But Dojin unexpectedly replies, "I don't need them." Juon looks at him, a bit flustered. "What? Hey, you can't underestimate the lynx! The Brazilian Hero Association specifically warned us to be careful of it." After walking for a while longer, night begins to fall. As Juon is still trying to warn Dojin, the red-eyed lynx monster suddenly appears, exuding an overwhelming sense of danger. Seeing the creature, the entire group panics, their faces a mask of fear and shock. Everyone freezes, eyes wide and jaws agape. Immediately, Dong Ingu screams, his voice trembling, "It's the lynx!" Everyone scrambles to cover their ears. The whole party is in a panic, their faces twisted in fear. But Dojin just stands there silently, his expression calm as he stares the lynx down. He shows no sign of fear whatsoever. The lynx lets out a continuous, disorienting cry from above. The team frantically covers their ears, trying to keep their wits. Juon looks up at Dojin, surprised. "Why aren't you covering your ears?" Dojin casually grabs a rock from the ground. He channels his energy into it and immediately whips it forward. The stone rockets towards the beast in the sky. John and Inju can only watch, their eyes wide with shock. A direct hit! The Sky Lynx shrieks in anger and tries to flee, but Dojin's already on the move, his sword drawn as he gives chase. Inju is stunned. What just happened? The screaming. It stopped. The two of them quickly catch up to Dojin, but before them is an entire pack of beasts. They're staring daggers at the humans, their eyes glowing with rage. The two girls immediately get into a defensive stance, but Dojin senses something is off. A sharp pain rings through his head. He explains calmly, "It wasn't the scream. What paralyzes your mind are the Sky Lynx's eyes." He tightens his grip on his sword, closes his eyes for a moment to focus, and then moves. Without another word, Dojin charges forward. He thinks to himself, is this the limit? Dojin swings his blade in a perfect arc, unleashing the Ban family's swordsmanship. First form, Querida Milagro, a miracle born from a single point. He unleashes his power, creating a blazing sphere of fire. The beasts watch nervously as the fireball gathers energy, growing larger and larger. One of his teammates yells out in awe, "What in the world is that technique? It looks insanely dangerous." Dojin's eyes glow with killing intent. He swings his sword, and a torrent of flame erupts, forming a brilliant energy orb in the dark night. The unsuspecting Sky Lynxes touch it, and in the next second, they're met with horrifying heat, incinerating all of them with no chance to escape. The flames are so blindingly bright that the two behind him have to back away quickly. When the light finally fades, the girl stares, completely dumbfounded. Before Dojin lies nothing but scorched earth. The Sky Lynxes were burned to a crisp, the smell of charred flesh hanging in the air. Everyone is too stunned to even speak. John whispers in disbelief, "No way." Amidst the ashes, one lone monster weakly crawls to its feet. Dojin slowly walks towards it, closing the distance to the last Sky Lynx. Instantly, its eyes glow with defiance, trying to fight back. But with a single slash, he cuts it down. The Sky Lynx's head flies off its body as Dojin looks right at it. He scoffs, "Where did this trash even come from? I'll be taking these eyes. They might come in handy." Sometime later, Dojin's team heads into a massive forest. The others look at him with absolute trust now, no questions asked. Because this man is on another level of strong and dependable. And now the people behind him can't help but whisper in awe, "That's insane. Is he even human? I can't believe it." Absolutely terrifying. This is way beyond a human's power level. He might even be stronger than Sabrian Peng Si. I'd say he's on par with Cain Lear. Cain Lear is the world's strongest hero. There's no way. With that, they fall silent and enter the dangerous place. Creatures called undead surface from the swamp below when they sense people approaching. They sneer at the group. Looks like they can't read the room at all. Andits don't even have brains. Just then, they charge, opening their massive mouths to attack Dojin's group. He immediately steps forward and delivers some physical therapy that warps its face. The punch is so powerful it sends the Andet's head flying. Your body can stay, but your head's gotta go. But over here, Dojin remains completely emotionless, his gaze ice cold. Then, his image begins to blur. Like the Flash, Dojin blitzes through them, one after another. Each one meets the same grim fate as the first. Body stays, head goes. He doesn't even hesitate to stomp on their corpses for good measure. Everyone watching is completely stunned. Then, roars of terror echo from the other monsters in the forest, horrified by Dojin's overwhelming power. Dojin is basically carrying the whole team. He's like a human wood chipper. Wherever he goes, monsters disappear. After walking for a bit, John's curiosity gets the better of her. She approaches him to ask about his swordsmanship. "Where did you learn that?" she asks. Dojin looks at her, noticing her interest. He thinks for a moment, then speaks. "What? You want to learn?" Her eyes light up. "Can I?" Dojin thinks to himself. "In this peaceful world, what's the point?" Then he says aloud, "Even if you learned it now, when would you ever use it?" Hearing that, John completely misunderstands and gets pissed. "Don't look down on me," she thinks furiously. She's an S-rank hero, after all. So she snaps back. "At least I could use it once before I die, right? Or do you just not want to teach me?" Dojin just gives her a dead serious look. John glares back, still fuming. Seeing his emotionless face, she crosses her arms and turns away. "Fine. I see how it is. Inju, watching from the back, has had enough of the drama. These two lovebirds," she thinks. Then she cuts in, breaking the tension. "All right, that's enough. Let's go through the rift." The team responds in unison, "Yes, ma'am." With that, they head for the rift to teleport elsewhere. Inju glances back one last time. Thanks to Dojin, there were 0 casualties. Next time she's near this place, she can clear it even faster. As she turns to enter the rift, a loud voice suddenly booms out, "I'm gonna kill you!" Inju immediately recognizes the language, Japanese. The voice sounds absolutely furious. "You dare get in our way?" The voice sounds familiar, so Inju rushes over to see what's happening. There, the two lovebirds stand face to face with Ryoma Takashi, an S-rank hero from the Yakuza and guildmaster of the Empire Guild. He threatens them. I finally get a chance to have some fun with the Fist King, and you have the nerve to get in my way and cause trouble? Get lost before I smash your face in. Dojin isn't the least bit intimidated. This crew is really getting on my nerves. John looks at him, surprised he understood. You speak Japanese? Dojin replies, a little. The original Dojin was the one who learned it. Then Ryoma's killing intent flares up. What are you thinking about, you mutts? Seeing him about to explode, Dojin's teammates quickly try to stop him before things get out of hand. How dare you talk to our guildmaster like that? Bow your head and apologize right now. Do you have any idea who this is? Before they can finish, Dojin cuts them off. I don't care. Get lost. The two men face off, their killing intent radiating in waves. Inju watches quietly from the back. The Empire is Japan's 5th-ranked guild. They're known for being a disorganized bunch of thugs with Yakuza roots. No matter how strong Dojin is, it's better to avoid them. Thinking fast, she steps forward to mediate. Let's all just calm down a bit. But he just sneers. This is no place for a woman to interfere. That remark hits a nerve with Inju. A woman? Seeing the situation getting worse, Ryoma's men pipe up. What are you monkeys babbling about? You dare curse at our guildmaster? You brain-dead losers! Then Inju turns and orders her team, everyone quiet. She seems to have regained her composure. Calmly, she introduces herself. I am Yoon Inju, from the Carnation Guild. It would be best for everyone if we settled this peacefully. Ryoma couldn't care less. Never heard of your guild. He continues his disgusting taunts. What? You need a man? Don't you worry. Your turn is coming. Then, Ryoma grabs John's arm and pulls her towards him. Dojin moves to pull her back, but he gets a hard slap from Ryoma, who yells, Get off! The thug says arrogantly, I've got something to show you. I'm gonna kill you anyway, so just sit tight and behave. Dojin thinks to himself, after putting up with Ryoma's crap this whole time, plus this deliberate provocation, he couldn't hold back any longer. Fine. You asked for it. Dojin sends Ryoma flying with a single punch. The Yakuza thugs are stunned, failing to even catch their boss. Dojin declares, Everyone back off. He threw the first punch, so this is self-defense. This is a one-on-one fight. Let's keep the small fry out of it. Ryoma, back on his feet, shouts, Everyone, stay back. He rips off his shirt, revealing a muscular build and an overwhelming killing aura. John looks at Dojin and silently prays. But not for him. For Ryoma. Please, just only kill half of them. Renji, Daigo, and Saiger are frozen, shocked by what's happening. On the other side, Inju and John watch in silence. They see Dojin move like a lightning bolt towards Takashi. The guy is still on the ground. Without mercy, Dojin stomps his head into the dirt. The blow is so painful, Takashi can't even scream. Dojin follows up with a powerful kick straight to his gut, sending him flying backwards with incredible force. Takashi is stunned, covering his face as he thinks, I can't believe he's this strong. Who is this guy? This is nothing like what I heard. Dojin looks up at him, his eyes completely devoid of warmth, filled only with an ice-cold void. Takashi stares into Dojin's eyes, and his pupils dilate with pure terror. He curses under his breath, Damn it. Takashi couldn't stand it for another second. The guy turned and ran for his life. But in a flash, Dojin appeared right in front of him, cutting off any chance of escape. Dojin glared at him, his voice low and dangerous. Who sent you punks to mess with me? Takashi just stared back, stammering, unable to form a single word. Dojin continued, I have a pretty good idea who it was, but he raised a hand toward the man's head. Takashi was consumed by panic. He begged, Please, just let me go. But Dojin didn't care. He cut him off. You want me to let you go? Never. With one hand, he delivered a devastating blow to the side of Takashi's head. Dojin showed no mercy, finishing him off right then and there. Takashi writhed in agony, but could only take the beating. Everyone watching was stunned, a little terrified by Dojin's ruthless display. After thrashing Takashi, Dojin tossed him to the ground. He glanced down at the man while rubbing his own bicep. Inu whispered in shock, I knew something like this would happen, but I never thought he'd go down in a single blow. Dojin walked over and began stomping on Takashi's head, again and again. Inju anxiously grabbed John's hand. He's going to actually kill him at this rate, she said. You have to stop him. Listening to Inju, John rushed forward and shouted, Dojin, stop! You'll kill him! But it was like Dojin had lost all reason. He shot back without a second thought. I'm taking responsibility for my actions. John didn't waste time arguing. She grabbed Dojin's hand and started pulling him away, nagging, Responsibility? What responsibility? If you were responsible, you wouldn't have caused this mess. I've seen trash like this before. It's better to just deal with them properly. Inju ran to his other side, grabbing his remaining arm. She leaned in close and whispered, Dojin, you don't need to let people like this get to you. Please, just stop. The other person added, They're probably scared out of their minds by now. She looked over at Takashi's crew and shouted a warning. If you don't want to get beaten too, then answer clearly and never bother us again. Renji, Daigo, and Saiger dropped to their knees, begging for their lives. Yes, yes, we understand. Dojin looked down on them with a cold smile. Is kneeling all you can do? Now, start slamming your heads on the ground. Renji, Daigo, and Saiger didn't dare refuse, immediately smashing their foreheads into the pavement. Yes, sir, they chanted. Suddenly, Dojin remembered something. Don't Yakuza usually cut off a finger when they mess up? Hearing that, a new wave of fear washed over them, and they slammed their heads even harder. Please, spare us, Dojin continued. Say, I'm sorry for being a piece of trash, and I'll let it go. Hearing this, Saiger was a completely different person from the tough guy he was moments ago. His voice trembled as he forced the words out. I'm sorry for being a piece of trash. Over on the side, Inu and the others could barely hold back their laughter. Below them, Takashi was fading, his life force nearly gone. Takashi managed to force out one last word. Dojin, Inju, and John heard the sound and turned their heads. Dojin glanced at him and sighed. Brazil, Sao Paulo. Inside an office, Inu held a file. He was studying it intently. Standing opposite him were John and Inu. Inu glanced over them before sinking into deep thought. They want us to believe this story? S-rank hero, Takashi. Beaten so badly he can't recover by a single opponent. Since only Takashi was injured, it's not impossible to believe, but pulling it off is far from simple. I was hoping Korea and Japan would cooperate to handle that rift near the mountain range. But now, that's all down the drain. Inu thought for a moment, then spoke. According to this report, the Brazil Association has no involvement in this matter. This issue will be handled by the Korean and Japanese Hero Associations. You'll receive their decision directly. Inu replied softly. Understood, the man continued. So, have you been to the rift near the mountain? Anything unusual? John thought, unusual? What does he mean? Inu quickly answered, no, nothing strange at all. All right. Inu looked at the file again. Oh, right. Dojin is the name mentioned most in this report. Why isn't he here? Inu hesitated, unsure how to begin. Well, about that. John spoke up first. He said he had a few things to take care of and left. The man raised an eyebrow. A few things? The scene changes to a hospital. Terrified screams echoed through the hospital lobby. It was Takashi. His entire body and face were covered in bandages, leaving him unable to speak, only able to make muffled sounds. Standing by his bed was Dojin. He held a bouquet of flowers. It looked like he was visiting a sick friend, but Dojin's face was a mask of pure killing intent. He looked down at Takashi and growled, "Lie still. I came all this way to see you personally." He took out a small golden orb with a demonic red eye on it. Dojin held it close to Takashi's face. Now, he began, tell me everything you know about this. The orb seemed to be some kind of hypnosis tool. In his hospital bed, Takashi began to speak. Because of this, a lowly person like me has caused trouble for the members of the Korean Guild. After hearing this, Dojin's expression remained unchanged as he turned and walked out of the room. Behind him, Takashi was still under the spell. He muttered over and over, "Di Yakuza, Di Yakuza, just die already." News of the clash between the Korean and Japanese heroes was spreading like wildfire. Takashi was defeated by Dojin. This event has been confirmed. The idea that violence only creates more violence and hatred is causing a fierce public debate over whether to support Dojin. Exclusive. Will the mysterious hero Dojin finally speak out? In his office, Junki was sipping a cup of tea. He spoke to Hong-ki back in the country. Information about Dojin is popping up everywhere. Hong-ki looked at him and replied, "It's truly a remarkable phenomenon. I see his name in the headlines every single day. But, is the information that the Japanese Hero Association stopped their investigation accurate?" Junki picked up a tablet to check. "Takashi's side has already made an official admission," he said. Hong-ki found it unbelievable. That's hard to understand. He's always been the type to use any opportunity to cause trouble. Junki looked up from the screen. "Are you implying Japan is hiding something they can't make public?" Hong-ki asked. "What could it be?" Junki took a sip of tea and answered slowly, "I'm not sure. But I have a feeling that from now on, Dojin will be a key player who will shake up the entire global hero chessboard." The scene shifts to a luxurious Dun hotel. There's only one day left before the rift sealing operation in Brazil begins. International heroes had arrived early to get used to the local conditions, meeting and planning with heroes from many other nations. They discussed joint strategies and specific plans. The night before the mission, a rally was held to boost morale, and the center of attention was, of course, Dojin. In a corner of the party, John and the others were laughing and talking. Over here, Inju was covering her mouth, whispering, "I heard the rumor that Dojin beat Takashi has spread all over the world. Everyone who comes up to me only wants to talk about that. And yet, he doesn't show a hint of arrogance. He's on a completely different level. Compared to someone like him, you and I are just ordinary people, aren't we?" After rambling on, she turned to see John wasn't reacting at all. Inju thought to herself, "She's not even listening to me. What are you staring at with that dazed look on your face? Inju followed John's gaze. It was fixed on Dojin, who was politely talking with some guests. Next to him, a glamorous woman had struck up a close conversation. It was Gloria Tyler, America's S-Class hero and #1 on the World Hero Beauty poll. Annoyed, Inju turned back and playfully slapped John's arm. She stood up and yelled, "This is such a buzzkill! What are we still sitting here for? Get up!" John was surprised by her sudden outburst. Huh? What did I do? While they were talking, something caught Dojin's attention. John was shyly approaching him. Her cheeks flushed red. She couldn't even look him straight in the eye. Her expression made him smile without even realizing it. Seeing John appear, Gloria Tyler seemed to understand something. She turned to leave, but not without a farewell. "It was a pleasure to meet you. Goodbye, Castle." After Gloria Tyler left, John asked Dojin, "Who's Castle?" He slowly took a sip of his wine. "That would be me." She tilted her head, looking at him. "You have an English name too?" Dojin explained softly. "It's the name I used even before I was called Dojin." Hearing that, John's mind started racing. Does that mean he lived abroad before? My previous investigation didn't show anything like that. Why didn't he ever tell me about that name? A figure was watching John and Dojin from a distance. Young Pio's face was grim. That bastard Takashi couldn't even punish a piece of trash like him properly. Looks like I'll have to handle this myself. A voice cut through his thoughts, making him pay attention. But you have to be very careful. Dojin looked John over, as she was still focused on warning him. I know you're a beast, but not everyone fights fair. Takashi's got his crew, and one of them is, well, never mind. But we should at least know who we're dealing with. Dojin's voice was flat, without a trace of concern. Probably just another coward with a big mouth and no power to back it up. Just like Takashi, right? Don't worry. They're not worth our time. Not even a second of it. Yang Pio heard every single word, and a chill ran down his spine. He slowly turned his head, his eyes burning with cold, hidden fury. Dojin's taunt had hit its mark. A smirk played on Dojin's lips. Yang Pio's fists clenched so tight his veins bulged. "You bastard! I swear I'll kill you with my own 2 hands." Night had finally fallen. Inju was looking up at something, hand on her chin, lost in thought. "I've never seen anything like this before." Standing near the Santa Rift, she asked, "Is the entrance always this dark and murky?" Dojin confidently led the way. "What's the problem? We've got 2 S-rank heroes right here. What is there to worry about? Let's just get this sealed. Fast." Inju let out a slow breath. "Yeah, you're right. Nothing to be concerned about." She turned to the team and yelled, "All right, everyone, we're moving in." The team responded as one. Under the dark sky, they filed into the rift, one after another. John turned to Dojin, who stood motionless, a troubled look on his face. She spoke softly. "What's wrong?" Dojin asked Inju. "You can't feel it?" She tilted her head in confusion. "Feel what?" She then turned to Inju. "You don't feel something strange?" Inju scanned the area. "Not a thing. What are you talking about?" Sweat started to form on Dojin's face. His sharp eyes stared straight ahead as he spoke. "The mana concentration is spiking, rapidly." Dojin's group stood watching their surroundings as a light breeze rustled the trees. A phone screen displayed 23.61%. Someone was watching them from the trees. It'll reach 30% soon. Cursed insects. It'd be great if this whole mess just wiped them all out. Deep inside the rift, the team started to feel drained. Their bodies grew heavy, pained. It was suffocating, becoming impossible to breathe. Dojin frowned. The mana here was completely unnatural, even denser than in the forest. John watched Dojin with growing concern. This is the first time I've ever seen him this serious. Suddenly, something grabbed both of their attention at once. There was something truly terrifying in here with them. Through the oppressive darkness, a voice rang out to calm the others. "Everyone, stay calm." Inju looked over her team and reminded them, this might just be a unique characteristic of this rift. "Our bodies feel heavier than usual, so do not let your guard down. John, you protect the formation. You too, on Dojin." She crossed her arms. "Got it." She continued, "We proceed until we discover the reason for this change in mana density." Dojin spoke up. "Understood," Inju emphasized. "Our top priority is closing this rift. Everyone on high alert, move out." They all shouted in unison. "Roger." The team began to split up to complete their missions as they pushed deeper into the rift. The northern region of Brazil. Moose, the largest city in the rift zone, was the target for the French, Korean, and Brazilian teams. Deep in the forest, a group of hunters scrambled chaotically as blood sprayed through the air. A pair of wings with dark, pulsing veins beat the air. A swarm of glowing red eyes descended on the humans. Killer hornets, a deadly, flying-type monster. John gritted her teeth in pain as she watched her allies get overwhelmed. She thought, This is impossible. Killer hornets are supposed to be monsters even C-rank heroes can hunt. One of the hunters leaped high, flailing wildly at the swarm, before he lost his balance and crashed headfirst to the ground. Juon glanced back at the fallen man. Even an A-rank hero was defeated that easily. The aggressive hornets with their blazing red eyes showed no fear toward any opponent. Juon clenched his fist in rage and swung at a hornet. In the end, not only did he miss, he got stung for his trouble. Damn it, you're too tough. A normal one should have exploded into pieces. The hunters panicked and fled for their lives. Some were swarmed by 2 or 3 of the monsters. How many would survive this? The scene shifts as a giant club smashes down right on Inju's position. Vicious black orcs were staring at her, their eyes promising a gruesome death. Dojin, who had just dodged a blow, was struggling to catch his breath. This is strange. Why are these black orcs so powerful? In another area, 2 heroes teamed up to attack the orcs. He landed a direct hit on an orc with his bare hands. The monster's face and body smoked from the impact. Enraged, it raised its weapon to counterattack. A devastating blow was about to land. Juon zipped in, grabbing both heroes and pulling them out of the way just in time. The 2 heroes looked at her with gratitude. Thanks. Juon warned them, don't be so reckless. Then, she shot forward like a lightning bolt, straight toward the orc. The beast was already swinging its weapon, ready to attack at any moment. A flash of purple light enveloped both Juon and the orc. She used her momentum to kick the orc in the back of the neck, stunning it. It whipped its head around, swinging a massive fist at Juon. But she was faster. Before the blow could even connect, she launched herself high into the air. Juon's long, powerful legs came crashing down directly on the orc's skull. While she was attacking, another orc charged her. It raised its blade, letting out a deafening roar. When the orc's blade finally came down, it realized Juon had already dodged, and it had just sliced into its own comrade. The orc was frozen in panic and fury. While it stared at its fallen ally, Juon struck from behind. The kick sent the monster flying so far that the blade slipped from its grasp. The orc's back slammed hard into the ground, blood spilling from its mouth. Dojin and the others watched without blinking, all sharing the exact same thought. Juon is terrifyingly strong. I forgot. That's the power of an S-ranker. Just incredible. The orc let out a furious scream, but it was suddenly silenced by a punch that smashed straight into its face. The blow came from Dojin. Inju thought to herself, this level of difficulty, right at the entrance of the rift. Even with the 2 of them, closing this place won't be easy. The defeated orc lay in a heap on the ground. Juon slowly walked over. What are you looking at? She asked. Dojin stared intently for a moment longer. Do you see that? Like a black ripple right here? Juon repeated, confused. A ripple? Dojin pointed at the orc. You have to focus to see it. Juon leaned in. What is this? Something clicked in Dojin's mind. He had just figured it out. This is the reason they've suddenly gotten stronger. He fell into a grim silence. Why is there dark mana here? The others who heard him stood frozen for a few seconds as the air grew heavy. In the dead of night, the wind rustled the leaves. From the ground itself, a monster made of sludge began to rise up. Ho-sung took a swing, sending the creature's slime flying everywhere. Black, viscous fluid slowly dripped down. The monster crazily chased Ho-sung from behind. Dojin saw the situation and raced in to help. He leaped high into the air, preparing to strike down. Dojin's power crashed down on the monster like a storm, but after the hit, its slimy body just reformed itself. The creature seemed completely unfazed by each and every attack. Ho-sung couldn't believe his eyes. It was impossible. Dojin was just as shocked. They're unbelievably powerful. The monster lunged forward, attacking Ho-sung. He couldn't withstand the blow and was knocked back, struggling just to stay on his feet. The protective armor on his body was now torn to shreds. He yelled to Juon, "These attacks can tear right through our combat gear. This is way too dangerous." The monsters became even more frenzied. They bared their sharp fangs as sticky slime dripped from their mouths. He screamed out, "What the hell is going on here?" Ho-sung was struggling and growing tired. The monster saw its chance and lunged in for the kill. Suddenly, Inju dashed in, her blade slashing through the monster. In another corner, a monster opened its jaws wide, as if it was about to devour Ho-sung whole. Swish! A brilliant slash from Inju's sword flashed through the air. After landing, she had a chilling thought. If this many swamp fiends are this terrifying, then the Velcora will be an absolute nightmare. This rift is just too strange. Or is it something about Brazil? Could this be spreading across the entire world? In the rift zone near Moose, Hein was sprinting desperately at an incredible speed. They're all dead. Even Arvado from Brazil's team, completely wiped out, and David from the French team too, all because of a few Velcora. Back in the battle with the mud monsters, Juon looked back at Dojin, her face full of worry. Dojin calmly used his bare hands to punch out the monster's teeth, one by one. He shook his hand, flicking off the grime. That's right. The Velkera have also been infected with dark mana. We have to be extremely careful. John was stunned. Dark mana. You mean that black aura that was surrounding the black orc? Like the stuff covering these swamp fiends now? Does it make the monsters stronger? Dojin answered softly, yes, that's exactly right. She was still locked in battle with the monsters. Suddenly, his voice cut through the chaos. Think of it as condensed mana, flowing into your body. While fending off a creature, John shot back. Mana? You mean like magic from a video game? The monster dissolved into a pile of goo. John finally got a second to breathe. Her eyes went wide. What are you even talking about? You're telling me mana is actually a real thing? Dojin explained in a low voice. The biggest difference between a hero and a normal person is mana. Just then, a monster roared, mouth wide open. A blast of pure energy shot out of nowhere, completely obliterating the creature. He clenched his fist, a grim thought crossing his mind. A world without the concept of mana. It seems so peaceful, doesn't it? But he knew that peace was about to shatter. Dojin's gaze locked onto another monster. He swung his fist, landing a merciless blow. Dojin hammered it with one punch after another. Then, with a powerful stomp, he crushed it under his boot. The monster burst apart, its slime raining down. It suddenly exploded, the sound echoing through the entire forest. After the intense battle, everyone gasped for air, trying to recover. John walked over to Dojin. Hey, that mana stuff, she started, especially the dark mana. That's what's making these monsters so jacked up, right? He turned to look at her. Yeah. Think of it like giving an athlete a super-powered steroid, John replied softly. Oh, I get it. But how do you know all this, Dojin? He took a deep breath, sweat dripping down his face. The fact you don't know is the strange part. Their path led through a treacherous area crawling with swamp monsters. And according to Dojin, the place where the Velkera appears is the most dangerous of all. They slowed their pace, hanging on Dojin's every word. Suddenly, Inju threw up a hand. Stop. Just like Dojin said. These are Velkera food pods. Out of nowhere, dozens of cocoons appeared, encasing strange creatures. She scanned the area. Everyone, be careful. Does this mean a Velkera is close? Dojin cut her off, his hand glowing with raw power. This is the real trap. We're lucky we found it. Inju's jaw dropped. Are you a mage? Wait, this place is dangerous? You mean these pods? Dojin thrust his hand forward, unleashing a wave of energy. The pods exploded in a flash. He watched the flames roar. The Velkera have been absorbing dark mana. They won't just use these pods as puppets. If we hadn't dealt with this now, we would have been surrounded and killed. All we have to do now is catch the Velkera. As Dojin's power annihilated the remaining pods, everyone just stared at him in stunned silence. Inju just stood there, her mind racing. Asterisk. Even though this is our first time in a situation like this, he seems to know everything. Asterisk, asterisk. The more I watch him, the more I realize he's on a completely different level. Asterisk, asterisk. At first, I just thought he was strong. But this is way beyond human limits. Asterisk. John walked up to Dojin and put a hand on his shoulder. Okay, spill it. Are you like, on your second life or something? John found the question amusing. Asterisk. My second life, huh? Asterisk, he thought. Asterisk, I guess. You could call it that. Asterisk. John turned to Inju. How much further to the rift entrance? She replied. Once we get through this forest, we'll be about halfway there. Dojin wasn't having it. He scoffed. Halfway? He made a shocking declaration. We're sealing this rift. Today, Inju shot back. Maybe times you times can, Dojin. But the rest of the guild is wiped. Most of us were already running on fumes back in the swamp. The team exchanged worried glances. Dojin's eyes swept over the three of them. Dojin let out a breath. Fine. You guys rest up. I'll handle the Velkera and be right back. Before they could even process it, he shot forward like a bolt of lightning. His speed was unreal. In seconds, he completely vanished from sight. Seung-ho couldn't believe his eyes. How is he even? Inju was just as stunned. Asterisk, he still has that much energy left to burn? Asterisk, Dojin tore through the forest at an insane speed. As he ran, his eyes darted left, then right, scanning for something specific, and then he found it, a spider, spinning its silk. He closed in. There you are. Dojin raised his sword, ready to strike. The spider sensed the danger and let out a piercing shriek. Suddenly, its body ballooned, transforming into a giant beast. A massive web shot out from its abdomen. Dojin didn't waste a second, dodging the attack with incredible speed. He landed perfectly. Slash! A brilliant arc of light flashed, and the spider was instantly sliced into pieces, its remains falling lifelessly to the ground. After the battle, he let out a weary breath. Dojin wondered. Asterisk. Is it because I'm absorbing the dark energy with my mana control skill? Asterisk. Asterisk, is that why I can fight this hard and still not feel exhausted? Asterisk. A short while later, he was already back at the camp. John asked Inju, completely floored. Did he really take down the Velkera by himself that fast? It's insane, she agreed. I can hardly believe it either. And he doesn't even look tired. Dojin made the announcement. I can't sense any more monsters in the area, so stop worrying and get some rest. Exhausted, everyone agreed. Yeah, he sat down by the campfire. Inju was patching up Seung-ho's wounds. Everyone was busy with their own tasks, finally getting a moment to rest. The meat roasting over the fire slowly started to sizzle. It looked juicy and delicious. Dojin watched it carefully, making sure it didn't burn. John walked over and pointed at a skewer. Hey, can I have a piece of that? He handed one over to her. John beamed. Thanks a lot. From a few feet away, Seung-ho watched them. Why are you suddenly eating that stuff? John just shrugged, not caring. Who knows? Maybe this is the secret to his insane strength. His curiosity got the better of him. Asterisk. Should I give it a try? Does it actually work? Asterisk. John scooted over. Come on, sit down. What have you got to lose by trying? He took a big, satisfying bite of the meat. Dojin watched them scarf it down. He smirked to himself. Asterisk. That meat won't do much more than fill their stomachs. Asterisk. Asterisk. But I can't hate guys like you, who are so desperate to get stronger. Asterisk. Asterisk. Consider this a little gift from me. Asterisk. Dojin reached out his hand, discreetly transferring a bit of his energy to Seung-ho and John. She immediately turned to Seung-ho, excited. Whoa, I ate the meat and I feel like my body's overflowing with power. He nodded in agreement. Yeah, I feel it too. Dojin watched them, a satisfied smile on his face. Inju held up the map, pointing to a small vortex symbol. If we keep going straight from here, we'll reach the core of the rift. But everyone's exhausted. We should fall back and hit it tomorrow. Dojin said we have to seal it today, John reminded her. But we still need a solid plan to approach it, right? Inju agreed, closing her eyes in frustration. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tired, she admitted. And those monsters are way stronger because of that dark energy. He stared at the map, lost in thought. Asterisk. The original plan was to seal this place as late as possible so I could farm more materials. Asterisk. Asterisk. Just like the blue crocodile hearts and other materials only found in Brazil. Asterisk. Asterisk. I need to gather as many of this area's rare materials as I can. Asterisk. Asterisk. But this dark energy changes everything. Asterisk. Asterisk. Unexpected variables are never a good sign, and this dark energy feels dangerous. Asterisk. Dojin took out his pouch. Inside was a huge stash of red stones. He instructed them, take these back to the hotel first. Then he slung the pouch over his shoulder and started to leave. Dojin glanced back with a smile. I'm going to seal the rift. I'll catch up with you guys soon. A slimy monstrosity appeared, its massive jaw lined with fangs. It let out a deafening roar. Without a trace of fear, Dojin charged straight for it. Behind him, more monsters began to surface from the ground. They opened their maws, ready to devour him whole. Dojin's eyes narrowed. He leaped into the air, cutting a long gash through them. Then, he plunged his hand deep inside the creature's slime. He pulled out a brilliant red ruby. Back with the group, Inju asked John with a worried look. You think Dojin will be okay? She sighed. I mean, the guy took off like a bullet right after saying goodbye. Inju stared in the direction Dojin had gone. Yeah, I saw. John voiced her thoughts out loud. He looked like he still had plenty of energy to spare. She linked arms with John, teasing. But why the long face? You worried about him? She closed her eyes, trying to hide her true feelings. As if, that'll never happen. She frowned, thinking to herself. Asterisk. It's just, I'm a little embarrassed. Asterisk, asterisk. We're both supposed to be S-ranks, but the gap between us is just massive. Asterisk. You have to wonder if there's any other S-rank in the world as strong as him. After dealing with the mud monster, Dojin was now taking on a horde of black orcs. He launched himself into the air, bringing his sword down in a devastating arc that split an orc's skull right down the middle. Next, he sliced horizontally across another's eyes. Dojin delivered a relentless barrage of strikes to their heads. The black orcs roared in fury, raising their crude weapons. Dojin just let out a soft breath as their cleavers smashed down, cracking the very earth. He raised a hand, and power blazed forth like a brilliant flame, a wave of energy that shot towards the monster horde. The orcs were blown to pieces. A massive explosion echoed as the monsters fell one by one, smoke billowing from their charred bodies. The night sky was filled with stars, glittering like the Milky Way. Down below, Dojin clutched a ruby tightly in his hand. The next morning, the group set out again. With heavy packs on their backs, they dragged their exhausted bodies onward. The team moved forward in a single-file line. Suddenly, something lunged at them. A swift blade intercepted it, sending blood flying. It was Dojin's sword. His arm was still raised high, showing not a hint of fear. Dojin's sharp gaze swept the area before he reached in and pulled out a fresh red heart, then tossed it into a glass jar for preservation. He sealed the jar, storing his battle trophy. On the ground lay the corpse of the monster he'd just slain. He rummaged through the body and pulled out 2 rubies, but he didn't stop there. The pile of gems kept growing. After a while, the rubies formed a small mountain. He commented, "These things drop a ton of loot. I think we've made a decent haul." Dojin shouldered his pack once more. Using his sword as a support, he grabbed the strap and forged ahead down the narrow path. Meanwhile, at the Brazil Hero Association headquarters, staff in the control room noticed something unusual on their monitors. A red dot pulsing with some kind of signal had appeared on the map in the Santarem region. After a moment, the red dot vanished. The monitoring team was baffled, but ultimately, they breathed a collective sigh of relief. Everyone celebrated. "It's gone! The rift has been closed!" Someone wondered which team was dispatched to the Santarem area. One of them thought to himself, a team from Korea. The Silk Flower Guild? Jenny chimed in. "That's right. That guild contacted us 10 minutes ago, reporting that they were on their way back." Doohook looked at her. 10 minutes ago? Yeah. They said they had just left the rift at that time. As Jenny continued, a confused Doohook asked, "Wait, what happened?" 10 minutes earlier, the 2-headed beast, Dojin sized it up and drew his sword. It was a creature that evolved rapidly using dark mana. The beast raised its massive foot and brought it crashing down. The impact sent violent tremors through the entire area. There's a small vortex under its foot, like a portal. That has to be the gate's core. Time to end this quickly. Dojin raised his sword, preparing to face the monster head-on. It charged toward him with incredible speed. Dojin's power erupted like a blazing inferno. The 2-headed beast spun like a cyclone to counter his energy. His pupils widened. 10,000 forms sword art. Second form. The scene opens with a fiery, orange-gold streak of light hurtling forward. Dojin, spinning like a tornado himself, rushed to meet it, his eyes devoid of any warmth. He raised his sword, ready to strike. Limitless sword style. Second stance. Gamri's Grimoire. Activate. Magic now flowed along the path of his blade. The 2-headed beast bared its sharp fangs. It let out a mighty roar just as Dojin's power slammed into it. It entered a state of absolute fury. Muscles like solid rock bulged beneath its dark hide, ready to explode with power. Finally, it let out a piercing shriek of agony. Dojin smirked. "Surprised, aren't you? This is just the beginning." He raised his sword again and rushed toward the beast. Slash! A single strike tore across its body, sending blood everywhere. Its eyes glowed crimson with rage. It swung a massive arm to counterattack, but Dojin leaped high into the air to evade. He looked down at it and declared, "Now, it's my turn." Dojin's sword multiplied into countless copies, each one shrouded in blazing energy. A relentless storm of slashes rained down on the 2-headed monster. The power was so immense that a single stray hit instantly cleaved an ancient tree in 2. The resulting explosion shook the entire corner of the forest. The beast's eyes went wide and white. It crouched, then launched itself high into the air, its arms ready to deliver a crushing blow to Dojin. Without a word, Dojin's sword flashed, severing one of its legs. The monster froze for a moment, stunned by the pain. Dojin pressed his attack, leaping high for the finishing blow. Slash! The 2-headed beast was sliced in half. Sheathing his sword, Dojin let out a tired sigh. A magical vortex appeared, seemingly growing larger by the second. He observed it, thinking, even this close to the core, the concentration of dark mana isn't weakening at all. If the core isn't the source, could this mana be flowing in from the outside? Does that mean someone is behind this? To flood a rift with this much dark mana, only a lord or an ancient archmage would be capable of it. But if a being like that were truly here, most of life on Earth would have already turned to ash. I can't draw a clear conclusion just yet. Either way, if the source is external, just closing the rift won't solve the real problem. Dojin clenched his fist, braced himself, and then slammed it directly into the center of the vortex. A small crack appeared in the vortex's center. Slowly, it spread outwards until the whole thing shattered. Dojin watched its destruction. I need to investigate the Brazil Hero Association headquarters. Ingun sat at his desk reading a report, his hands trembling. Across from him stood Chun Kang, bracing for the inevitable storm of fury. Ingun's face darkened. Regardless of the mana's origin or the investigation, this entire report sounds completely unbelievable. Chun Kang muttered softly, "Ah, yes, sir." Ingun's face was tense. There are rifts that require a 3-nation alliance just to close them, and even then, only a single S-rank hero makes it out alive. And yet, another team from Korea not only closes a rift, but returns with every single member alive. Chun Kang reported what he knew. We're receiving a flood of urgent reports from other rift zones, but most of them are failures and forced retreats. I'll gather all the information and send a detailed report as soon as possible. Ingun leaned on his desk, deep in thought. Each of those rifts had at least one S-rank hero in charge, and they still failed this badly? So the only successful team was the Korean one, led by the hero Dojin. A cold sweat trickled down Chun Kang's back. Calling them the Korean team isn't entirely accurate. Ingun cut him off. What do you mean? He shuffled through the documents. Did we miss something? Didn't the Korean team dispatched to Santarem close that rift? Chun Kang's next words made Ingun freeze. The rift was closed, times after times they had already left. He slammed the report on the desk, his face a mask of disbelief. Then who closed it? And where is the hero Juon right now? Chun Kang informed him. She'll be at headquarters shortly to report on the matter. Ingun lost his composure completely. He shot up, slammed his fists on the desk, and roared, "Get her in here immediately." From the moment Hunzu and Dung Inju's team left the rift, it took them about an hour to reach the headquarters. With the first crack sealed, Dojin was already moving toward the second. His gaze fell upon the water's surface. The entrance was submerged. Adjusting the strap on his pack, he pushed forward. All right, time to get to work. Ingun's face was stone cold as he asked, "And you expect me to believe a story like that?" Juon answered with total confidence. "If we're talking about times him asterisk, then yes." He shot back in disbelief. "You mean the hero Dojin sealed that crack all by himself?" "It seems so," Juon replied. At those words, Ingun fell completely silent. A heavy tension filled the air before he finally made his decision. "This is top secret, but in the other zones, S-rank heroes are falling one by one." Juon added, "If it wasn't for Dojin, I would have been one of them." Ingun looked down, letting out a sharp sigh. Honestly, that's just impossible to believe. Monsters are getting stronger from this energy called dark mana. Strong enough to overwhelm even S-rank heroes. And you're saying Dojin is on a level beyond all that? He went on. However, reports just came in that a few cracks in the southern region were sealed. Juon was skeptical. Maybe the dark mana hasn't appeared there yet? You shouldn't get complacent, sir. The danger level is on a whole different scale now. Inun's response was grim, just as predicted. He picked up his phone, checking the alert. You said the color of the rift had changed, right? Ron asked. Right now, that's the only way we have to identify them. Without a second's delay, Inun made a call to check every single rift gate in Brazil's territory. Now, move it. Her mission accomplished, she slipped away quietly. As she walked, she took the chance to handle some personal business. Jugon pulled out his phone and made a call. Chairman Nawang answered on the other end. Yes? John spoke up. That's what they call dark mana. Has anything happened in the Korean sector yet? Nawang replied. There haven't been any reports like that yet. Keep a close watch on the situation. Hearing this, Dojin thought to himself. Even for an S-rank, facing a horde of monsters juiced up on dark mana would be next to impossible. Meanwhile, Nawang had a dreadful thought. If a boss monster absorbed that power, the consequences would be catastrophic. With steel in their eyes, the two resolved to prepare for the worst. The scene shifts to Dojin, crossing streams, rivers, lakes, and islands. Rifts like this usually have their core deep underwater. But since humans can't breathe underwater, the number of heroes who can use their full power in this environment is extremely low. Ivan Rupert, New Zealand's national hero, an S-rank hero who specializes in underwater combat. Nations all over the world pay him top dollar to handle these submerged rifts. It's all thanks to the special ability he awakened, the power to breathe underwater. Dojin looked up with a smirk. I can feel it. The dark mana in the water is so much thicker here. And with that, he shot down into the depths. Let's begin. Dojin descended deeper and deeper into the current. He spotted a pitch-black vortex below. So dark. It must be the dark mana. Dojin just kept diving, getting closer to the bottom. First, I need to control my buoyancy. After wrapping himself in energy to conserve stamina, Dojin moved to the next step. Next up, resistance. Another layer of power enveloped him, and Dojin's feet touched the ground. Something flickered into view, catching Dojin's eye. A massive monster swam towards him, its jaws wide open to swallow him whole. Startled, he could only watch as it wrapped itself around him. Dojin observed it calmly. An Arachon? Looks like the dark mana's got it all juiced up. With that thought, Dojin clenched his fist. Asterisk. A wave of power erupted, blasting the Arachon away. The force of it tore the creature to shreds. Dojin didn't forget to add a taunt. Filthy. After the Arachon was obliterated, other fish, smelling a fresh meal, swarmed in. Every single one of them took a mouthful of the kill. Dojin silently watched them devour the prize he'd just destroyed. He thought to himself, if Ivan Rupert saw this, he'd be absolutely terrified. He He then released more power, ignoring the water's buoyancy, moving his body with complete freedom. His 2 feet stood as firm as they would on land. The punches he threw were just as fast as if he were on the surface. By now, the surrounding monsters had caught the scent of food and gathered in a massive swarm. He stood motionless in the middle of the horde. Dojin scanned his surroundings. What a pain. Wiping all these guys out is going to be exhausting. With that, Dojin charged forward again. He swam at incredible speed, but suddenly stopped short. Dojin saw a light in front of him. He approached it, wondering, what is that thing? Looking closer, Dojin realized what he'd found in this place. In his past world, all the legendary figures had one thing in common. Before they became famous, they hunted these. How could he possibly pass up a golden opportunity like this? The monster saw him appear and immediately attacked. A vortex materialized out of nowhere as it struck left and then whipped to the right. Dojin realized this thing had no natural predators. No matter the opponent, it created a pocket dimension to swallow them whole. The vortex grew larger and larger, pulling everything nearby into its grasp. Dojin struggled against the pull, trying to stay alive, gritting his teeth with a grunt. Then, Dojin's power flared to life, seemingly holding the vortex at bay. The monster stared at Dojin in utter shock, while he remained focused, unleashing his energy. Dojin used his power to surround it. Just killing it would be easy, but that wouldn't let him claim the pocket dimension. He had to suppress it with pure mana. Only then would this space become his. A massive surge of power overwhelmed the vortex. The surrounding fish couldn't handle the pressure and began to dissolve. Dojin's energy sent them straight to the afterlife. Glancing at the monster before him, Dojin grew worried. At this rate, he was going to lose. He was forced to think of another plan. He aimed both arms forward, pouring in more mana, needing to draw even more dark mana from the abyss. Dojin's arms desperately pulled in as much dark mana as they could. Suddenly, blood trickled from his nose. Dojin felt himself reaching his limit. Asterisk, cough, asterisk, is this too much for my current body? The dark mana began to suffocate Dojin's faint light, but he refused to give up. All right. Time to bet it all on this one. The scene cuts to the surface, where the once peaceful stream erupts from the shockwave of Dojin's power. The monster thrashed in the air, with Dojin right behind it. He had successfully absorbed the pocket dimension into his hand. Dojin was stunned with joy. I did it! The monster's pocket dimension flew into the air, glaring at the one who stole it. Then, with a loud splash, it plunged back into the water. The raging current eventually calmed, returning peace to the stream. The water flowed gently, with no further disturbance. The scene changes to high mountains over a green field. Birds stared down at Dojin, who was lying unconscious and soaking wet. He let out a sudden sneeze, startling them all into flight. Watching the birds scatter, Dojin groggily opened his eyes. He turned to see his weapon and bag, also completely drenched. Ah, I must have passed out. He sat up and stared at his hand. Dojin stretched his fingers, testing his current strength. His mana had increased significantly. It was definitely a worthy reward. Then Dojin realized there was more. He activated the item he'd obtained from the pocket dimension. Smirking, he gathered his luggage, compacted it, and tossed it all inside the new space. After that, Dojin stretched out, feeling refreshed. He was completely satisfied, saying, "There's nothing left for me to do in this rift. I should seal it up and head back to the dorms." Early the next morning, at the Korean Hero Association, Honkai went to report to Junki. Although there's been no official announcement, the news about the heroes' deaths is confirmed. Hearing this, he sighed deeply and replied, "We've lost some precious talent." He then shared a piece of information he'd received. "I hear this only happened in a few areas with those special rifts." Speaking of which, Junki praised someone. Hero Dojin was able to seal places like that? He's even more talented than I thought. Honkai, however, wasn't happy. In fact, he looked even more worried. The association was already under a microscope because of the Ryoma Takashi incident. "I'm afraid this is going to create an even bigger media storm." On the contrary, he saw it as a good thing. Back in England, Hero Hion Juon got a lot of attention. To be honest, I'm happy that a hero from our country is the talk of the town for his achievements. At this point, he got to the main question. So, what's the status of the rifts in our country? We still haven't detected any abnormalities like the ones in Brazil. I'm guessing this might just be a sudden, localized event that can be resolved. Junki disagreed with that conclusion and corrected him sternly. Don't jump to conclusions so hastily. Do not let your guard down monitoring those rifts for even a single moment. Honkai didn't dare object. Yes, sir. A moment later, he suddenly said, I'm a little worried about Hero Dojin. He didn't understand what he meant and quickly asked, "What do you mean by that?" Junki shared the information bluntly. Chairman Daniel Lopez of Brazil is famous for being incredibly cheap. He'll definitely try to squeeze every last drop of ability out of Dojin while he's there. He immediately protested, "No way." He was confused by Honkai's reaction and asked blankly, "What do you mean? No way, he quickly explained. I think Chairman Lopez is the one who's going to get cleaned out. By Hero Dojin. John could only shout a bewildered, huh? Before a heavy silence fell between them. After a tense moment, the chairman forced a loud laugh to break the awkward air, saying, yeah, that sounds about right. But Dojin wasn't some pushover. The second Chairman Lopez heard the proposal, he absolutely erupted in a furious rage. He glared at Dojin, his voice sharp with accusation. Aren't your demands a little too excessive? But Dojin just shrugged, completely unfazed. Excessive, you say? Realizing there was no room for negotiation, Dojin stood to leave. Then I have nothing more to say. I'm out. Seeing him walk away, Chairman Lopez desperately shouted, wait, think about the safety of Brazil. Isn't that the responsibility of an S-rank hero? Dojin's reply was like ice. Responsibility? I already sealed 2 special grade rifts by myself. What other responsibility do I possibly have? Go preach that to the Brazilian heroes who haven't fulfilled their duties. His words left the chairman utterly speechless, and Dojin didn't hesitate to twist the knife. Don't get it twisted. Brazil's safety has nothing to do with me. Besides, if a rift in Korea mutated like this, would you really send your heroes to help us? Dojin's logic was flawless. The chairman was completely flustered, stammering. Well, that is. Seeing his boss cornered, his aide ran quickly interjected. Hunter Dojin, the situation is dire. All rift areas within a 500-kilometer radius of Santarem are completely inaccessible. The chairman immediately latched on. That's right. The zones where this happened are already a lost cause. Overwhelmed by the crisis, Lopez completely lost his cool and started yelling. If this kind of mutation happens again, Brazil will face total annihilation. At that moment, Dojin, John, and Inju all shared a worried look. A few moments later, she stepped forward, voicing all of their thoughts. Mr. Chairman, if that's true, then the answer you're looking for is much simpler. He gave her a confused look, and she simply smiled. Please, just accept Hunter Dojin's demands. Compared to the very survival of Brazil, his price isn't that outrageous, is it? Lopez was torn, but with no other choice, he finally caved. I agree, he stammered. From now on, for every rift you successfully close, I will pay you $50 million. Dojin let out a bitter laugh. Would have been nice if you'd just done that from the start. But even with his promise, Dojin wasn't satisfied. He laid out another condition. First, for the 2 rift locations I've already closed, transfer $100 million up front. Now, John worried about his reputation, thinking to herself, if this gets out, he'll definitely be branded a money grubber. But she knew the proud Brazilian Association would never let that information leak. With that thought, she glanced toward Dojin. Coincidentally, he was already looking right at her, and their eyes met. Suddenly, a new thought crossed John's mind. Besides, he's not the kind of person who cares about stuff like that anyway. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone for him. Just then, Inju saw John's sudden smile with a puzzled expression. All the while, Dojin's gaze remained fixed on her. A few seconds later, he closed his eyes, whispering to himself, Dojin, this money is enough to buy the safest house you've always craved. I've kept my promise. Are you satisfied now? Although the Brazilian government was rattled by Dojin's demands, they had no other options left and were forced to accept. At the same time, they required Dojin to first sign a strict non-disclosure agreement. Because of this, Dojin's public image remained spotless. The scene shifts. Yeo is drowning his self-pity in booze. At the same time, Hion is hospitalized, his body covered in wounds. The scene changes again. The bodies of those lost in the last battle are loaded onto a plane to be sent home. The faces of those present to see them off are etched with unmistakable grief. Dojin is also there, paying his respects to the heroes who fought to the bitter end. He bows his head in a heartfelt farewell. The scene shifts to a hotel in Brazil. After hearing Dojin's next plan, Inju asked in a shocked tone, You're going to come with us to the next rift? He was quiet, lost in thought, which only confused her more. Huh, you don't seem very excited about it. Dojin finally told her the truth. I'm just weighing which option is more profitable. Inju's curiosity was piqued. Profitable? While I'm sealing 1 rift, Dojin began explaining, your guild will move to the entrance of the next one. Hearing this, she seriously considered his proposal. Inju immediately figured out what Dojin was planning. And then we'll close that rift together? A smirk appeared on his face. You're a smart one. As the 2 of them were talking, everyone else turned to look. Wanting to get the details straight, she asked him directly. So while we're cleaning up the rift that was just closed, you're going to close another one? Dojin told Inju the truth. Exactly. By doing this, we can clear up to 3 locations a day. I'll even share my portion of the reward money from the rift we cooperate on. The offer sent a shockwave through the group as they all gasped. Dojin then leaned in and whispered into John's ear. Before I get to that rift, don't overdo it. Just focus on protecting the guild members. His words left her so shocked she couldn't even speak. Seeing her reaction, he teased her. You can handle that, right? You're S-rank after all. She blushed and stammered. Why, yes. At the next table, Ayung whispered to Minun, Hey, what do you think they were whispering about? Her friend smiled, making a happy guess. They're probably just encouraging each other. Look at Hunter John's face. It's bright red. I bet they're really dating. A few seconds later, Dojin's voice cut through the room. We move out as soon as we're done eating. Immediately, the entire team shouted in unison, Yes, Captain! The scene shifts to a nearby forest, where he has arrived according to his plan. And when he heard the blood-curdling roar, Dojin immediately turned to look. A second later, he saw a monster several times larger than a normal person. Dojin immediately got into a battle-ready stance. A Cyclops type, huh? All right, let's see what you've got. The sudden attack seemed to both confuse and surprise the beast. With his fighting spirit burning, Dojin shouted, Let's take them down and earn some pocket money. 1 second the forest was peaceful. The next, that peace was shattered, sending birds flying in a chaotic frenzy. Dojin was now in a heated battle with the Cyclops. At this point, it had completely figured out his attack patterns. Even so, the monster couldn't hide its irritation from the wound on its shoulder. Dojin wasn't winning, so he shouted, You're tough as nails, huh? Let's try out a new skill then. Before making his move, he let out a loud laugh to taunt it. The taunt enraged the Cyclops, which charged forward to attack. Dojin dodged nimbly. Taking advantage of the opening, Dojin landed a powerful kick that made the Cyclops cough up blood and stagger back. It roared in fury. The Cyclops' eyes were filled with murderous intent. Its anger caused its body to turn red and steam. Seeing this, Dojin's expression grew tense. Before becoming another's prey, he decided to act first. Just like that, a spatial vortex slowly began to swallow the Cyclops' arm. Since this was the first time it had ever encountered a situation like this, it couldn't help but panic. At the same time, Dojin took advantage of the Cyclops' distraction. He created another spatial vortex above the enemy's head, and then its arm suddenly appeared from it, punching itself right in the head. Even so, Dojin still couldn't feel at ease. Its performance in actual combat is not that high, and the mana consumption is insane. The scene shifts to the command room, where everyone is watching the rift in the southern Manaus area that has been dealt with. Chairman Lopez is also there, commanding everyone. At this time, he was deep in thought, cleaning up a rift in just 8 hours. A few seconds later, Chairman Lopez ordered Brian to pay them immediately. He answered instantly, Yes, sir. Following his order, Brian quickly transferred $50 million to John. He was stressing about their nearly depleted budget and rushed back to warn Lopez. At this rate, their spending was about to skyrocket into the billions. Sir, hearing this, the chairman flatly declared he'd never let that punk walk away with that kind of cash. Brian was stunned. He'd never heard Lopez be so direct. A second later, Brian dared to ask, So, are you suggesting we delay his payment? The chairman exploded at him. You fool! What happens if Dojin just walks away from the job? Brian pressed on. Then what's your master plan? Lopez immediately gave the order. Summon every international S-rank hunter from the resort. They would form a special task force to compete with Dojin. The reward for this team is $10 million. We need to pump them full of cash and confidence, and force them to close the rifts even faster than Dojin. Brian quickly followed the order, replying, Yes, sir. Lopez, completely confident in his scheme, thought to himself, All right, let the games begin. It's Dojin versus the International Heroes Alliance. Let's see who can clear more gates. Elsewhere, the chairman quickly sent a message to Yang Pio. When the guy got the text, he celebrated Chairman Lopez, so he finally went with this plan after all, huh? Yi Jun, standing nearby, checked the news online and reported to Yang Pio. Rumors about the S-rank hunters dying are spreading like wildfire, causing total chaos. At the same time, the guy mentioned the fee. Split among everyone, $10 million isn't much, but the loot from the Rift's legacy items would be way more lucrative, so it was a good deal. But we're all being grouped into one team, deployed all at once? That was the directive from above. Being on the same team as that jerk Dojin would be infuriating. He quickly checked the list and then replied with a shocked expression. Dojin's name was nowhere on the list. Yang Pio couldn't believe it and yelled, What? Let me see that. Only after seeing it with his own eyes did he accept it as truth. It's real. An and Inju are missing from the list too. What the hell is going on? Meanwhile, Dojin finally received his $50 million payment from Chairman Lopez. Just then, she asked if the association had wired his payment yet. He told her the truth. Seizing the moment, she teased Dojin. Your fee must be so insane that they had to scramble a whole foreign legion just to compete. Hearing that, he reluctantly replied, Yeah. After thinking it through, Dojin quickly added, The association isn't stupid. Why would they let me take all the prize money? Inju figured he had a point and hesitated. Well, Dojin immediately caught her drift and asked, "What's up?" John just smiled brightly and said, "You really are an open book, Dojin. Isn't it obvious the association is playing dirty behind our backs?" Hearing her words, a thought sparked in Dojin's mind. Because I've already earned the amount we originally agreed on. From now on, money is no longer my priority. There are more urgent things to take care of. Just as the Brazil Association calculated, the race between the two factions was decided almost instantly. Back at Chairman Lopez's command center, the entire staff was working at full capacity, reporting on the competition between Dojin's team and the international squad. As the results poured in, Brian reported nonstop, 15-0. The rift in Sector A35 has been cleared. Credit to Dojin and his guild. 17-10. The rift in Sector C12 has been sealed by the Hero Alliance team. 1 S-rank and 5 A-ranks have minor injuries, but 2 A-ranks are seriously wounded. Get a medical team over there now. 2150. Rift A37 has been closed. The one responsible was Dojin. He handled it all by himself. Dojin was fighting with the spirit of a warrior forged in steel, and just like that, a few exhausting days flew by. After working non-stop, everyone had dark circles under their eyes. William then casually offered Ada a can of coffee. "Your dark circles are down to your chin." He held out his hand and said, "I tried to get a nap in earlier, but it didn't help at all." He sighed and replied, "This is just how things are right now." Even though he wasn't in the command room, Dojin knew exactly what was happening there. He thought to himself, the rifts shrouded in dark magic are being dealt with easily. But on the other hand, the normal rifts are being completely ignored. Those locations were being monitored 24/7 by agents using advanced sensors and equipment. They were on high alert every single day, never knowing when disaster might strike. For now, William's coffee gave Ada enough of a jolt to continue her observation duty. At that moment, a rift was still active on the screen, but a second later, it completely vanished from the radar display. William and Ada stared in utter disbelief. A few moments later, Ada couldn't contain her emotions and shouted with joy. In the end, they had to admit it. Dojin and the other heroes had successfully closed every single gate. The entire command center erupted in cheers. "The rift in Sector B41 is completely sealed. It's finally over," they cried, tears of joy, their days of relentless hard work finally paying off. Brian immediately ran to report to his boss. He burst through the door, shouting, "Mr. Chairman, we've neutralized all rifts within a 500-kilometer radius of Santarem." The chairman let out a sigh of relief. "So the immediate crisis is over, then?" Brian agreed with Lopez. "That's right. Every rift containing dark magic has been sealed." Overjoyed, the chairman began to praise everyone. "I see. You all worked incredibly hard." As Brian turned to leave, Lopez suddenly stopped him, leaving him confused. "Hold on a second. There are still a few rifts left, but taking a one-day break won't kill anyone." Brian immediately shot back. "What do you mean by that, sir?" Lopez laid out his plan. "We're throwing a party to show our gratitude for the hunters and agents' hard work." True to his word, he hosted a massive celebration for everyone. All the staff were in attendance. Lopez was so generous he even hired a live band for entertainment. And of course, Dojin's crew was also invited. As soon as they arrived, they went to greet the chairman. John spoke first. "Mr. Chairman, we came to say our goodbyes." Lopez stared blankly. "Goodbye?" Inju then chimed in. "Our team is preparing to return home." "Return home?" He was totally caught off guard by their plan and asked, "Why so suddenly?" Noticing Dojin's silence, Lopez stared him down. But Dojin simply avoided his gaze. Feeling the pressure, Lopez spoke urgently. "There are still tons of areas with rifts. You should at least finish this entire campaign before you go." Dojin finally decided to speak. "Our original agreement was that our team would only handle the Santarem region. The job is done, so we're leaving." His words were perfectly in line with their contract, leaving the chairman speechless, but Lopez was forced to humble himself before Dojin. "Now, hold on. Let's not be so hasty. How about this? At the very least, could Hero Dojin stay behind? At the very least?" His attitude made Inju feel like she was unimportant, and she thought, he's obviously only interested in Dojin. So she deliberately asked him, "What do you think?" He remained silent. Lopez threw an arm around his shoulder and said with a laugh, "Hey, this isn't the place to talk. I'd like to have a private word with you." Dojin went with him. John turned to Inju. "Do you think Dojin will stay? He's already made enough money, plus he gathered a ton of high-grade materials like the alpha crocodile hearts." "He's probably leaving," Inju replied, then teased her. "You little fool! You just can't bear to be apart from him, can you?" John immediately shot back. "No way! That's not it! You're talking nonsense." The two of them found a quiet corner to chat. Seeing Dojin suddenly turn away, she made her guess. "Looks like he's decided to leave. That's great, isn't it?" John just replied, "I don't know. Noticing Dojin talking to a girl, Inju said in shock, "That's Gloria Tyler. Quick, let's go see what they're talking about." John disagreed. "Why would we go over there?" She insisted on dragging her along to see if they were on some kind of secret date. John tried to run off, saying, "A secret date? In the middle of this crowd?" Inju grabbed her arm and said, "Don't be so dense. With a bombshell like her standing right there, you think he's paying attention to anything else? If you don't want to lose him, you better make a move." Just then, she heard Gloria's voice drift over. "You should consider it carefully. Personally, I think this is a fantastic opportunity for you." Dojin just lowered his head, not saying a word. His silence only made John's imagination run wild. An opportunity? What on earth is she talking about? Could it be some kind of indecent proposal, like asking him to live with her? Seeing Dojin start to leave, Gloria Tyler quickly added, "I'll be waiting for your answer. Contact me anytime." Cornered, he reluctantly replied, "I'll think about it." John watched the two of them, admitting to herself, "She's gorgeous, but he seems way too calm. Wait, is he impotent or something? No, what kind of crazy thought is that?" Suddenly, Dojin turned back and said, "Since we're here, could I ask you for a favor?" She agreed with a bright smile. "Of course, anything," he casually said. "The Golden Market is coming up, and I'd like to check it out. Could you get me an invitation?" John's mind started racing again. The Golden Market? Isn't that the world-famous auction held every year in Las Vegas? Why would Dojin want to go there? Gloria Tyler didn't hesitate, smiling as she replied, "Of course I can. But I have one condition. A week before the market opens, you have to come to my house." Her words made John want to scream out loud from the sheer shock of it all. John was convinced she had bad intentions, her eyes darting between them as she whispered to herself, "What's he going to do?" John saw Gloria's triumphant smirk, then looked at Dojin's thoughtful expression, and her heart filled with dread. A moment later, Gloria's eyes met hers. John kept her face a mask of calm, but her hands were clenched into fists, hiding a storm of rage. Gloria then spoke deliberately, "Take your time to answer, but since I truly hope you'll come, I'll give you the Golden Market ticket now." Dojin looked at the QR code on the phone screen and replied, "This is better than one of those single-use paper invites, isn't it? Thank you." John's mind spiraled, completely misunderstanding everything. When did she even get his phone number? Her own paranoid thoughts made her feel small as she muttered to herself, "The view over here is something else, isn't it?" After a moment, young Pio swaggered over, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The two great beauties of Korea and America, standing side by side, truly a sight to behold. "You're doing pretty well for yourself, Dojin. A flower in each arm. You must feel like you're on top of the world, right?" Dojin shot him a look of pure disgust. Yang Pio glared right back. Gloria Tyler saw him and tensed up, thinking, "Yang Pio looks like he's about to start something." A second later, he let out a loud, sudden laugh, making everyone turn to look at his arrogant face. Yang Pio spoke up, "Seriously, don't be so tense. I'm not planning on doing anything. I just wanted to introduce you to a friend of mine." "Oh, wait, maybe you two already know each other?" Takashi stepped forward, his arm in a sling and a grim look on his face. The moment he saw him, Dojin's expression soured. She couldn't hide the tension on her face, while her opponent said arrogantly, "Takashi, things got a lot more interesting the moment you showed up." John looked at him and thought, "Takashi, you're already out of the hospital?" Even Lopez was just as worried, thinking, "I specifically didn't invite Hiro Takashi because I was afraid this would happen. Why did these two have to run into each other at this exact moment?" Dojin had always despised Takashi, and the feeling was mutual. But out of pure courtesy, Dojin had to say something. "It seems your body has fully recovered," Takashi shot back with a sneer. "Thanks to you, I had a truly unforgettable experience." Dojin didn't hesitate to fire back. "As long as you think you're fine, that's all that matters." To prevent a brutal fight from breaking out, Lopez immediately jumped in. "Hiro Takashi, you've recovered so much. I didn't invite you to this event because I feared you would exhaust yourself. But seeing you like this puts my mind at ease. Come. There's a comfortable sofa over there. Please relax and chat." Yang Pio was furious that Lopez was leading Takashi away, cursing him under his breath. "Damn it, that old geezer can't ruin the opportunity I worked so hard to create." With that thought, he quickly ran to block their path and said with fake concern, Yes, you really should rest. The wound Dojin gave you must still be aching, right? By the way, I wonder if you ever received an apology. After all, you were the one who got hit, so you deserve one. Isn't that right?" His words made Takashi so angry he clenched his fists tightly. Hearing this, Lopez and Gloria Tyler both looked incredibly tense. Dojin had never been afraid of a direct confrontation, so he said pointedly, "Hey, the Yakuza are scum, aren't they?" That statement was the last straw, leaving Takashi stunned. Meanwhile, John was in complete shock, wondering, what is happening right now? After a moment, Takashi hesitated before answering. Is this really something we can talk about here? Dojin repeated himself. Of course they're scum. Takashi scowled, yelling back in anger. What? What did you say? And then Dojin calmly continued his verbal assault. They're useless trash that brings nothing good to society, right? Takashi went along with it. Absolutely. They're total garbage. John, standing near Dojin, felt a worried sense of deja vu. I feel like I've seen this exact scene somewhere before. Young Pio had no idea what Takashi was doing and whispered in his ear, Takashi, what the hell are you doing right now? Takashi turned and gave him a death glare that left young Pio in disbelief. Immediately after, Takashi suddenly pulled out a recording device, then hit the play button for everyone to hear. Just like that, the entire room fell silent, focused on the recording. Takashi, that thing I mentioned before, he needs to get it done quickly. What thing was that? You forgot? There's someone in Brazil who needs to be eliminated. Ah, right. I've just been so busy lately. What was his name again? Dojin just needs to take care of him inside the rift, right? Talking too much is just tiring. Is there anything else to do in Brazil? If there is, maybe dating some girls? On this trip, I want to try hitting on Gloria, or maybe John would be good too. I don't think she has a boyfriend yet. Well then, I'll see you in Brazil. Yang Pio knew instantly this recording was Dojin's work and turned to face him. He stared into Dojin's eyes and thought, I never expected the lynx's eye to be this powerful. At the same time, Dojin stared back at Yang Pio, thinking, you picked the wrong opponent. From this moment on, I will torture you until you beg for death. A few moments later, young Pio quickly bowed his head, avoiding the judgmental stares from everyone around him. A few seconds later, young Pio broke out in a cold sweat and scowled, knowing he wouldn't get out of this place safely. With no other choice, he decided to go all in and let out a huge laugh. Young Pio looked straight at Takashi and Dojin and cursed, Damn it, that stupid Yakuza idiot ruined everything. After saying that, he strode forward to face Takashi head-on. The crowd immediately erupted in panicked whispers. Yeah, he's already caused enough trouble, but if he keeps this up, something big is gonna happen. As everyone was talking, he made his move. Yang Pio aimed a blow straight at Takashi's chest. The attack landed, causing Takashi to cough up blood and scream in a furious rage. Seizing the opportunity, Yang Pio quickly made a run for it. Lopez immediately shouted an order. Now, get him! His subordinates rushed to obey. Yes, sir! A whole mob of his men started chasing Yang Pio. But even so, they were no match for him. John quickly urged, Dojin, hurry up and catch him. The next second, she gasped in shock at the scene before her. Dojin wasn't moving. He just stared straight ahead, leaving John utterly confused. He's not going to chase him? In a situation like that, the old Dojin would have been able to stop him easily. Overcome with curiosity, she walked over and asked Dojin why he didn't stop him. Dojin offered no reply. In the end, it was a night that sent shockwaves across the globe, and the fallout for both Korea and Japan was far beyond anything anyone could have imagined. Both governments and their hero associations scrambled to avoid the storm of public opinion. The media was having a field day, relentlessly exposing the past deeds of Yippio and Takashi. Who watched the news, her rage boiling over into a storm of pure fury. Clenching her fists, she seethed. Useless idiots, filthy bastards. Damn them all to hell! As the news spread like wildfire, Hugh completely lost her composure, unleashing her anger by obliterating everything in sight. She destroyed it all without a second thought. Director Lee, terrified of getting caught in the crossfire, didn't dare enter, but his face paled when Hu screamed his name. Director Lie, get in here now. At this point, nothing in her office was left intact. Hu sank into the sofa and demanded, What's the situation with Yippio? Director Lai answered nervously, Reports say Interpol and the World Hero Alliance are hunting him, but there's been no word of his capture yet. She spat another curse. That despicable bastard. I hope he resists and gets himself killed. Just get him out of my sight. The director didn't dare say another word. She continued, And the loose ends? Have they been cleaned up? He quickly reported, Yes, I've taken all necessary measures. Our accounts, the compromised communication networks, and the security cameras have all been thoroughly wiped. Is something troubling you, ma'am? Hu remained silent. A few seconds later, she tossed a phone at Director Lee. He scrambled to catch it, his heart pounding in his chest. The director stared at the device, then asked hesitantly, Wait, is this a phone? She shot back with a sarcastic question. You're looking right at it and you can't tell? I used that for personal affairs. You know that number is family only. Now, read the new message. Following her order, Director Lai quickly unlocked the phone and read the message's contents. Let's cooperate, partner. If you refuse, I leak the evidence. I'll be in touch. After reading it, Director Lai offered his take. Could this be Dojin? What kind of garbage partnership could we possibly have with him? Hu leaped from her seat, enraged. Does that even matter right now? She screamed. Just being associated with him is enough to spark a massive disaster. The director was completely flustered, at a total loss for words. For his incompetence, an object came flying at his head as Hu shrieked, "You're all a bunch of useless, incompetent parasites! Get out! Get out of my sight!" He scrambled out of the room, thinking, if I stick around any longer, my own life will be in danger. I have to find a way to save my own skin. Just as he opened the door, Director Lai came face to face with an elderly man. The man's expression soured at the sight of the director's panicked face. This man was Sion, Hong Hu's father-in-law, and the head of the Tea Corporation. At this sight, the blood drained from Director Li's face. He tried to hurry away, muttering, "My apologies, Chairman." Seeing her father-in-law, Hu froze. Her entire demeanor shifted as she stammered, "Ah, father, I was just about to say." Before she could finish, the sharp crack of a slap echoed through the room. She clutched her cheek, her body trembling with fear. He thundered, "Do you take me for some washed-up old man?" She feigned innocence, her voice shaking. "Father, what are you talking about?" His only answer was another stinging slap across her face. He roared right in her face. "You think I don't know you hired Yipio to kill Dojin?" Guilt and terror paralyzed Hu. She could only tremble, unable to utter a single word in her defense. Then, standing over her, he made a declaration. "My own flesh and blood is an S-rank hero. I will bring Dojin back home." His words left Hu utterly and completely stunned. He didn't hesitate to rub salt in the wound. "I've never liked the arrogant P Corporation, acting high and mighty just because they have Kang Suho. It seems the heavens are still looking out for my son. First things first, we have to figure out how to clean up the monumental mess you've made." Hearing this, Hu's brow furrowed, a look of desperation twisting her features. Meanwhile, as chaos erupted around Hu, Dojin's team was already returning to Korea. On the plane, he stared out the window, lost in thought. This Rift expedition was a massive success, yielding all the necessary materials and a huge profit. John leaned in and whispered to him, "Dojin, there's something I'm very curious about. Can you answer me?" Dojin replied in a low voice, "What is it?" She got straight to the point. "It's about Whippio. You intentionally let him escape, didn't you?" Dojin didn't answer, just offered a satisfied smile. Finally, he confirmed it for John, explaining it was the only way to advance to the next stage of his plan. The scene shifts to Seoul, Korea. As soon as they landed, Dojin took Uni out for a meal. She was absolutely ecstatic. He watched her, smiling, and asked, "Is it good?" Uni beamed with excitement. "It's the best thing ever!" Dojin just watched her eat, a content look on his face. But in that moment, his mind drifted back to recent events. His quiet mood stemmed from some difficult news he'd received. After returning to the country and reuniting with his family, Dojin was shocked by how frail his grandmother had become. Back then, he had asked angrily, "Grandma, why didn't you go to the hospital? Why didn't you at least call me?" She was too exhausted to speak, and Uni just sat there, silent and sad. After a moment, his little sister mumbled, "Big brother, please don't be mad at Grandma." Her words confused Dojin. Then, with a choked-up voice, she explained, "Grandma said you risk your life to earn that money, so we shouldn't waste it." Hearing this, Dojin reached out and gently stroked his grandmother's head. Uni looked at their grandma and added, "Going to the hospital when you're sick isn't wasting money." Dojin understood his grandmother's selfless heart completely. He leaned in and whispered to her, "I made a lot of money in Brazil, Grandma, so please don't worry, just go to the hospital. Anything you need, anything you want to buy. From now on, don't hold back. Just live comfortably." His grandmother couldn't speak, but her silent tears of joy said everything. Now that he had the money, Dojin immediately had her admitted to the best hospital in Korea. Visiting her with Uni every day and then grabbing hamburgers together became their new precious routine. After ensuring his grandmother was receiving superior care at a major hospital, the two siblings went to eat Uni's favorite food. The scene now changes to the Gasan Hero Complex. John Juon told Dojin, "I will definitely forge a blade with power that shatters all expectations." Dojin asked, "How much time will you need to make it?" John Juon thought for a moment, calculating. "Well, I estimate about 3 weeks. I will begin work on it immediately." Hearing this, Dojin made another proposal. "Besides the weapon, I have another item I'd like to commission. Would you be willing to help?" John Juon answered with confidence, "Not a problem at all. I will pour my soul into any request you have." Hearing this, Dojin pulled a strange-looking item from his inventory. As he drew it out, John Juon gasped in shock. "This thing, is it really?" Dojin stated calmly. "It's the silk and glands of a Velkara." John Juon's eyes lit up with excitement. "Are you planning on crafting protective armor? I assume I should take your measurements?" Dojin shook his head. "No." A warm, happy smile spread across his face as he replied, "I want to give it to my little sister." John Juon stared at him in surprise. "Your sister?" He never would have expected this, adding, "Armor woven from Velkara silk possesses legendary defensive capabilities. You must know how many heroes are desperately lining up to obtain it. Is your sister a hero too?" Dojin proudly showed John Juon a picture of his adorable sister. No, she's just an ordinary person. The craftsman saw the photo and smiled. Oh, she's a beautiful young lady, Dojin replied. That's why I need you to design it like a set of casual clothes, not like combat gear. John Juon let out a hearty, excited laugh. I understand perfectly. Haha. And then he hesitated. However, there is one small concern, Dojin wondered. What are you worried about? John Juon replied, children grow up in the blink of an eye. Once this suit is finished, she'll probably only be able to wear it for a year or two at most. Dojin chuckled at the problem, as if it were nothing at all. He took out a vial of liquid, startling John Juon again. What in the world is that now? Dojin explained. This is resin from a tau tree. If you mix it with the fibers, its elasticity will increase tenfold. Leaping from one surprise to another, a stunned John Juon stammered out, really? Is that even possible? He was puzzled. But the tau tree is just an ordinary monster plant. Dojin turned to leave, entrusting the task to the master. So please, just use it for this project. The craftsman watched him go, his eyes wide with disbelief. First the Cyclops' blood, and now this. Just where on earth does this kid find all these rare materials? Seeing the man's surprise, he froze in his tracks. Then Dojin turned to face him and replied, when you're on your second life, you tend to know a lot of things. The scene shifts to a city of towering skyscrapers. Inside, people rush about their day, each lost in their own world, when a lone figure appears, moving silently through the crowd. He steps into a hidden cafe tucked away in an alley called Paradise Cafe. A server spots Park Sung-gook and immediately bows, a warm welcome to you, sir. He walked in, sizing the place up. A cafe in the basement? The owner clearly had zero business sense. Park Sung-gook then moved forward, his eyes locked on the figure ahead. But it was exactly this lack of vision that made it the perfect spot for a secret meeting. Dojin sat waiting, his hood pulled up. Park Sung-gook approached and took something from his pocket. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. He offered his business card to Dojin. I'm Park Sung-gook, the one you contacted. This was Park Sung-gook, 52 years old, the former chief of staff for S Group, and now a freelancer. Dojin looked up and replied, hello, I'm Dojin. Park Sung-gook was puzzled. A famous hero who's been all over the news lately. What business could you have with someone like me? Dojin answered. John sent me. I heard you're an expert in helping VIPs and heroes with discreet matters. Park Sung-gook nodded. That's right, I can handle any construction project you can imagine. At the same time, he placed an order. 1 hot espresso, please. Then, turning back to Dojin, he added, as long as it doesn't break any laws. Dojin cut to the chase. I'm looking to build a house. Park Sung-gook's eyes widened. A mansion? Hearing that, Park Sung-gook understood immediately. A job you'd discuss with a fixer instead of a construction company means the house you want is anything but simple, right? Dojin was impressed. He catches on quick. I need the safest house in the world. Park Sung-gook asked, what's your target location and projected budget? Just then, the server brought their drinks. Here's your coffee, sir. Park Sung-gook took a sip while listening to Dojin. The ideal location is in Seoul. The budget is about 500 billion. The massive number caused Park Sung-gook to do a spit take all over the table. Dojin, now splattered with coffee, continued unfazed. Is this the first time you've handled a project of this financial scale? Park Sung-gook stammered, no, that's not it at all. He frantically grabbed a napkin and started wiping Dojin's face, sweating and breathing heavily. Trying to regain his composure, he asked, it sounds like what you want to build isn't a house, but a fortress. Dojin's interest was piqued. A fortress? Fortress. That might be a good idea. Dojin then asked, would 1 trillion be enough? Park Sung-gook started sweating again, just thinking about that much money. Hero Dojin, I have to wonder. Do you know where the safest house in Korea currently is? Dojin replied, of course. It's the Sang Group chairman's estate in Gangnam. Park Sung-gook confirmed. Yes, that's the one. Chairman Oh's mansion is valued around 17 billion, but the land and installation costs alone were about 80 billion. With your budget, Hero Dojin could build something far superior. However, Gangnam is out of the question. You'll never be able to buy land there. Because Gangnam has never had a single-dimensional rift appear, it's considered the safest place in Korea. The property values there only go up. They never fall. So, to conclude, building the best house is within your power. But finding the safest land? That won't be simple at all. What do you plan to do? Dojin took a slow sip of his coffee before speaking. The most peaceful place isn't actually Gangnam. The idea that Gangnam is the safest place is just wishful thinking from the people who live there.